Hey everyone. Welcome back for the third part of Escape to Kumo. As always, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Making these videos would be impossible without you guys' support, especially with all the restrictions YouTube places on my type of content. As always, the rest of the story is already out over there for you guys, along with about 30 other different stories you can enjoy. Also, feel free to send me any messages over there if you have any questions or even if you just want to chat. Link to all of that will be in the description. Anyways, everyone, enjoy the video. Hokage's office. Later that night, Fugaku called his spymaster into his office. Jiraiya was a man of many quirks, but he was effective when it came to doing his job. Jiraiya had been out of the village for years and only shown up for the Chunin exams. He then disappeared to do his research, and after 2 weeks, Fugaku was able to get him into a meeting. Now, the older man with a long and untidy mane of white hair was standing in front of his desk waiting for him to speak. "Okay, Jiraiya, what reports do you have for me?" Fugaku said with a short tone. "Well, Sand has been severely weakened by us taking those missions. If your goal is takeover, it will be easy enough in a year or two. They seem to be mobilizing for something, but there has been no increased activity on our borders. There is something sinister going on in the land of rice paddies. There are far too many missing nins roaming around there casually and wearing the symbol of Otogacore. I would assume that the new village recruited missing ninjas to bolster its numbers. I attempted to find Otogacore, but rumors say that it is a series of underground bases. I was also able to confirm that it is being led by Orochimaru. The snake has been sighted making the rounds to various leaders, but I don't know why. I would have loved to get my hands on that auto team for some questions, but that Rudo kid took them out. Quite the interesting gaki, that one." Fugaku listened to the report. Since being ejected from Kiri and Wave, he is focused in on the Sand and some of the minor nations. "And what of Taki?" "I found the way in. We can get there Jinchuriki easy enough. She is isolated to the Great Tree and isn't allowed inside the town. She is guarded by 2 Chunin at any time, but that is it. I would recommend sending Kakuzu and the Jashinist, but I would try simply recruiting the girl first. We could use a biju to bolster our strength. Do you think that she would come willingly?" Fugaku seemed interested in this option. "Yeah, why don't you send some Aburame to Taki in secret and have them meet with the girl? Shino is on his way to becoming a good shinobi and he is around her age. I will sneak them in and distract the Chunin guards so they can meet. And if that doesn't work? Well then, we put your goon squad to work and get more forceful. I always wanted peace in the shinobi nations, but playing nice has lost me everyone I loved. I think it is time to take a more hands-on approach," Jiraiya said with conviction. Yes, I am still sorry about what happened to Kushina and young Naruto. Tsunade still won't talk to you?" Fugaku had to hide the smirk that threatened to escape. He worked for a long time to get this powerful shinobi to his side. "She damn near killed me the last time I approached her. I haven't seen her that angry since I last peeped on her." "I would cut your losses with that one," Jiraiya cautioned. Fugaku waved him off. "She is unnecessary. I have no need for a has-been drunk. I want you to look into this Maki family while they are here. They could be our greatest ally or fiercest enemy," Jiraiya sighed. "I have been trying, but they are locked up tight. They are highly disciplined, and they are constantly on high alert. I really wish that you didn't make it so hard for me. Any rational person can't blame them for their skepticism. Yes, it is regrettable. If I could redo it, I admit that I would take a different approach." Jiraiya shrugged in response. "What's done is done. I will keep an eye out, but I think they just want to wrap up their business, get their promotions and get out of here." Meanwhile, while there was scheming in the Hokage office, a meeting was occurring in the Ame team's room. The Jonin that failed had been sent back with Konan while Nagato and Yahiko remained to train Amy. "Yahiko, I know you want to approach Jiraiya-sensei, but he cannot be trusted. He still works for the Hokage. We should focus on strengthening the relationship with Kumo rather than reopen old wounds." Nagato's even tone put a damper on Yahiko's hopes. "Oh, come on, Nagato. He was the one that trained us and made peace in Ame possible. He probably thinks we are dead." Yahiko whined. "And it is better off that way, old friend. The old toad is still the spymaster of Konoha and Hanzo-sama doesn't want us associating with him. It will inevitably get back to Danzo, which would create problems down the road." Nagato shot back. Amy watched the interaction with curiosity. "Daddy told me about what Konoha tried to do back in the day. I want nothing to do with them." She got stars in her eyes. "Can't you just focus on helping me prepare for my fight against Rudo? We have been doing that for the past couple weeks. You are ready, but I do now wish to give you false hope. That boy is something else entirely. I get the feeling that he would give each of us a run for our money if he were to get serious. Yahiko answered. Amy waved him off. There is victory to be gained if he defeats me. If he impresses Daddy, then Daddy will have no choice but to honor the clan customs. I just need to push him hard enough to show Daddy his strength. Why are you so interested in my cousin, Amy-chan? Nagato asked, genuinely curious. Amy held up fingers and began counting off. 1. Have you seen that body? 2. Have you felt that powerful protective aura? 3. A man doesn't walk around with 2 girls of that caliber unless he earned it. 4. No boy my age has ever challenged me or proven to be my equal. 5. Can I just say his body again? Yahiko chuckled while Nagato shook his head. Well, Amy-chan, he would prove to be a powerful ally. Let's go to the training ground and prepare further to make sure you can make him earn his keep. 2 days before Chunin exam finals, I arrived at the front gates of Kumo with his secretary Kaoru, Rias, 2 squads of Bolt, and Dodai. Kaoru and Rias wanted to see their Uzumaki cousins represent and kick some butt, so after nagging I for nearly the whole month, I agreed to bring them along. He brought Dodai in because Dodai was responsible for handling the non-aggression pact and I wanted a familiar face for Konoha to negotiate with. The diplomatic envoy checked in at the front gates and was informed that the Hokage wished to speak with them. As they made their way to the Hokage Tower, I let Kaoru and Rias go to the Golden Leaf Hotel where the Kumo teams were waiting for them. I and Dodai walked into the Hokage's office 10 minutes later and were greeted by Fugaku and the 3 village elders. I held back a scowl when he looked at Danzo before he threw on his traditional smirk and greeted Fugaku. After the pleasantries were over with, Fugaku got straight to the serious stuff. It pleases me that you came early enough that we could start with some peace talks. Your Jonin have made a powerful impression on us and we wish to deepen the bond between Konoha and Kumo to move it past a simple non-aggression pact. I looked impassive and kept his features schooled. Okay, Fugaku, before we talk about that, why don't we address the extra adversity that my Jonin teams faced? We could begin by discussing why they don't feel safe enough to let their guards down and enjoy the delicious local cuisine for starters. Fugaku bowed ever so slightly to I. That was an overzealous move made by my advisor Danzo. It wasn't malicious, he was simply looking out for Konoha's best interest. I didn't suppress this scowl. So, poisoning foreign shinobi as they dine in your village during an exam protected by international law isn't malicious? What, pray tell, would you consider it then? Danzo stepped forward and bowed his head. A mistake. We heard of the prowess of your Jonin and feared that our Jonin would be woefully outmatched. I took measures to even the playing field and I was caught doing so. I humbly apologize. Fugaku picked up where Danzo left off. Adversity during foreign Chunin exams is expected. Your shinobi were well trained enough to shrug it off. Can we not move past it in favor of better relations in the future? I grunted before letting it go. What did you have in mind? Lady Shina informed me of the marriage proposal. I must thank you for a good laugh. I would have thought that your profilers could have found a better match for Ruto. Fugaku grunted back at that. They did, but my daughter Itachi is already promised to Neji Hyuga when he earns his Chunin promotion. Yes, that would have been a better choice. What's wrong? The Hyuga didn't want to swallow their pride and let you offer Itachi? Would it have changed your answer? Fugaku shot back. I shrugged his massive shoulders. Probably not, but Rudo wouldn't have been so offended. I may as well announce this now. Rudo is my successor and will take over for me on his 18th or 21st birthday, the when is still being debated. There is no kunoichi in this world that will get that kid to leave Kumo. Homura's eyes widened at that revelation. If we were to offer a kunoichi to return to Kumo with him then? I looked at the wrinkled elder impassively. I would ask why you are so keen on him being the intended. If you are after the secrets to my village's recent success, I would tell you that you are wasting your time. Even if we were your allies, you wouldn't share such secrets? Fugaku asked with a meaningful tone. Not right away we wouldn't. With respect, Fugaku, I do not wish to be your enemy but those aren't my secrets to share. The Maki family has been Kami's blessing to Kumo, and they have expressed their wariness in trusting Konoha. Koharu picked up on that and couldn't stop herself from asking, why? What have we ever done to wrong the Maki clan? I slowly turned his head to meet Koharu's gaze. I will counter with this. When your ancestral allies, the Uzumaki, were attacked and needed your help, what did Konoha do? The past provides great insight to the future. Koharu and Homura had enough shame to lower their heads, but Danzo and Fugaku did not. Fugaku answered those charges. It was war, and we could not send reinforcements quickly enough. By the time we arrived, most of the foreign shinobi were destroyed and Uzu was submerged. I smirked as he continued to conduct the conversation. Oh? Okay then. What about the Uzumaki survivor and her family? We gave Kushina-sama an estate here in Konoha and sheltered her. Homura answered. Okay, time for the big reveal that should make it blatantly obvious for you to understand, Lady Shina. The Maki clan branched off of the Uzumaki clan to take their practices to the west. She returned shortly after Kushina Uzumaki and her son were killed. She saw that Konoha did nothing to gather the Uzumaki survivors and offer them refuge. Can you say anything that would counter that? The survivors scattered around the elemental nations. There was nothing to be done. Danzo answered. Coming from a black ops guy like you, Danzo, allow me to say you are full of shit. Lady Shina and her son have done more for the Uzumaki survivors in the last year than Konoha has done since the fall of Uzu. Two branches of a broken clan are coming back together with the full support of Kumo. I will end this conversation with this since I do not wish to keeping going in circles. Before Kumo would ever consider furthering our relationship with Konoha, the relationship with the Maki clan would need to be repaired. Quite frankly, the few members of the Maki clan are more precious to Kumo than I am. Good day, Fugaku, I thank you for your hospitality. I walked out of the room smirking with Dodai following behind him. He left 4 gobsmacked fools in his wake and he felt like he got just a little bit of enjoyment out of that. Dodai wasn't as confident. Was it wise to give them such information, Reikage-sama? I waved it off. Lady Shina gave me the approval. She didn't feel like spending any more time talking about marriage with the fools. I ended with a look to Dodai not to say more until they were in a secure area. 30 minutes later, I and Dodai joined the Kumo teams in Rudo's room, which now felt quite cramped. I, Kushina, Dodai, Daru, Shi and Yugito stood and addressed the Jonin on the beds. Okay, Bolts, I am proud of you. You performed up to expectations and we will be able to make a statement in these finals. Ruto, you are up against a tough opponent, and I just announced you as my successor. Go ahead and use the lightning armor if you need it against the Hattori girl. Mabui and Tuya, no need to hold back in your fights. I would prefer you not kill them, but it wouldn't be a great setback if you did. Amoe, no killing or maiming the Kazekage's daughter. She could be a good ally in the future. A chorus of hi, Reikage-sama answered I. Okay, moving on, I just stirred up the hornet's nest for the Makis, it was part of the plan, but you need to be on guard during the invasion now more than ever. Each of your blood clones are prepared and will be providing your alibi during the invasion. Since the Master Scroll of the Namikaze is still missing, it is more important than ever to get into the Hokage's office. If the scroll is in the Hokage's vault, take it and everything else. If it is not in the Hokage's vault, check other hidden areas. You will need to work fast and you cannot leave any survivors. Kushina, what's the status with the Exodus? Kushina stepped forward. So far, we have gotten confirmation from Hitomi and Hanabi Hyuga, the rest of the clan isn't worth saving. Hinata's performance in the exams made me withdraw my offer and Hitomi conceded. Mikoto, Shisui, Itachi and Sazumi Uchiha are in line to join. Mikoto told me that she would be talking to Sazumi on the morning of the finals, but she thinks that she would accept. Kakashi, Yu Gao, Hayate Gecko, Genma Shiranui and Kurenai Yuhi will join as well. They are all old students and I trust them implicitly. The other clans will take more time and convincing, if we even deem them worth the effort. So, it was a complete no-go on the Nara then? I asked. Nope. They are too lazy and too smart to approach. They haven't given the proper indication that they are frustrated enough with the current regime to leave. That's too bad, I would have thought that they could see the signs. I replied. Moving on, Rudo, what's this I hear about Hanzo's girl? Naruto shrugged, Iogi, you know that I don't go out of my way to make things happen. She has been rather forthright in her intentions. According to her, she is going to go all out on me and if I beat her then her clan customs make me eligible to be her husband. I will let the girls take it from here because I quite frankly don't care either way. I looked at Samui and Mabui who were sitting next to Naruto. Mabui spoke. Reikage-sama, if it is for the good of Kumo, we won't resist it. She is strong and seems like a good enough person, but if she hurts Naruto, she is dead. Okay, deal with it when we cross that road then, got it. Hanzo is going to be in attendance Naruto, so keep that in mind. Shina, what's the word with Nagato? He was happy to reunite with family, but his allegiance is to Ame. He has been with his 2 friends, Yahiko and Konan, since his parents were killed in the Third War. He will not leave them, which I can respect. So, Ame could make a good potential ally? I asked with interest filling his tone. Yup, a very good ally. Along with securing their borders, they have raised a sizable and strong shinobi force. Kushina answered merrily. Okay, these last 2 days should be final prep work. Make sure you know your routes, your escape routes, Plan which jutsu you would use in the event of a fight. I don't want any of you using Raiten techniques if you are forced to fight during the invasion. It is going to be chaos, so watch your backs out there. Chunin exam finals, I watched from the cage box with Lady Shina and Daru as his divine bolts took the field. They were on high alert and ready to go at any moment. Next to him, Fugaku sat with Jiraiya and Hiruzen behind him. Fugaku decided having Hiruzen present would send a powerful message that Konoha was still protected by two Hokages. Everyone turned and watched as the Kazekage entered the chamber, wearing the typical sand veil of Suna Shinobi. The two guards that entered alongside him took up their positions behind the Kazekage silently. Greetings, Kazekage-san, I do hope your journey was tolerable. Fugaku greeted. Though the desert is harsh, it was still a pleasant journey. I couldn't miss my two children's performance. Hokage-san, do you think that your son will put up a good fight against mine? The Kazekage asked in a smug tone. I believe in the might of the Uchiha, Kazekage-san. Ah, yes, it will be most interesting to see how far the boy has come along with your dujutsu. The slimy nature of the Kazekage's answer sent shivers down everyone's spine. Fugaku stood up to address the stadium and start the exams, noting that his son and the ever-late Kakashi were absent. Greeting, people of Fire Country and all of our valued visitors. Welcome to the semi-annual Chunin exams in Konoha. Today, we have Jonin from Konoha, Kumo, Suna and Ame competing on behalf of their villages. Please join me in giving them a warm welcome. A rowdy applause filled the stadium as people hurried to make their final bets, including one very well-endowed sandy blonde. Today, they will compete in tournament-style matches to demonstrate their skills and convince us that they are worthy of their promotions to Chunin. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Shisui Uchiha. Thank you, Hokage-sama. These are no-holds-barred matches that will continue until your opponent is unable to fight, dead or I call the match. You will honor my orders at all times. Will Rudo Maki and Amy Hattori stay on the field for the first match? The rest of you may go to the finalist box. Ruto was dressed in his chosen outfit. His long, sun-kissed blonde hair was tied back into a man bun with two blonde locks that fell and framed his bolt mask. He wore a black, short-sleeved combat shirt under his slick body armor that was covered in pouches containing scrolls and a couple kunai. He had his greatsword strapped on his back with the hilt popping out over his left shoulder and maintained the katana on his left hip. The three golden bracelets jingled on his wrist with each movement of his well-toned arms. His black cargo pants were loose enough to provide freedom of movement and led into black combat boots. All in all, he looked like on badass mofo that was ready to lay a beatdown on any fool that stepped to him. Amy was wearing the same setup she wore for the prelims except she removed her weighted rain jacket and rebreather mask. Her dual blades were in an X sheath on her back and a beautiful smirk graced her lips. I have been waiting eagerly for this day, Rudo-kun. I do hope you don't disappoint. Her sensual tone threatened to lure in any lesser man. In her head, she was squealing like a fangirl about how hot Rudo looked in his uniform. It took all of her kunoichi training to stop herself from imagining Rudo with his uniform off. Ruto smiled coyly under his mask. I am sure you have, Amy-chan. I will do my best to live up to your expectations. He pulled Heaven's blessing off his back and sealed it away. Amy cocked her head at him. I only use Heaven's blessing on those I intend to kill. I could never rob the elemental nations of your beauty. Amy blushed furiously at this while Shisui smirked, waiting for the exchange to be completed to start the match. Amy's mind was reeling from the compliment and her only comeback was a whispered, "BBBB baka." Shisui took that as his cue and knifed his hand down through the air, which seemed to snap Amy out of it. She launched herself at impressive speeds toward Rudo and lashed out with a right cross into a left uppercut. Ruto blocked the right cross and took the uppercut to his gut but used that opportunity to secure Amy's fist to his stomach. She saw the hold coming and used her momentum to slide under her much bigger opponent, dragging his arm through his legs. Ruto let her get away and simply stood up and turned around. He then blurred toward Amy, lashing out with punches and kicks that put the Ame Jonin and daughter of Hanzo to the test. After blocking Rudo's first punch with one forearm, Amy decided that blocking was a terrible idea. Pain lanced up her arm and made her decide to dodge and parry the rest of his blows. The one-sided offensive continued for a while before Rudo broke contact and let her catch her breath. Up in the stands, Tsunade was sitting with Shizune, Yugao and Kurenai and they were discussing the performance thus far. That Ame Kunoichi is keeping up with Ruto. That is actually kind of impressive, Yugao said. Tsunade TSK'd, the brat hasn't even gotten serious yet. I put every Ryu I had on him winning this fight. He better start taking the girl seriously. I saw her use Hanzo's poison, which could potentially put Rudo down. Shizune chided Tsunade. It is not Rudo's fault that you are such a gambling addict. Plus, he is good enough to figure out a counter to that jutsu since he saw her use it in the finals. Yeah, but that's probably not the only poison jutsu she knows. How do you know Rudo hasn't gotten serious yet, Lady Tsunade? Kurenai asked. She was honestly impressed because Rudo was moving amid Jonin speeds. Nai-chan, that kid is the Refuge's apprentice. If that were his top speed, I would have chucked him off the mountain. Plus, I have sparred with him many times before. He still has his seals active and is holding back to give the girl a chance to show off. Back in the arena, Amy caught her breath and smirked. Why are you going easy on me, Rudo-kun? Because you have yet to go all out, Amy-chan. I want to put on a good show. How about you release your seals, and I will release half of mine? He challenged her. Deal, don't cry to me later. Amy released seals on her wrists and ankles, which Naruto answered with 5 glowing seals on his body. He released the resistance seals completely but kept the weight seals to make it fair. Amy drew out her wakizashis and began a high-speed attack that left the audience wondering what all of the blurs were. The Kenjutsu fight went back and forth with streak of motion that would pause for the briefest instant and provide a glimpse of swords clashed in a variety of ways. Rudo's katana movements were swift and graceful, dealing with the threat of the dual wakizashis easy enough. Amy was struggling to gain the upper hand in a purely Kenjutsu bout, so she decided that it was time for chakra. Rudo noticed Amy's swords beginning to glow with the bluish-white sheen of wind chakra, so he answered in kind. Whereas the kodachis were 40 inches in length and extended to 50 inches with wind chakra, Rudo's katana was an extra long 65-inch blade that extended well past 7 feet. Due to Rudo's chakra channeling. Furthermore, Rudo had self-repair seal on his blade that consumed his chakra to maintain the edge. It only took 3 minutes of chakra on chakra for Rudo's far more potent chakra sword to cleave through one wakizashi and crack the other. In a graceful spin, Rudo blocked an upward slash from the left sword, spun to avoid the twin swing from the right sword, and then accelerated his spin to send a powerful horizontal slash at the stunned kunoichi. The combination of Rudo's bigger chakra blade, the concentration of the blade and the power of the spin caused Amy's first sword to get sheared clean through while the second sword of the X-guard cracked nearly halfway through the blade. Both Kenjutsu masters saw this and Rudo let Amy create space and reset the fight. Up in a dignitary's box, Hanzo sat next to his wife, Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato. He was watching the match with interest and using every skill he could to analyze the young blonde. He is most impressive. His skills are quite refined for one so young and his frame gives him the power to dominate a battle of finesse. It appears as though my daughter will need to resort to the clan jutsus. Nagato spoke respectfully, Hanzo-sama, there is no shame in losing to my cousin. He was taught by Lady Shina, a most formidable swordsmistress, from a young age. She prepared him to deal with the many enemies he will surely grow to have. So, Nagato, you believe my daughter will lose? Hanzo quirked an eyebrow at Nagato's bold claim. Oh, wouldn't that be splendid, dear? You know Amy is getting to that age and every boy in Amigacore is too scared to challenge her for the right of marriage. Hanzo's wife chipped gleefully into the conversation. Maria, she is still too young. I am not ready to leave her in the hands of a boy. Hanzo's tone carried a fatherly pout to it. Konan sighed before telling the obvious to her master. Hanzo-sama, it is obvious that she is a daddy's girl, and you are not ready to let go. If you do not let go, she will rebel, and the separation will hurt far more than if you accept the situation. If you do not let go, how will the Hattori clan continue its legacy? Konan, my baby girl has many years to decide her mate. I know nothing of this young man, and you all seem too eager for my tastes. Just watch the damn fight. Hanzo growled. Ara, did the great Hanzo the salamander just pout? You are too cute when it comes to our baby girl. Maria squealed with delight at the rare sight of her husband showing emotion. Amy was struggling to remain standing now. Rather than let her prepare ninjutsu, Amy was forced to deal with clone after clone of the massive blonde. One clone would simply puff into smoke, another would burst into a shock of lightning, yet another wind blades and her least favorite was the water clones that would drench her from head to foot. She knew Ruto was playing with her, and she had enough of it. After dispelling yet another water clone, Amy blurred forward to fight the original. She engaged in a taijutsu battle that she was clearly losing, but she was slowly molding the chakra needed. Ruto saw her pretty pink cheeks bulge and he slammed his hand into the ground and placed a vacuum seal. He may have added a little more chakra than intended because everything in a 10-meter radius was being sucked into the vacuum. Amy was so surprised that she let the gas out prematurely and watched as the gas was sucked into the seal. I told you Ruto would come ready for the same tactic, Shizune said proudly. Tsunade cheered while Yugao and Kurenai watched on with interest. That was quite the counter to our salamander's breath. Not even the Sannin back in the day employed such a tactic. Hanzo grunted in acknowledgement. That reminds me, dear, why did you let those kids go? Did they really put up that much of a fight? Maria asked. For kids their age, they did. I didn't feel like taking their lives, and they were the first ones before these three that pushed me to summon the boss salamander. I thought that deserved recognition. Hanzo explained. Yahiko laughed. Look how that turned out. One pedophile, one pervert, and one gambling drunk. Admittedly, they are strong, but they leave a lot to be desired. After recovering from the surprise seal, Amy began flipping through hand signs again. Her cheeks bulged and she shot out globs of purple poison at high speeds. Ruto saw this, clapped his hands together before swirling them in a circular motion and whispering futon, wind wall. The air rushed in front of Ruto and formed a barely visible wall that halted the advance of the poison globs. Ruto watched the poison eat into the ground and gulped. He may be immune, but the thought of that poison goo on his junk would be enough to make any man nervous. Hikari heard the thought clearly and nearly fell off of her couch laughing. Rudo decided to go on the ninjutsu offensive and show off some of his skills. Forming lightning chakra in his right hand and water chakra in his left, he called out storm style, laser circus. The next 20 seconds of the fight were spent with Amy dodging a hail of lasers that punched straight through her water wall. She took a couple of hits to her front and side, each hit sizzling through her uniform and showing off some singed skin. Amy decided to go for broke and bring out the summons. She summoned a mid-sized salamander that was the size of a large house. She threw a rebreather in her mouth to protect herself from the potent poisons of the salamander clan. Ruto paused here. He had two options. Answer a summons with a summons or step up his own game. Deciding to enjoy the fight, Ruto unsealed Heaven's blessing and channeled lightning chakra through the blade in his body. Even through the noise of the fight, Ruto heard the crowd gasp as he became encased in the thin blue haze of his Stage 1 lightning armor. Hanzo sighed. Rudra isn't going to like this. I have a feeling he will be losing one of his clansmen today. What makes you say that, Hanzo-sama? Konan asked. That boy can clearly handle a summon of this level. He brought out his sword as soon as he saw little Deaden there. I can only hope Deaden dispels before he sustains too much damage. Amy ordered her summon to attack and buy her time to form her next jutsu. The massive salamander moved at surprising speeds toward the glowing Ruto. Before it could completely close the distance, Ruto disappeared in a burst of speed, leaving only a crackle of lightning in his place. The next thing the crowd knew, the salamander let out a roar of pain and sent Amy flying off of its head, unprepared for such a sudden dismounting. The crowd watched purple blood spurt out of the salamander's side from a gash that ran from behind its front leg down to its tail. The wound crackled with electricity before the giant summon dispelled in a puff of smoke that obscured the audience's view. When the smoke cleared, the audience saw Amy captured princess style in Ruto's arms. In his left hand, he had a kunai pointed at her jugular. Amy remained frozen in Ruto's arms. How can such hard muscle feel so comfortable and natural? Amy also caught a full blast of Ruto's pheromones that were pouring off him in waves due to the prolonged battle. Amy didn't say anything, she simply leaned her head into Ruto's chest and waited for the fight to be called. Oh. My. Goodness. That is so cute, honey. Our daughter is in love. Maria's excited screams could be heard above the roar of the crowd as Hanzo sunk his face into his hands. The Ame trio laughed at their leader's fatherly predicament before promptly silencing themselves when Hanzo glared at them. Elsewhere in the stadium, yes. That's my gaki. Boom. 2 million ryu in the bank. This prompted Shizune to adopt a similar pose to Hanzo's for a completely different reason. In the cage box, Fugaku was drooling at the prospect of having that kind of potential at his disposal. That young man is truly a promising young shinobi. It would be a crime to leave him as a Jonin. Thank you, Fugaku. I appreciate that coming from a clan as prodigious as your own. The Kazekage seemed pensive as he added in half-hearted praise. Indeed, he is quite the interesting young man. This earned a glare from Lady Shina, who had already identified the man as Orochimaru. She would warn I about it during the intermission. Ruto attempted to set Amy down, but she refused and whimpered in protest. Sighing, he carried the beaten Kunoichi princess style to the finalist box. This earned catcalls and jealous protests from some of the females in the crowd, but nothing compared to the knowing look that greeted him in the contestants' box. Samui and Mabui's eyes were alight with mischief as they simply locked eye contact with Ruto through their masks. Ruto shrugged before he set Emi down in a chair and went to join his two wonderful women. In the internal comms, Ruto was getting busted by all of his friends. Sure took your time dealing with her, my love. Was she that much fun to play with? Mabui asked. I mean, it is cool with me, but I don't think it was cool to play with her for so long. I think you owe me some cuddle time for your indulgence. I believe you mean US some cuddle time, don't you, Samui-chan? Mabui chided. A mutter of lucky bastard came through the channel before Tuya bonked Atsui on the head. Shisui called for the next contestants to come to the battlefield and Mabui received a passionate kiss from her lover before sauntering her way out of the box. This earned Ruto jealous looks from Samui and Amy, the prior of which kept Ruto's mask up and claimed his lips. Mabui looked like a battle goddess with her silvery white hair hanging over her mask, the katana/kadachi pairing on her left hip just like Lady Sheena, and the tight, white shirt emphasized all of the right assets. The prim and proper Neji was forcing down lustful thoughts as he stared at his competition. I have nothing against you, Kunoichi-san, but I would recommend you forfeit. There is nothing you can do against the might of the Hyuga, and I do not wish to hurt a beautiful lady such as yourself, Neji said in a formal and somewhat polite tone. Oh, Hyuga-san, I don't know whether to be offended or flattered. If that is what Itachi-chan has to look forward to, then I don't know whether I should be jealous or pity her. What business does my betrothed have with you? Neji asked while narrowing his eyes. Zero business, nothing at all. Just good old-fashioned rumor mill stuff. Kunoichi loved to gossip, you know. So, tell me, Hyuga-san, do you know the weakness of your eyes? Mabui's melodious yet taunting tone would haunt Neji's dreams for weeks to come. The Hyuga have no weakness. Oh, dear. I believe I must show you that you are wrong. Hajime. Shisui called before jumping out of the way. Neji activated his Byakugan and was confused. The armor and the shirt and the pants the Kunoichi was wearing blocked him from seeing her tenketsu, which was a major problem. Mabui held up one finger. Lesson 1, a simple chakra seal can stop you from seeing my chakra network. Right now, you can only see my head, which is an obvious weak point, so it doesn't matter. The Hyuga in the crowd shifted uneasily as their weaknesses were being put on display for other nations. Neji scowled, but Mabui held up a second finger. Lesson 2, by infusing my own chakra into my clothing, you cannot inject your chakra required into my system and close off my tenketsu. The Hyuga elders were glaring daggers at the girl and looked close to jumping over the railing to shut this girl up. The camera crews would broadcast this worldwide and expose their weaknesses. Meanwhile, Neji was digging his feet into the ground in preparation to dash toward Mabui, who was waiting for it. A third finger was put in the air and the Hyuga elders were practically begging Neji to end this fight. Lesson 3, your eyes are sensitive to chakra. Neji blurred forward and Mabui activated a barrier seal she was palming. A bright blue dome that was 3 meters in diameter spread around Mabui and Neji ran smack dab into it. It was an electric barrier that sent a good jolt into Neji's system and halted his advance. Mabui jumped back and began to chide Neji, to the humor of the crowd and the infuriation of the Hyuga. Now, Neji-san, the lesson wasn't finished. Mabui lectured while wagging a finger at Neji. Neji was seeing red and began dashing at Mabui again to close the distance and end her foolish existence. The veins around his eyes were bulging wildly and a snarl was fixed to his face. Screw you, you clanless filth. You will die by my hand today, fate demands it. Neji screamed at the top of his lungs while he charged. Mabui braced herself by bending her knees and right before Neji's fingers touched her, she channeled chakra to another seal matrix on her armor and Neji received a numbing shock to his fingers, but he pushed on and engaged in a taijutsu fight against the silver-haired Kunoichi. Each strike Neji landed was ineffective at affecting Mabui overall. That is not to say it didn't hurt, but the strength of the Juken was effectively neutralized. Mabui finally had enough space to draw her 2 swords and lightning sparked to life around the blades. Neji saw the blades and jumped back to create some distance. Now, Neji-san, lesson 4 is the most important one. The Hyuga's pride is their greatest weakness. You have no ninjutsu, your shuriken and kunai throwing are put on the back burner and your Juken means jack all at range. Now, come Neji, let us conclude this lesson. In the contestants' box, Rudo was practically drooling through his mask. He was totally going to have Mabui play teacher while he performs the role of the naughty student. Hikari giggled in his mind and said that she would be the headmistress. Ruto could be seen spacing out and nodding his head vigorously. Thank Kami for the mask that covered his face and preserved his dignity. Mabui threw kunais that Neji easily deflected into the area around him before she channeled chakra to her palms and clapped her hands together to perform the Raiten, lightning rod jutsu. The lightning stream was thick and powerful and heading straight for Neji. He saw the kunais around him and knew that it wouldn't be good for him. He began spinning rapidly and a blue chakra dome formed around him as he called out Kaiten, heavenly spin. The lightning jutsu was reflected and redirected into the kunai around Neji. The chakra Neji was emitting during his jutsu protected him from the effects. While Neji was spinning, Mabui pulled out a clump of her favorite flash tags and attached them to a kunai. She lobbed them toward Neji, closed her eyes and formed the rat hand seal to detonate the tags. A blinding flash of light lit up the stadium and blinded a good portion of the crowd, especially the Hyugas with their Byakugan activated. The whole Hyuga section was clutching their eyes in pain, some stumbling over themselves and falling over the chairs. Back on the battlefield, the blinding white light nearly destroyed Neji's eyes and the pain caused him to stumble and release his kaiden. The stumble during the abrupt end of his jutsu sent him tumbling across the ground as Mabui finished her jutsu. Raiten, thunderclap, as Mabui slammed her palms together, a stream of lightning arced from her toward the blinded Neji. It hit him dead on and caused him to cry out in pain again as the lightning coursed through his body. The electrification ignited every pain sensor on his body, which overloaded his brain and left him in a smoldering lump on the arena floor. Mabui didn't feel the need to push things further, but she made sure to look at the Hyuga section of the stands and began giggling. The seals around the stadium picked up the enchanting sound and taunted the Hyuga that were stumbling around blind. Mabui was already walking off of the field when Shisui announced her the winner. She locked eyes with Rudo's azure blues and began fantasizing about the victory sex when this was all over. A pawn in the cage box, Fugaku was having a bad day. That was a complete mockery of one of Konoha's strongest clans. A complete dissection of the Byakugan and a thorough instruction manual on how to defeat Hyuga opponents. The next council meeting would be sheer torture. He could tell I was sitting there smugly, waiting for him to open the comments on the match. The Kazekage saved him the embarrassment. That was quite the display of Fuinjutsu, Lady Shina. Do all of your shinobi study the art? The Kazekage asked. Lady Shina put a slim finger over the lower part of her mask. Sorry, it's a secret. She let out a girly giggle that taunted both foreign cage. While I agree with Lady Shina, Mabui is among the brightest in Fuinjutsu, aside from Ruto. I played nice among the cage. That is interesting. Not only is your chosen successor a complete force of nature, but he is also intelligent enough to excel in Fuinjutsu? Fugaku asked, with Orochimaru perking up when he heard that Rudo was to be Ai's successor. This is news to me, Reikage Dono. When did you announce your successor? The Kazekage asked. I haven't done it officially. I told it to the Hokage in confidence, but I guess it is out in the open now. I sighed out. Shina was tempted to end the facade and take the snake out before he could become a threat to her son. Back in the finalist box, Rudo pulled Tuya into a side channel and talked to her. Look, little sister, I want you to go out there and open a can of whoopers on the Hyuga. Shatter the rest of that worthless pride of theirs. I believe in you, and I am proud of you. Ruto finished with a rare sibling sentiment that made Tuya blush. Sure thing, shithead. It will be the first time the ninja world will get to meet my Doki. Should I use all three of them? I don't see why not. Remember not to kill her. Humiliation is more effective in this instance, especially when we are taking two of their unsealed members with us. Ruto answered. Are they already at the rendezvous? Tuya asked, interested in knowing more about the escape plan. Yeah, all of the exiles should have substituted with their blood clones already and headed toward the rendezvous. Ruto informed her. Now, no more of that, focus on you fight and come back victorious. Gotcha, shithead. As Hinata walked through the tunnels and mentally prepared herself, she wondered why the Kumo team was acting so much colder to her than usual. She had gotten along with Rudo, and his body language always seemed positive. Now, whenever he looked at Hinata, she noticed the tightening of his muscles and the stiffening of his posture. It started after the prelims. Was he mad about what I did to Hanabi? Her thoughts came to a screeching halt when she was at the entrance to the tunnel. She took a steadying breath and walked out of the tunnel and onto the field. Tuya had jumped out of the box and been waiting on the prissy heiress for nearly 5 minutes now. She was losing her patience and that never bode well for her opponents. She remembered how infuriated Rudo and Shina were when they saw her use that seal on her own sister. Tuya readily agreed that it was a fucking shitty thing to do. That thought added fuel to her fire when she saw the heiress walking all fancy-like toward the center of the arena. The two competitors were ready to square off and the tension in the stadium was palpable. 80% of the crowd was composed of Fire Country natives and nobles. So far, the Leaf had not put on a good showing and people were getting worried. It didn't help that most people lost their previous bet after being force-fed a bit of humble pie. As Shisui stepped up and was about to start the match, a wind funnel appeared in the center of the arena before Kakashi showed up with his hand on Sasuke's shoulder. There was silence before the crowd went wild for the heir apparent of the Uchiha clan. Every foreign person wondered why Konoha was so delusional that they treated the Uchihas like they were gods or something. What the fuck, Fatherfucker, get the fuck off my fucking battlefield, you fucking dickless conglomeration of bastardized human tissue. Tuya snapped off like it was the most natural thing in the world. Shisui stifled a laugh as the stadium fell dead silent. Then roars of disapproval, insults and death threats were thrown at Tuya. She took it naturally, like withstanding a nice breeze on a warm summer day. Then, she flipped the audience the bird. In the cage's box, I sighed and sunk his head into his hands while Lady Shina and Daru failed to suppress their laughter. Fugaku had a giant tick mark over his left temple and was struggling to calm himself down. Hiruzen couldn't help but chuckle at the intrepid youth. That is quite the kunoichi you have down there, Reikage Dono. She seems to have a knack for getting under people's skin, Hiruzen said lightheartedly, diffusing the tension. Indeed, she does, Hiruzen, indeed she does, I sighed out. Down on the field, Sasuke fumed and began to march toward Tuya, who sat there calmly, but Sasuke was stopped by a hand on the shoulder from Kakashi. Not now, Sasuke. When you first match and then you can deal with her, Kakashi said in an attempt to calm the raging Uchiha. Sorry, fucker, I don't know if you Konoha twits know how to count, but when I win, I will be facing a Maoi. The Uchiha bitch boy will have to fight his little sister. Tuya ripped into Sasuke once more, intentionally pouring fuel on the fire. Kakashi was forced to use both hands to restrain Sasuke as he shot a look at Tuya, then said, "Thanks for that." Kakashi used Shunshine to vacate the premises before Sasuke completely lost his shit. Shisui coughed to get the attention back on him and then knifed his hand downward and started the match. Hinata was more timid by nature, and after seeing how the previous Kumo Kunoichi picked the Byakugan apart, she was hesitant. Tell you what, oh great prissy princess of the White Eye clan, I'm going to play you a song to apologize for my fucked up foul mouth. Tuya pulled a flute out of her vest and began playing. The music carried throughout the stadium and had a serene calming effect to it. The shouts of anger subsided, and a peaceful calm settled over the arena. Once everyone was quiet, the real performance began. It started as a jaunty tune that turned into the sharp notes associated with a thriller movie. When the music changed, Hinata seemed to snap out of her trance and activated her Byakugan. She saw the chakra laced into the music and watched as it sprung out of the flute with a supernatural grace that entranced the audience. She then saw 3 demonic-looking figures appear out of nowhere. She tried to pulse her chakra and dispel the illusion with no effect. Then the assault began. Hinata worked hard to repulse the attacks of the large demonic figures as a fast-paced song seemed to spur them on and give them more power. Tuya was dancing to the music in a truly entrancing fashion as her doki continued to assault the Hyuga heiress. During a brutal attack from the doki carrying a massive club, the hit broke through Hinata's defenses and sent her rolling on the ground. The audience, aside from a couple higher-level ninjas, was still completely wrapped up in the tune. It was building into a crescendo as the doki launched themselves at the downed form of the Hyuga heiress. The girl rolled to the right to avoid the massive club slamming down on her but received a stomp to the gut from the doki with no arms. She spit out blood and cried out in pain as a brutal beating began. Tuya's flute was now playing harsh music that elicited rage and fear from her audience as blow after blow landed on the defenseless girl. Tuya was so wrapped up in her own performance that she didn't notice when Shisui called the match. He was forced to intervene, and he snatched the flute out of the girl's hands and abruptly halted the music. The trance was broken, and the crowd snapped back into awareness to notice the Hyuga heiress in a bloody and crumpled mess. Shisui called medics out with some urgency as multiple bones looked like they weren't holding their proper anatomical shape. Tuya snatched her flute back and put it in a pouch of her vest before taking a bow to her still stunned audience. She then skipped back to the finalist box in a show of girlish happiness that sharply contrasted with the environment of the stadium. It didn't take long for the stunned silence to break before people began cursing at Tuya. The Hyuga were incensed that they were caught in an elaborate genjutsu that left their heiress on death's door. Meanwhile, Tsunade cashed in her third all-in bet and was squealing with a girlish glee while jumping up and down with Shizune. In the cage's box, they were all impressed by the power of the genjutsu. To create chakra avatars that reacted to the music with such brutality was a magnificent feat, and Orochimaru was drooling at the prospect of such a kunoichi. If he had her in his forces, she would instantly become one of his elites. The sad thought that she would never accept him as a master then shot through his head and left a sour taste in his mouth. I will begrudgingly admit that was impressive. If you don't mind me asking, why did she go so far as to make it personal? Fugaku asked. Shina picked up the question. The Makis are proud of our seals. For a sister to use such a disgusting seal on her own twin rubbed us all the wrong way. Tuya seemed just as enraged as Maisochi was. The Hyuga should thank Maisochi for asking her to spare the Hyuga heiress life. Why would he ask her to do that? Orochimaru asked, genuinely interested. The girl was nice enough in Wave, but he had changed his opinion since the prelims. He didn't think she was a completely lost cause, so he wanted to punish her, but give her a proper chance to atone. Sheena shrugged as she said it. Fugaku was interested too and tried to dig further into this idea. Why does your son throw himself so readily into matters that don't concern him? Because he is a true leader, Hokage. That boy sees injustice and leads those around him to correct it. Simple as that, stated I with his arms crossed over his chest. With the Konoha rookies, the mood was sour, and their faces were downcast. Man, that was brutal. The usually long-winded Ino stated simply. Those fucking Makis think they run this town. They come in here and assault 2 clan heirs and think they will just walk away. Kiba fumed, genuinely enraged by what just happened to his teammate. Troublesome, Kiba, they have the power to do it and walk away. If any of us touched them outside of the exams, not only would it probably fail, but it would mean all-out war against Kumo. Shikamaru drawled. That seemed to silence the rookies as the heavy mood descended on them once more. The finalist box was subdued as well after that beating. Ruto thought that the punishment was just, but he didn't revel in the pain and misery of others. He wished Tomoe luck as the next match was called and his eyes shot to Tamari, who met his gaze and looked away blushing. Tamari then swung her fan before jumping on it and riding it down into the arena in a beautiful display of wind control. Amoe just used a lightning sunshine to take his place in the arena. Both contestants squared off as scenarios played rapidly the Amoe's mind at a nearly schizophrenic pace. He immediately dropped his seals, knowing that his battle plan depended on speed. Shisui started the match, then Amoe cased kunais in lightning chakra before throwing 10 in rapid succession. Tamari opened her battle fan to the first moon and swung it in a wide arc that kicked up dust and sent the kunai flying in all directions. Amoe used the dust to mask his sunshine to behind Tamari. He was a highly proficient Raiten user, but his Suten jutsu left a lot to be desired. He created a single shadow clone at this location before blurring to Tamari's blind spot in a nearby tree. Tamari turned to face the clone, who had drawn the red-handled katana out and started channeling lightning chakra to it in a flashy manner. Tamari opened her fan to the second moon and called out sickle weasel jutsu. A sizable tornado formed out of the wind from Tamari's fan and sped toward Amoe's clone. Seeing his opening, Amoe dashed in a show of speed toward Tamari and swung his sword in a horizontal fashion that would wound, but not kill, the kunoichi. Tamari spun at the last second to block the slash with her partially open battle fan. The lightning-enhanced katana sliced through Tamari's battle fan, effectively removing her greatest weapon. Tamari used the butt of the fan to lash out at Amoe, who dropped his katana and rolled around the blow to deliver a punishing kidney shot. Tamari dropped to the ground in pain before Amoe placed a kunai on the back of her neck. Shisui appeared and called the match. The audience was rather sick of seeing Kumo win, but a polite applause was given for the brief performance. In a show of sportsmanship, Amoe offered a hand up to the downed kunoichi. Tamari accepted the helping hand and walked off the field with Amoe. In the cage box, Fugaku was feeling better that it wasn't just his village that was losing to the Kumo Jonin. The results had been worse than expected and he knew that it would hurt the mission requests total. However, he now had the opportunity to comment on the match. Well, that was a quick fight. Is the battle fan your daughter's only weapon, Kazekage Dono? Orochimaru shrugged off the accusation, it wasn't his daughter. However, since he was playing Rasa, he responded to the provocation. HN, it seems my daughter's training has been lacking. For a long-ranged fighter to lose so easily to a close-ranged opponent with an elemental disadvantage is disappointing. There are many kinds of shinobi, Kazekage. Not all of them are meant to fight on the front lines. Your daughter would be a deadly force in a defensive position and during bigger battles. I commented. Thank you for the kind works, Reikage Dono. It is this next fight that I am most excited to see. My son is undefeated throughout his brief career, and this will demonstrate the might of Suna. Fugaku commented on this, yes, I am most interested to watch my boy destroy the Ichibi Jinchuriki. Ah, yes. The Sharingan does make your son a fearsome opponent. I hope he at least provides a worthy challenge for Gaara. Back down on the battlefield, Sasuke and Gaara face off. I imagine it going pretty much like canon, so imagine the broody Uchiha bastard fighting against Gaara using his speed. Gaara balls up in his sand cocoon and takes a Chidori to his right shoulder. Gaara cries out in pain and is shocked to see his own blood, and then all hell breaks loose. White feathers began to fall from the sky and the civilians and lower-ranked ninjas in the stadium began to pass out from the effects of the genjutsu. Sand shinobi begin to attack Konoha ninjas alongside shinobi in disguise from Otogakure. In the pandemonium, nobody noticed the Kumo teams dart into the interior of the stadium and meet up in the designated room. They immediately began changing into their outfits for this mission. Meanwhile, in the cage box, Orochimaru finally made his move. With help from his bodyguards, Hiruzen and Fugaku Uchiha were isolated on the rooftop of the cage box, and the Jiraiya announced his presence as well. Before anything could begin, while Orochimaru held Hiruzen hostage, a boy dressed in a white kimono with 2 red dots on his forehead joined his master. Then, a purple barrier was erected by the bodyguards of Orochimaru that isolated the Konoha and Oto groups from the outside. Fugaku watched on in horror as his daughter Itachi tried to charge through the barrier and make her way to defend him. Her whole body was consumed by flame as she burnt alive in front of his eyes. He cried out for his loss in a fit of rage before his eyes flared to life with the Mangekyo Sharingan spinning wildly. Hiruzen escaped from Orochimaru's clutches and joined Fugaku to put a calming hand on his shoulder. Jiraiya stepped up alongside his sensei and prepared to help snuff out his errant ex-teammate. Kushina and Daru ignored the sideshow and went to rendezvous with their teams. A couple foolhardy Oto shinobi attempted to attack the elite trio and met swift ends for their efforts. The trio ran with a fast, yet smooth, efficiency that didn't draw too much attention to them as they arrived in their designated meeting room. They entered the door and saw the Jonin teams midway through changing their outfits. They all looked up at Ai to receive final orders as they continued dressing. "All right everyone, this is it. It is a war zone out there and you will be right in the thick of it. The Hokage Tower is sure to be on high alert, so operate fast, work smoothly and watch each other's backs." At this time, Shina began to unseal the blood clones, who immediately began adorning their creator's attire. I turned to Shina. "Be careful out there, Shina. Bring these kids back to me in one piece." Shina nodded as she stripped to her underwear before she used a seal over her right breast to immediately change into the new uniform. Everyone looked at her like, "Why the hell didn't you make those seals for us?" After 5 minutes, the group was fully changed, and they completed their final checks. The blood clones were dressed and ready to act as their creator's alibi. The group in the stealth gear was covered by a genjutsu from Shi before he wished them luck. The official Kumo group departed the room first and left the door open for the group that left behind them. With the official group, they reported into the dignitaries' box that housed important people from Lightning Country. Ai's Bolt reported into him that they fended off a few attacks, but there were no deaths or injuries to report. I addressed the dignitaries and told them that Kumo was going to stay out of the fight. They didn't want to add to the confusion. The Shina clone threw up multiple protective barriers before she joined Ai. The Kumo shinobi remained on high alert, hoping that the so-called strongest hidden village would be able to repulse this invasion attempt. With teams 12 and 13, Kushina led them down their scouted path as the group did their best to ignore the chaos occurring all around them. The streets around the stadium were full of fighting, but the genjutsu cast by Shi was effective at keeping the group unnoticed. Unfortunately, when they rounded the corner of the street they needed to take, they ran into a platoon of 16 bloodthirsty Oto ninjas. This inevitably broke the genjutsu that was covering them, which pissed Kushina and Naruto right the fuck off the deep end. The 7 black-clad ninjas began a merciless slaughter of the 16 Oto shinobi. They all used the equipped dual kodachis to dispatch the Oto Chunin and Jonin. Since Kushina was enraged, she managed to sever the heads of 5 Oto Jonin in less than 10 seconds. Ruto almost took a kunai to his gut because he was so entranced by the fierce display of his mother's kenjutsu. Alas, Naruto got his act together and took down 3 of the enemy platoon. It didn't matter that he was inadvertently helped Konoha, he was mad that these fools got in the way of their plan. Mabui used a weaker version of Shi's genjutsu after the Oto ninjas were dispatched and they continued their move to the Hokage Tower. After 10 minutes of intermittent fighting and avoiding Konoha ninjas, they finally arrived at the tower. The battle had yet to make its way this far back into the village, but there were 20 shinobi stationed in defensive positions around the tower. Kushina told Naruto to create a distraction, so he formed 20 shadow clones and gave them high-powered explosive tags. The clones hinged into Oto shinobi and took to the rooftops while dropping explosive tags on the buildings near the Hokage Tower. The explosions and sightings of 20 Oto shinobi caused 3 squads of Onbu to be dispatched from the Hokage Tower. This left 11 shinobi that Kushina and Tuya could sense. From their hidden position, Kushina pointed out the Konoha ninjas and assigned targets. The first to fall were the 4 shinobi that were guarding the front door to the Hokage Tower. Once again, Naruto created hinged shadow clones that charged straight at the Konoha shinobi. Since Naruto had all of his limiters off for this mission, his shadow clones moved at Jonin speeds and began to engage the Konoha teams in battle. Under the chaos of this battle, the Kumo group moved in. The initial 4 at the door were reinforced by 3 more Konoha Jonins and they formed a defensive battle line against Naruto's hinged clones. Each member of Teams 12 and 13 blurred behind the formation in bursts of speed and used their identical weapons to kill the Konoha Jonins. The surprise attack was supremely effective, and it eliminated the resistance at the door. Naruto listened to his mother call out enemy positions, but the group was caught by surprise when two root ninjas stationed above the front door jumped down on them with their short swords descending upon Tuya and Atsui. In a blur of black, Kushina sped back to block one of the strikes. She then diverted the root ninja's momentum and severed his head. Atsui noticed the movement behind him and turned in time to block a killing blow from the 2ND root shinobi. Samui, being the closest one, shoved her Kodachi through the root ninja's heart. After the scare, Kushina focused her senses for a bit while her teams protected her. The amount of chakra being thrown around in the village made it hard for her to sense well-hidden chakra signatures. She was sure she missed more root ninjas. After calming her beating heart, she was able to sense at least 5 root shinobi around the tower, on top of the 3 more noticeable signatures. The group decided that speed would be better than stealth at this point, so Kushina led the charge to the Hokage's office while Naruto followed up the rear. They were forced to dispatch 4 more root and 2 jonins before Kushina, Naruto and Mabui disabled the protective seals and entered the Hokage's office. Inside the office, at point-blank range, Naruto immediately sensed the protectors in the corners of the office. They lunged out of the shadows and nearly killed Mabui. He caught the blade in his right hand and stopped it inches away from Mabui's covered head. With the power of an enraged Hanyu, he gripped the blade and bashed the butt of the sword into the shinobi's chest. He applied so much force that the butt of the sword penetrated the lower ribcage. In a last fit of rage, Naruto smashed the shinobi's head against the wall of the Hokage's office. Kushina had already dispatched the second ninja with ease and watched as her son brutalized the man that nearly killed one of his future mates. She put a calming hand on his shoulder to reorient him to their current task. Kushina triggered the panel to the Hokage vault, and the wall began splitting to show a heavily reinforced door. She took a deep breath, pulled out her Fuinjutsu kit and cracked her fingers before she began working to bypass the seals that protected the Hokage vault. Mabui set to work erecting a barrier around the whole Hokage tower. The Kumo teams knew that Konoha reinforcements would be sent to the Hokage tower to defend one of their key locations. The barrier would be a barrier commonly found throughout the Shinobi Nation so that it couldn't be traced to the Maki clan. She layered a couple of these barriers one after another to slow down the enemy reinforcements. Once she was done with that, she began to assist Naruto in sealing away important items. While Mabui and Kushina worked their magic, Naruto focused on using his kitsune eyes to find hidden seals throughout the room, and there were a lot of them. The listening seals were the first thing he destroyed before he looked at the Hokage's desk. The thought of Fugaku realizing that his whole desk had been stolen was too good to pass up to Naruto. He neutralized a couple tracking seals, reinforcement seals and other various seals on the desk before he sealed the whole thing into a scroll. Oh, Naruto could practically picture the look on Fugaku's face, and it was like a warm and fuzzy feeling filled his entire heart. After Naruto sealed the desk, Kushina finally managed to crack the Hokage vault open 7 minutes after they entered the Hokage tower. They hadn't changed much about the seal and Kushina was able to break through the minor changes with minimal effort. She would begrudgingly admit that it would have taken her much longer if she weren't the previous Hokage's wife. Kushina opened the vault to see a library of scrolls that were isolated in this special room tucked into a space-time barrier. Naruto knocked on the door of the Hokage's office 3 times and Maoi and Samui joined the group. Maoi took up an observation post in the corner of the room while Samui, Mabui, Kushina and Naruto went into the Hokage's vault. Well, fuck me Kachan. This is a lot of shit, Naruto said with awe. Space-time Fuinjutsu was amazing in that way. Fuck it, we have already gone loud. Seal up as much of this shit as we can. Prime targets are the Namikaze Master Scroll and the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Everything else, chuck it in and we can sort it out later. I agree, we have already gone loud. Seal it up into the Master Scrolls and let's move, Kushina said. In a hurried, yet efficient, manner the team sealed up nearly a third of the Hokage vault. They darted throughout the rest of the vault but couldn't locate the Namikaze Scroll. It was then that Kushina had a revelation. Stupid, 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 stupid. I should have known better. You have 2 minutes before we scram on out of here, Kushina shouted. She dashed out of the Hokage vault and lovingly removed Minato's portrait. She sealed it and the other cage's portraits into her master scroll before she cut her finger and placed her blood on the seal that was hidden by Minato's portrait. The seal glowed red and then blue before the safe unlocked with a hiss. Inside the safe were a couple letters and scrolls alongside a big scroll that was black with golden embossing. She sealed the effects into a separate scroll before sealing said scroll into the master scroll. She then pulled up her sleeve and sealed her master scroll into a seal tattooed on her arm. Kushina whistled and in less than 30 seconds, Naruto, Mabui and Samui appeared outside of the Hokage vault. Tuya came crashing through the door shortly after the three appeared. "We have a problem. A really big, fuck me in the ass kind of problem," Tuya shouted. "Calm down and explain it to me." Kushina replied in an even tone. 50 motherfuckers are surrounding the building. The barriers will not hold much longer and more will continue to come unless we get the fuck out of here. Sochi, plan B please. Make it as big as you can. Naruto nodded and focused on the tags he left at the Namikaze and Uzumaki compounds. He flared his chakra and sent 5 pulses in a distinct sequence. Outside the Hokage tower, shinobi were responding as an alarm seal in the Hokage's office was tripped. Even in the chaos, this was a priority 1 response and Inoki had coordinated enough shinobi to prevent the intruders from getting away. He had 50 shinobi surrounding the Hokage tower and they would not leave until the intruders were dead. He was in the middle of barking out orders when 2 massive explosions shot through Konoha. It was coming from the clan district and Inoki felt a cold shudder run down his spine. He wanted to send teams to check the explosions out, but he needed to complete this task first. At the front gates, 3-headed snake summons and a couple other giant snakes were laying waste to the front of Konoha. Konoha shinobi were fighting them back under the guidance of Shikaku Nara and Kuza Kimichi. They were putting up an admirable defense when the one-tailed sand tanuki sprung up a couple hundred meters away from Konoha's walls. The giant tanuki thrashed about in the forest for a little bit before it began launching giant wind blasts at Konoha. The walls couldn't withstand the brutal air bullets and soon gave way. Then buildings were disintegrated, and chaos reigned supreme as Onbu squads were diverted to deal with the rampaging biju. Back in the Hokage's office, Naruto felt the release of Shukaku and it gave him an idea. Kushina set up a couple more barriers to buy them time, but she was limited by the fact that she didn't want to give their identity away. Kushina and Tuya informed Naruto that the distraction didn't work and that they would need a new plan. Naruto closed his eyes and dove into his mindscape. He appeared in the living room since Hikari was keenly aware of Naruto wanting to talk to her. "Hikari-chan, I need to know if I can let you out of the seal in your biju form. You said I should be able to do it once I had 3 tails and we are in need of a massive distraction. Naruto-kun, you know I want to help but the contract I signed with your father prevents me from attacking Konoha." Hikari looked repentant for not being able to help her mate. Naruto thought for a moment before a light bulb went off in his head. "What if you didn't attack the village? What if I summoned you and you simply ran away? We could use the distraction to make a quick escape after we drop the barriers." Hikari really thought about it hard. Demonic contracts were strict in their conditions and the punishment for breaking them was death. If she did this, she would not be able to attack anyone. She would have to watch where she stepped and make sure not to destroy the village. "Come on, Hikari-chan. I want to know if I can summon you. You stand still in all your greatness, you roar a little bit and then come back into my seal. Is it possible?" Naruto's tone was nearly panicked as he asked. Hikari sighed, she loved this man, and she would risk it for him. "Okay, Naruto-kun. For you I will take the chance. I will not be able to defend myself, so you need to make it quick. You are going to be incapacitated, so your mother will need to move you. In case this plan backfires, I love you, Rudo-kun." Naruto placed a passionate kiss on Hikari's lips. "I love you too, Hikari-chan. It is time for the world to know that the great Kyuubi no Kitsune lives." Naruto exited his mindscape and pulled everyone into the Hokage's office. They still had some barriers stopping the Konoha shinobi from gaining entry. He explained his plan and how he would be out of the fight. Kushina said that Atsui would handle him and take him to the rendezvous point. She would provide security. She laid out the plan for Hikari's summoning from the seal and subsequent transformation. They would drop the barriers in the chaos and use Sunshine to make their escapes. After reviewing the plan, Naruto focused his chakra and focused on letting Hikari out of the seal. She created it so it would take both of them to open the seal and let her out. In a powerful flare of red yokai, Hikari appeared in the Hokage's office, 9 beautiful tails in all. Naruto looked pale and on the verge of passing out, but he remained awake long enough to receive his first real kiss from the Kitsune beauty. Hikari left the Hokage's office and made her way to the roof of the Hokage tower. Before exiting the door to the roof, Hikari began her transformation. Outside of the tower, Inoki was getting immensely frustrated with the standard barriers that were popping up. It was clear that the enemy was buying time, but for what? Before his thoughts could come into focus, his heart stopped. Out of nowhere, and in a flare and pulse of demonic, red yokai, the great 9-tailed fox appeared. Out of fucking nowhere. When the giant kitsune let out a roar, the whole village froze. Every shinobi, every skirmish, every summon, every civilian, everyone felt the terror induced by the yokai of the great Kyuubi no Kitsune. Kushina made sure that Atsui had Naruto secured before she dropped the barriers, destroyed the Hokage's window, and the whole group used a rapid series of shunshine to escape to the rendezvous point located in Training Ground 44. The group used every bit of training and pushed their chakra coils to the max to execute successive shunshines to reach their destination. By the time they reached their destination, they watched Hikari disappear through a giant black portal that opened up in front of her. Then, all that remained were wisps of red, demonic yokai that flickered in the air over Konoha. In the Kumo dignitary's safe room, I froze when he felt the feeling of a potent demonic yokai wash over him. He closed his eyes and offered a prayer to Kami, Yami and the Shinigami. He didn't care who answered his prayers, he just wanted his group to be safe. Yugito and Daru placed comforting hands onto Ai's shoulders and reminded him that he needed to be the strong and fearless leader of Kumaga Corps. As quickly as the yokai came, it faded away and the room seemed to relax. Gaara was working alongside Shikaku to perform his role in the invasion. He didn't want to go into the village, but he did want to divert Konoha's forces to him. When the Great Kitsune made its appearance in the skies over Konoha, Gaara and Shukaku agreed that they had done enough. Shukaku created a giant sandstorm that covered nearly 2 square miles of forest and willingly re-entered Gaara's seal. Gaara created a sand clone and grabbed his 2 siblings before he hightailed it out of there. He didn't go towards Suna, because that is what people would expect. Instead, he headed toward the Land of Waves, a spot Naruto told him that he could lay low and regroup with him after the invasion. On top of the cage box and inside the barrier, things were not going well for the Konoha team. Orochimaru had sacrificed Kamimaru to buy him time to perform the Edo Tensei, Impure World Resurrection. The Bone User successfully delayed Fugaku and made the Uchiha bring out his Stage 2 Susanoo. Fugaku was still enraged by the loss of his oldest daughter, and he brought the sword of Tetsuga down on Kamimaru, which sealed his soul away. Hiruzen was in rough shape after the initial trade of blows with his student, who could easily best him in his one-armed state, even with the assistance of Enma. Jiraiya had saved him from the jaws of death multiple times, much to Orochimaru's consternation. Things went even worse for the snake Sannin when his third coffin failed to produce the resurrected Minato Namikaze. It didn't take the snake long to move past that failure, and he managed to put the control tags into the heads of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju. The previous Hokages were mortified that they were being forced to attack their own village. Jiraiya and the Lord Third were able to immobilize Tobirama, and Fugaku sealed him into the gourd of his Susanoo as well. That was when the Kyuubi appeared over the Hokage Tower and froze the whole battlefield. The mighty roar sent the fear of God directly into the veins of every veteran shinobi. Orochimaru recovered first and realized that the invasion was thwarted. He used the distraction of the biju to drop the barrier and reverse summon himself and the Sound 4 out of the village to Ryuchi Cave. Orochimaru was disappointed that the fox left the village without destroying it, but it was too late for him to go back now. Fugaku watched the 9-tailed fox reappear and smiled internally. The chance for him to gain the strongest of all biju was here. He simply needed to seal away the first Hokage and then he would be able to put the Kyuubi under his control. Sure, he was terrified by the fox, and it would destroy a good portion of the village, but this was the chance he had been waiting for. He quickly engaged Hashirama and enlisted the help of Jiraiya and Hiruzen for one last push. The reincarnated Senju put up a great fight against the trio, but when Fugaku sealed Hashirama away, he noticed a smile on the Senju's face. A begrudging respect for the Uchiha Patriarch's old rival bubbled in Fugaku's chest due to the proud look of the Senju legend. Tsunade had been told about the invasion, so after pocketing her winnings, her and Shizune made their way to the Senju compound. She splattered foreign shinobi into paste as she carved a path to the Senju compound. She unsealed the gates and entered the compound before her. And Shizune began sealing away the high-value items. It wasn't everything, it wasn't most of it, hell it wasn't even a fifth of it, but they rode out the invasion while sealing away the most important Senju heirlooms. She knew that whatever she left here should be safe, but she would need to ensure the compound was locked down tight when she left. Her and Shizune would ride out the invasion and wait to return to Tanzaku Gai. Kakashi, Genma, Hayate Gecko, Yugao Yuzuki, Kurenai Yuhi, Hitomi, Hanabi, Shisui, Itachi, Mikoto and a very confused Sazumi followed Anko into the Forest of Death. Their blood clones had already formed plans for their elaborate deaths during the invasion and allowed their creators a chance at a new life. They watched as fires spread across Konoha and the many billowing smokestacks that led into the sky. It filled their hearts with sadness to see their former home in flames, but they had made their choice. The group trekked into the forest while following a missing ninja that most people had forgotten about. Anko led the group to the far edge of the forest and into an underground bunker. After getting set up in the bunker, the group returned to the surface to continue to observe the partial destruction of Konoha. When the Great Fox appeared in the skies over Konoha and let out a mighty roar, every adult had flashbacks of the night 15 years ago. Their hearts momentarily stopped, and the air seemed to suffocate them as demonic yokai flooded the area. Then, as quick as it came, it faded away. They couldn't see anything due to the forest, but they sure as shit felt it. They spent the night in that bunker and welcomed Kushina's group and helped Naruto onto a bed around 9 p.m. Kushina immediately began healing her boy and repaired the damage to his chakra coils with gentle applications of chakra through her healing seals. It was a restless night's sleep, but the group managed it. Inside the mindscape after Kyuubi vanished, Naruto was laid out on Hikari's couch and felt like his whole body was on fire. It was strange for him to be in this house without being able to feel Hikari's presence. It made Naruto feel cold and alone because the environment felt hollow without the warming presence of Hikari. Flashbacks of a lonely and abused childhood drew fresh tears out of the teenager laid out on the couch. Time ceased to mean anything, and Naruto felt himself spinning. He then felt the whole mindscape shake before a powerful red aura spilled out across the mindscape. He forced his body up and hobbled his way to the door. He looked outside the home and saw the majestic form of the nine-tailed biju. He hobbled out of the house and made his way, slowly, to the lakeside. Hikari was curled into a ball with her head resting on her tails. She sensed Naruto and her massive kitsune head lifted and pivoted so she could track her mate's movement with her red, slitted eyes. Naruto smiled weakly as they locked eyes and Hikari caught him in one of her massive tails when he nearly collapsed. She lifted him up and set him down in between her legs before she nestled into a ball around him. Naruto accepted the blackness at the edges of his vision, knowing that he was completely safe in the shelter of 9 red tails. As the invasion died down, Tsunade and Shizune planned on taking leave through the broken walls around Konoha. They didn't really bother to hide their presence as shinobi were darting everywhere and trying to clean things up. However, they were confronted by an Anbu squad and told to report to the hospital. This would alter their plans a bit, but Tsunade had all of her belongings sealed away into her jacket. She and Shizune reported to the hospital and set to work healing the injured, remaining wary of overstaying their welcome, but resigned to the fact that leaving now would draw too much attention. Fugaku nearly crumpled to the ground after Orochimaru fled. The events of the day and the overuse of his Mangekyo Sharingan had worn him out substantially. As soon as the barrier dropped, a squad of Anbu and multiple Uchihas took defensive positions around him. Give me a status update. Lizard, get Hiruzen to the hospital for treatment. As Lizard shinned away with Hiruzen, Crane reported into Fugaku. Hokage-sama, the destruction in the village is nearly as bad as it was after the Kyuubi attack. The outer third of the village sustained heavy damage before the snake summons were neutralized. Anbu squads recovered Sasuke heavily injured in his fight with the Ichibi Jinchuriki. The Anbu paused here and looked hesitant before Fugaku urged him on. They also recovered the body of your daughter Sazumi and your wife Mikado, who had gone to reinforce the children. Your nephew Shisui died to the three-headed snake summon. I am sorry for your loss, Lord Fifth. The Anbu paused here as Fugaku let out a roar of grief. Hesitantly, Crane continued his report. Inoiki Yamanaka and Chusa Kimichi are severely wounded in the hospital and receiving treatment. The clan compounds were assaulted by multiple squads of auto ninjas. During the assaults they triggered the fail-safes of the security seals and the Uzumaki and Namikaze compounds self-detonated. Trusted shinobi are trying to recover what they can from the two compounds, but the destruction was very thorough. The Hyuga compound was assaulted hard during the invasion. Hyashi and Hizashi are in critical condition. We have recovered the bodies of Hitomi and Hanabi Hyuga among others. Multiple clans suffered deaths and wounded, but they will survive. They were able to defend their clan compounds for the most part. Fugaku had fallen to his knees, overwhelmed by the losses of the day. Not only his oldest daughter, but his wife and youngest daughter as well. The invasion forces took nearly everything from him and took too much from his people. His eyes looked hollow, like the spirit of a defeated man, before he croaked out. Is that all? The Anbu looked even more nervous than when he was reporting the deaths. No, Hokage-sama. The Hokage tower was infiltrated, and the initial defense squad was completely defeated early on in the invasion. There were multiple sightings of elite Auto forces destroying buildings around the Hokage tower and there were no survivors that could identify the infiltrators. They used successive barrier seals to keep reinforcements out of the Hokage tower. They were in there for 20-30 minutes before the Kyuubi reformed. They used that distraction to escape and then detonated a number of powerful explosive tags to destroy most of the Hokage tower. Fugaku looked up in worry at this. What of the Hokage vault? That shouldn't have been destroyed by mere explosions. The reinforcement seals held that wall up, but that is the only wall that survived the bombing, Hokage-sama. All indications point to them breaking into the vault though. Until we can reopen the seal and perform an inventory check, we won't know. The reinforcements had the building surrounded, but they made their escape when the Kyuubi distracted them. Kami, damn it all. Fugaku slammed a fist into the ground. What of the daimyo and foreign shinobi? What of the Kumo and Ame teams? Jiraiya asked, having listened to the whole report with a grim look on his face. The fired daimyo is safe along with his guests. All foreign competitors reported in to defend various safe rooms. They suffered no casualties and were able to protect the dignitaries. Lady Shina secured the rooms with very impressive defensive seals and I orchestrated the defense of the safe rooms within the stadium. He told me that they would wait patiently there for instructions. Crane answered. Why didn't they help us in the defense of Konoha? Fugaku asked. The Refuge said that we did not have a mutual defense treaty. He didn't want to risk his shinobi being caught in the confusion of the melee. He feared attacks from Konoha shinobi if his shinobi were to join the fighting unannounced. Fugaku growled, but Jiraiya put a hand on his shoulder. That is the reasonable thing to do, Hokage Dono. They were under no obligation to subject their shinobi to such risks. Fugaku shrugged Jiraiya's hand off of his shoulder. I know that, Jiraiya. Where are they now? They are still in the stadium seeing to the needs of the dignitaries, Hokage-sama. Crane reported. Very well, tell them they are free to stay the night, but they will need to leave tomorrow morning. I do not wish for a foreign presence when we are in this state. Crane bowed and departed from the Hokage. Jiraiya helped him back to his feet and the two began to walk through the village and survey the damage. The sun was beginning to set but no shinobi in Konoha would be getting sleep that night. Fires needed to be put out, defenses needed to be tightened and there was a whole clusterfuck to sort out. In the stadium around 7:30 p.m., Crane reported into Ai and the clones of the Kumo teams. He accepted Fugaku's wishes without issue and guided his team to the hotel. The hotel was damaged, but they were still able to stay there for the night. Once in the room with his most trusted teams, he addressed them. Okay, everyone, let's hope that they are okay. I damn sure know unleashing the Kyuubi wasn't in the plan. For now, you will continue to act like your originals. We will be spending the night in here before securing our gear and living through the village gates tomorrow morning. We are to rendezvous with the exiles in Wave in 2 days. If there are any unforeseen issues, we will address them as they come. For tonight, simply pack up and get ready to roll out in the morning. Tsunade and Shizune worked late into the night at the Konoha hospital. Fugaku and Jiraiya had stopped by the hospital and were more than surprised to see them working there. Tsunade said that it was her professional duty to help the wounded and she had returned to the village to bet on the finals. Fugaku told her that she was expected to stay in the village, and Tsunade didn't fight him on that. Internally, she raged at the pretentious man and knew that they would need to find an alternate route out of the village. Around 1 a.m., she and Shizune left the hospital and headed for the Forest of Death. The 2 root tails they had were killed by poison bonds to the neck and dumped into the forest. Naruto's eyes cracked open to a sunny feeling and the absolute warmth and comfort of a bushy orange comforter then felt soft enough to be heavenly clouds. He realized he was surrounded by the orange blankets, and it didn't take him long to realize they weren't blankets. The feeling of the chakra, the familiar presence of warmth and love Naruto felt snapped him awake. It was then that he noticed the massive fox body rising rhythmically as his future mate breathed in and out. He carefully climbed the tails and made his way to the kitsune's head. When he stopped in front of the snout that dwarfed him, he leaned into the snout and spread his arms out in as big of a hug as he could. With sentimentality you wouldn't expect from a man his size, Naruto began petting his mate's snout. Hikari was exhausted from controlling her chakra and funneling out through and subsequently back into the seal. The wide-scale genjutsu she cast to fool the humans was also a powerful kitsune illusion that she hadn't used in centuries. She was enjoying her nap in her fox form on the lakeside, and she barely processed Naruto climbing out of her tails. She felt a pleasant sensation on her snout, and it began to twitch. Hikari cracked a weary eye open and noticed that Naruto was petting her snout. What would normally be a small smile in her human form was instead a significant shift of fur around Hikari's face. Her canine on that side was fully exposed and the movement caused Naruto to look up at her with concern in his eyes. Hey, Hikari-chan, how are you holding up? Exhaustion laced his voice, but it was better than him being passed out. What? Oh, sorry Rudo-kun. That emergency trip out of the seal was a little rough for the both of us. Oh, yeah, the mission. Hikari-chan, are you okay? Did anything bad happen? Is everyone okay? Naruto's panicked voice was new to Hikari, and it didn't feel right. Relax, Naruto. Trust your friends. Since we overdid it, I have not been able to look outside and get a situation update. I don't know how long we have been out for, but I at least know we are alive. As for my part, I simply appeared in the village, scared the shit out of some humans by roaring a couple times before making it look like I took a portal to Makai. I tried to cover my tracks, but it is only a matter of time until people figure out that I am back. Well, thanks Hikari-chan. That sucked, but you got us out of a bad situation. Am I good to get back out there? Maybe, since I acted on short notice, the strain to your chakra network was pretty severe. If you head out, make sure not to use your chakra and take it easy Ruto. Thanks Hikari, I owe you one, or at least one more than I owed you yesterday. The massive fox smiled slyly. Yes, Rudo, yes you do. I will need to recover for a couple days as well. Be safe out there while I rest. With one last pet, Naruto disappeared from the mindscape. Returning to reality sucked for Naruto. He immediately felt the intense burn of his muscles and chakra coils, followed by the intense aches throughout his body. The bunker was lit by candlelight, and it was clear that many people were sleeping around him. Mabui and Samui were cuddled into him, and it was clear from the looks fixed on their faces that they were worried about him. Naruto sensed movement by the entrance to the bunker and saw Shisui and his mother guarding the entrance. He tried to call out to them, but his throat was parched, and his words wouldn't form. He was too tired to get up and he also didn't want to disturb Samui and Mabui. Instead of fighting it, Naruto closed his eyes and succumbed to the pull of exhaustion. At first light, Naruto heard those around him beginning to stir. The shuffles of blankets, yawns of freshly awoken men and women, the soft whispers of conversations filled Naruto's ears and caused him to crack an eye open. As he glanced down, he noticed Samui and Mabui were lying on his chest and looking at him with interest. He gave them a weak smile. Good morning loves, did everything work out? Is everyone okay? He croaked out. They smiled at him and each one leaned up and placed a soft kiss on his lips. Everything is fine Ruto. Everyone we expected to be here is here, plus Tsunade and Shizune. They evidently got sighted and were forced to help heal the injured. They killed 2 watchers to join us here, so we will probably need to make haste on our way out, Mabui whispered softly. Well, that's good. Could you help me up? I am still sore all over and will need to loosen up if we are to move out soon. He asked with a grateful smile on his face. As he unsealed a canteen from his pouch, Naruto heard his mother speak. Okay everyone, there is a sizable hole in Konoha's walls about 700 meters out. It goes without saying that we cannot be seen during our exfiltration. Once safely out of the village, we are to adorn civilian attire and make out way to wave. While in Fire Country, the whole goal is to not draw attention to ourselves. We have some of the best shinobi in Konoha and Kumo here, so if we do encounter somebody that recognizes us, there must be no survivors. It is important to get you settled in before our actions have been discovered. Any questions? Did the village survive the attack? Kurenai asked with concern in her voice. Tsunade stepped up next to Kushina. Yes, the village survived. The destruction is pretty bad, but the shinobi losses weren't atrocious. I healed Hyashi, Hizashi, Inoiki and Kuza last night. The village took a big hit to the Anbu and Root, nobody cares about the latter. The Jonin are mostly fine, apart from Sasuke and Sakura, who are hospitalized after their fight against Gaara. I understand you need to know that your remaining friends are safe, but I will only make this offer once. Is there anyone here that wishes to stay in Konoha? This is your one and only ticket off of this ride, Kushina said with a deadly serious tone. Many heads fell and many of the shinobi looked at their feet. Torn between their selfish desire to get out of the village and the shame of leaving said village to defend itself. That being said, nobody opted out and the group was packed up and ready to go within the next 20 minutes. The going was slow as the group performed a stealthy escape through the gap in the wall behind the Forest of Death. Kurenai used a potent genjutsu that shielded the group from unwanted attention, but it required moving at a fairly slow pace. After they were cleared from the village walls, the group picked up the pace. The group adorned civilian outfits and hid their ninja identifiers, but they continued to move at a brisk pace toward Wave. Rather than stopping overnight, they used the cover of night to move at ninja speeds. Kushina, Tuya and Kurenai were all accomplished sensors, and they used their abilities to make sure that no shinobi were anywhere near them. An exhausted group of nearly 30 people stumbled across the Bridge of Divine Bolts and into Wave Country. Tsunade and Shizune broke off from the group to collect their things from Tanzaku-gai. They knew that Fugaku would send someone looking for her after she left the village. They avoided the cities and people in order to focus on making it to Tazuna's house. There, the Wave Daimyo, Tsunami, greeted them and welcomed them with open arms. She allowed the group to camp in her backyard without protest. Kazuna offered to secure them a boat to Uzushio, which Lady Shina gratefully accepted. At dinner that night, Tazuna informed the group that there would be a boat for them in 2 days to Uzushio. A couple of interesting conversations happened that night, since everyone was in such tight proximity. Ruto excused himself early on due to the exhaustion that remained from the invasion, and he spent the night in the seal with Hikari. The first interesting conversation included Itachi, Samui, Mabui, Sazumi, Hanabi, and Tsunami. They were relaxing on the porch and sipping some sake to cool down their nerves. As the peace of the sea and the sake took their effects on the group, tongues became looser, and giggles became more common. So, Samui and Mabui, you girls seem closer to Rudo than you previously were. Just an observation, so would you spill it already? Tsunami sounded giddy at the prospect of hearing about the girls, and by proxy Rudo's, love life. Samui blushed furiously before trying a pathetic attempt at denial. Tease SS Tsunami, what are you talking about? This earned a cocked eyebrow from every girl in the group, aside from Mabui, who found her sake saucer supremely interesting at that moment. Sazumi decided this was something worth talking about, so she pressed on. Oh, please. I haven't known you that long, but the difference between our first time in Wave and now is clear. So, how is he? Sazumi wiggled her eyebrows and earned giggles from the girls. Mabui decided to save her future sister-wife. He is even more amazing than I am sure you are imagining. For those naive to sex, he is a 10/10. For those that have some experience, cough Tsunami, each time we do it I get at least 5. Sazumi and Hanabi looked confused while Itachi and Tsunami's eyebrows shot into their bangs before they began drooling. Hanabi, sheltered little Hyuga she was, asked, 5 what? The question earned another fit of giggles, before Tsunami decided to be the adult, which she was. Oh, sweetie, if you don't know you should talk to your mother about it. Mabui, if you are not exaggerating then that is most impressive. Samui put the final nail in the coffin. That is 5 when it is the two of us. When alone, I have passed out from pleasure on multiple occasions. The blushing Samui proceeded to refill and down her saucer. Itachi had to wipe away a nose bleeding while a grinning Tsunami was blown backwards in her chair by the force of her nosebleed, and she fell over with a goofy grin plastered on her face. After wiping the blood and leaving a small smear, Itachi chimed in. So, he is strong, kind, has the best body I have ever seen, and I have seen almost every Anbu naked, and to top it all off he still makes the two of you feel special? Mabui and Samui adopted faraway looks as they simultaneously responded, yup. Is he accepting new applicants? Itachi's usually monotone voice carried a bit of inflection. Nope, but we are. Was Mabui's casual reply. Kakashi and Genma were sharing some sake while sitting on the roof above the patio, and they had been struggling to suppress their nosebleeds as they listened in. When the beautiful Itachi Uchiha asked to join Rudo's girlfriends, they both tumbled of the roof with goofy grins and the liquid of life dripping from their noses. This broke up the girls' fun and they agreed to continue this conversation at a later date. Sazumi and Hanabi both resolved to talk to their mothers to figure out exactly what was going on. Meanwhile, in the house, Kushina, Mikado, Hitomi, Yugao, Kurenai and Anko were having their reunion in the living room with the ample aid of sake. Hayate was relaxing at the table with Tazuna and listening in. The ever-boisterous Anko was the subject of the conversation after Kushina revealed that she had been dating Killer Bee for over 2 years. I never figured you for a steady kind of girl, Anko-chan. I am happy for you. Yugao smiled at her wild-child sister. You must spill the details though. For a man that size, stature and status, Bee must be an absolute stallion. A tipsy Kurenai added. Anko blushed and muttered, more like a rampaging bull. Mikoto shot a look at Kushina, who smiled brilliantly at her lost sister in all but blood. Hitomi blushed before she asked, well, are there any men in Kumo or Uzushio that you think would be good matches for a couple of cougars? Anko laughed heartily, grateful to have the focus taken off of her relationship. Plenty, Hitomi, there are plenty. Although, every girl in Kumo has their eyes on Rudo, maybe a couple on Atsui. Kurenai couldn't help but comment on that. Oh ho, little brother has a fan club, eh? Well, can't say I blame them for that. I must admit the thought had crossed my mind more than once. Kurenai instantly held up her hands as the air around the room went frigid. Kushina-sensei, don't worry, I would never. Rudo is like a little brother to me, I am just glad to get the chance to be in his life again. Anko was laughing heartily at Kurenai's predicament before she promptly ceased her laughter due to Yugao. Oh, don't think we are done with you, young lady. You still haven't told us anything about your boy toy. Anko adopted Rudo's sheepish pose. Well, what can I say? I spent a lot of time around him training the Gakus. For such a powerful man, he has a heart of gold and is a gentle giant. After a couple years, he found his courage and asked me out on a date. He proceeded to sing for me, which put me in a great mood thanks to non-stop laughter. Then he played the perfect gentleman and walked me home. Y'all are grown, so I don't need to tell you what happened next. And he was a rampaging bull, as you put it? Mikoto said while wiggling her eyebrows. Anko blushed before a goofy grin claimed her face. Let's just say what he lacks in finesse, he more than makes up for with passion and natural talent. Oh, how big? How big? The clearly more than tipsy Kurenai asked excitedly. In response, Anko began spreading her pointer fingers apart slowly. As she continued spreading, the blushes grew. After she passed 7 inches, the women were on the edge of their seats. At 9 inches, Hitomi passed out, Mikoto devolved into a fit of giggles, Kushina sighed, and Kurenai blew backwards with a nosebleed. Needless to say, the women caught up throughout the night and enjoyed each other's company. Konoha Council Room, one night after the invasion, Kuza and Hyashi were missing from the clan heads in the council chamber, but everyone else was there. The mood was dark, and everyone knew that they were not in for a pleasant council meeting. After Fugaku opened up and summarized the invasion while having to repeatedly silence the room, the floor for discussion was opened. The civilian council representative spoke first. Hokage-sama, after this egregious attack, the civilians will support you in any punitive actions you take. Thank you for that. Rest assured, we will get our pound of flesh. Suna will fall in time, and we are working toward discovering Otto's whereabouts. The snake Sanin has much to answer for, and we will get our answers. Fugaku answered with fury in his tone. My operatives are already taking measures to disrupt supply lines to Suna. We will starve them out of the desert and take them for all they are worth. The fire daimyo has already gotten the wind daimyo to renounce Suna. All Kaze no Kuni's mission requests will be directed to us. Danzo informed the council of at least one positive thing. Shikaku asked, what of their Jinchuriki that participated in the attack? Wouldn't it be dangerous to fight such an individual in the desert? My spies report that the Jinchuriki has yet to return to Suna. We believe that he has not even made it through river country. We have teams in place to secure the Jinchuriki as well. Once the weapon is neutralized, we will turn it into a weapon of our own. This seemed to be a measure supported by the council as multiple mutterings of approval could be heard. Internally, Fugaku was grateful that the peace-loving village was now motivated for revenge. He would play on this and use it to his advantage. Sure, the loss of his children was a setback, but without his wife he can claim more women and create more children. Thank you, Danzo. Council, we will keep you updated on the progress in regard to Otto and Suna. Onoki stood up. Hokage-sama, did the Kyuubi reform in response to Shukaku? If so, why did it run away and where has it gone? Fugaku sighed. It appears as if the Kyuubi did reform. As to why, nobody knows. It is not an exact science when a biju dies. As to the beast's whereabouts, we are looking into that. I have secured a special team to hunt down the fox and they will notify me when they have any clues on its whereabouts, Inoiki continued. Hokage-sama, the attack on the Hokage Tower, have we confirmed who did it or what they took? For the council's benefit, the Hokage Tower was attacked by an elite team of ninjas. They neutralized the initial defense and set up barriers around the tower to prevent our entry. They were fairly simple barriers, but it proved to be an effective delay tactic. When the fox appeared, we lost the infiltrators. To date, we have found no clues on their identity. Mibuki Haruno spoke up in her shrill voice. What of the Kumo and Ame teams? Could it have been them? Shikaku fielded this question. No, they were accounted for the whole time. His security detail, and his Jonin teams provided security for the panic rooms in the stadium. They did a damned good job protecting many important dignitaries. They waited for orders from us and complied without resistance. I has promised to send food, water and metal at fair prices to help us rebuild. What of the Ame team? Asked another civilian. The Ame team moved into their dignitary's box and defended him. Hanzo vouched for his whole team being there the whole time. Plus, they didn't have enough shinobi present to equal the attack force on the Hokage Tower. Homura answered. For the time being, we have ruled out Kumo and Ame's involvement. The destruction of the Hokage Tower was likely one of Orochimaru's objectives. We can only speculate what the snake was after, but we will be able to ask him before we take his head. Fugaku growled. Sume decided to pitch in. The attack on the clan compounds were fierce. I lost 12 Inuzuka warriors. The Hyuga were hit the hardest and lost Hitomi and Hanabi. Nobody seemed to bother the Aburames or Naras. The Uzumaki and Namikaze compounds were destroyed completely. It was almost as if everything in the compounds were vaporized. Who would do such a thing to Lord Forth's home? My Bui screeched. Settle down, Counselor Haruno. The reason that we never attempted a forced entry was that Minato was exceptionally skilled at seals. We determined that somebody attempted a forced entry on both compounds and triggered the final defenses. Sadly, we will never know what Minato had locked away in there, Koharu said. Shikaku seemed to be thinking deeply about something, which caused Fugaku to prompt him to speak. Well, I was thinking, maybe the infiltrators were after the 4Th's jutsu. They hit the Hokage vault to claim anything he left in there in his clan compound. While that is likely, Minato never left his jutsu in the Forbidden Scroll or the Hokage vault. We are still working on opening the damaged vault to see if they took anything from it. Until it is open, we will not know what we have lost. Fugaku answered in a monotone, preparing himself for the difficult part of the conversation that was coming. Finally, I would like to inform the council that Itachi, Mikoto, Sazumi and Shisui Uchiha all perished, along with 18 other Uchiha warriors, during the invasion. It has left the Uchiha ranks at 70%, and I would request this council's permission to allow elite male Uchihas to practice polygamy to restore our ranks. Danzo spoke up, Fugaku, we are all sorry for your losses, especially from your esteemed family. We will do everything in our power to aid the Uchiha clan in its revenge. I support the approval of the practice of polygamy for Uchiha males above the rank of Chunin that show exceptional prowess in the clan arts. A quick vote was taken, and the measure was approved. Before Fugaku could close the meeting, a civilian spoke up. Hokage-sama, is it true the Lady Senju returned to the village? Yes, Tsunade Senju was in the village to bet on the Chunin exams. She provided aid in the hospital after the invasion ended. We have since been unable to contact her. Fugaku replied. Did that troublesome woman leave again? Shikaku asked. Screeches of "Don't say such things about Tsunade-sama" rang through the chambers before Danzo clicked his cane on the ground. I had 2 root following her and they have yet to report in. Tsunade is a medical professional and considered it her duty to help the people of this village. If we cannot locate her by tomorrow, we will dispatch teams with orders to return her to the village. Shikaku muttered, troublesome. He then thought, good luck with forcing that woman to do anything. Uzushio. 4 days after the invasion of Konoha, the big group of runaways, exiles, missing/presumed dead ninjas landed on the docks of Uzushio. Each of them was surprised to see a small town already formed and bustling with life. Kushina told the group how Ai and Kirinji have thrown their full support behind getting Uzushio back on its feet. As she was giving them the tour, she also explained the group's options. Okay everyone, let me break down your options for you now that you have seen the island. The Refuge and I will let you choose where you wish to stay. If you stay on Uzushio, your efforts will be used to rebuild the city, bolster defenses, aid in agriculture and would contain sparse shinobi work for the next couple of years. If you do not wish to become a Kumo shinobi, then this is your best option. For a couple of you, I would recommend spending a couple months here just to let people forget about you. If you wish to return with us to Kumo, you will either be able to establish your own clans or join under the banner of the Maki clan. Since each of you are active shinobi, you would need to go through screening and probation processes. You are under my protection, so it won't be anything too unpleasant. After probation, an assessment of your skills would be completed, and you would be assigned to a Kumo division. Kakashi asked, what do you mean a Kumo division? Kushina chuckled. Well, after my success in reforming the academy, I reviewed the command structure and composition of Kumo's shinobi with Ai. We came up with an idea to create divisions. Anko leads the capture and interrogation division, which specializes in snatch and grabs and interrogation. Daru is the head of the ninjutsu division, which trains ninjutsu specialists and then assigns them to the combat-oriented or society-oriented teams. Hitomi interrupted. Pardon the interruption, Kushina, but what do you mean by society-oriented teams? Kushina smiled at her old friend. I am glad you asked. Society-oriented teams are responsible for day-to-day jobs like manning the power and water plants, assisting local farmers in various ways and helping the people of Kaminari no Kuni with the power of ninjutsu and other ninja skills. My Sealing Corps is over half of its forces taking jobs to help people improve their everyday lives. It has done wonders for the people of Kaminari no Kuni. The group remained in a stunned silence until Hanabi said what they were all thinking. Why have ninjas not been used for such jobs before? Kushina ruffled the girl's hair. That, Hanabi-chan, is the question of the century. We have the power to mold nature to our will and all we use it for is war. Kumo is trying to change that. Imagine how much more people would like us if we used our powers for good, like doctors and medics. Yu Gao added her support. It is such a simple, yet completely revolutionary, concept. Naruto chimed in here, yeah, especially when you have a biju with chakra potent enough to convert into lakes and water sources wherever people need it. Be started as the protector of Kumo. Now the people of Kaminari no Kuni call him the bringer of rain. After multiple looks requesting further explanation, Naruto continued. Big Brother B uses the power of Juki to use water jutsu. His favorite, aside from spitting out a lake, is the storm style, Stormbringer Jutsu. He basically uses Suten and Raiten to create a storm. Matatabi and the Kyuubi can each infuse their chakra into the ground to replenish its minerals and aid in agriculture. If you ever saw Lightning Country before, you wouldn't even recognize it now. Little brother is right, we are going to lead the world into a new age with lightning and whirlpool countries leading the way. Anko chirped merrily. The group continued their tour of Uzushio and saw the recently built and still vacant compounds. The Uzumaki compound looked furnished and ready to go, which prompted Mikoto to ask Kushina when she would be moving to the island full-time. Right now, we are still in the recruitment phase. There are a couple Kumo ninjas that want to come and join us on the island, which I will allow. We are also using our missions to recruit those looking for a better life to the island. We are scheduled to bring Uzu into the open in 3 or so years. We want to have our defenses impenetrable by that point, especially with Konoha being our closest neighbor. So, we have 3 years to get this place and its shinobi forces on its feet. 4 days after the invasion of Konoha, Amiga Corps, Hattori compound Amy was on a mission with a single-minded determination to speak to her father. She had searched the cage tower in Ame and was told that he was at his compound. Amy had searched through the typical favorites of her father with no luck. She also couldn't find her mother and her clueless clan members weren't helping. Finally, she charged into her father's study and instantly regretted the decision. To be fair, nobody wants to see a 60-year-old in the middle of a love-making session. Amy blushed furiously and stepped outside, waiting for her father to call her into his office. 5 minutes later, she was called in and she saw wrinkled clothes and a furiously blushing mother. "Pardon the intrusion, father, but I have waited long enough to broach the topic with you. Will you support me in claiming Rudo Maki as my rightful fiancé?" Hanzo sighed and buried his face in his hands. His sons were never so troublesome. "Look, Amy, it is not that simple. My intelligence tells me that you are chasing after is the most eligible bachelor in the elemental nations right now. Multiple reports say that the kid gets marriage proposals daily. Can you not find another man? Daddy." Amy unleashes the puppy dog eyes no jutsu on Hanzo the salamander. It is super effective. Hanzo threw his hands up over his head and slammed his head on his desk. "Daughter, my beautiful rainflower, must I? You must. You will escort me to Kumo, and you will do everything in your power to get me engaged to Rudo Maki." She slammed her hands on her hips. "And I mean every thing." Maria put a hand on her husband's shoulder. "Dear, you knew this day was coming. He seems like a wonderful young man." Hanzo crossed his arms and humphed, "He still isn't good enough for my rainflower. Daddy. For those of you that are not yet fathers, or more specifically fathers to beautiful young daughters, I am sure you wouldn't understand. To those of you in that club, I am sure you could sympathize with Hanzo the salamander." Thus, Hanzo requested an audience with the Refuge, Lady Shina and one Rudo Maki. Rather than request permission, he set the date of his arrival and informed the Refuge that he would be staying for 1 week. Hanzo then asked Konan to ensure the letter got to Kumo. The letter magically sprouted paper wings and began its long flight to the Refuge's office. The border of river country and Kaze no Kuni, 1 week after the invasion, Deidara was sitting up on his clay bird, soaring through the sky and occasionally dropping his art off the side of the clay bird. The various white animal figurines gleefully fell through the air and exploded upon impacting the ground. It didn't bring him any satisfaction. Thought, what good was an explosion without blood and terrified screams? Losing heart in his current activity, Deidara ordered his bird back down toward the temporary camp that was set up. He joined Fugaku and Danzo because they promised to unleash him, let the world bear witness to his art, and he would get paid handsomely. Now, he was doubting his choice after he spent a week waiting to spring an ambush and there was no sign of his target. Sighing in boredom, Deidara landed next to his partner in crime, Sasori of the Red Sands. "Sasori, my man, what good is art when there are no witnesses?" Deidara asked, sharing his revelation that was his midlife crisis of sorts. Sasori, inside of his Hiroku puppet body, adopted a contemplative look. He actually took a couple minutes to think about it. If his puppets were just locked in a closet, even if they were eternal, would they still be considered art? That is a most profound question, Deidara. For your explosions, I would debate the answer is no. For my eternal art, I am struggling to find an acceptable answer to your question. Sasori, my man, that is not nice. We came to a mutual agreement that we would agree to disagree on the nature of art. This question is a question for all artists, my man. A deep, throaty acknowledgement came from Sasori before his answer. I think that art needs to be part of a show to reveal its true beauty. My shows include blood, screams, desperation and death. If I were to take out my puppets and use them with nobody around, wouldn't that just be training? That is deep, Sasori my man. If my creations go off with nobody around, do they explode at all? Gah. Sasori, I keep going in circles. From one artist to another, I need your guidance. Sasori's reply was croaked out and very uncertain. Damn you, you pyromaniac. Now you have me thinking about it. 4 root ninjas suddenly appeared in front of the 2 contemplative artists. There has been a change of plans. We will no longer wait to ambush the Jinchuriki. We are to launch an assault on Suna. Why are we to attack my prior village? Sasori asked. He really didn't like working with these drones. Suna attempted to invade Konoha. Thus, Konoha Council has declared war on Suna and Oto. With your unique talents, they wish for you two to launch a punitive attack on the Sand Village. The root member answered blandly. Sasori my man, would you look at that? We are going to have a massive audience now, Deidara said, temporarily shelving his identity crisis. Indeed, let us go. There are additional orders for you too. Those that evacuate are to be left alone. Simply destroy the village and their shinobi forces. We are going to take over Suna when the time is right. The 2 Akatsuki members grunted as they headed toward the desert. Meanwhile, Gaara, Kankuro and Tamari had arrived in the Land of Waves. They followed instructions to Tazuna's house on the morning after the exiles headed to Uzushio. Tsunami answered the door to see the disheveled group of child shinobis. Can I help you 3? She asked while partially hidden behind her door since 2 of the 3 gave her the creeps. Tamari stepped forward. Good morning, are you Tsunami-san, the daimyo of Wave? At Tsunami's nod, she continued. Ruto Maki told us to seek refuge here after the invasion of Konoha. I am Subaku no Tamari and these are my brothers Gaara and Kankuro. Oh, Ruto-kun did mention you 3. Unfortunately, they just departed yesterday. Come in, I am sure we can find something for your 3 to do while we send a messenger bird to Uzu. We thank you for your hospitality. Tamari answered. Kumagakure, Council Room 3 weeks after the invasion of Konoha. I call this damnable council meeting for a couple reasons. 1. There were quite a few additions to Kumo's forces, and he needed to notify the council of them. 2. There was an insane increase in mission requests for Kumo and he wanted to notify the council on how he planned to deal with the increased load. 3. Chunin promotions. 4. To discuss a diplomatic marriage proposal before he even discussed it with Lady Shina. 5. To officially enroll his successor Rudo Maki into Kumo's version of the CRA. The last 2 were sure to give I a massive headache, most likely accompanied by an ass whooping from Shina. As he took his seat, he remembered the previous council meeting when his teams were in Konoha. Flashback, during the month intermission of the Chunin exams. I had been requested in the council chambers by his council. This normally included Daru and Shina, but they were out of the village, which meant I was down some valuable allies. It also meant that the civilians were responsible for calling this meeting. I noticed that Kaoru took the seat as the Maki clan's representative in Shina's absence. Kaoru had been an official Maki since the first day Shina offered it to her. She didn't live on the compound, but she proudly claimed the Maki name. Okay, Shinzo, could you please tell me why you called this council meeting? I requested. Yes, Reikage-sama, we called this meeting today to discuss the future of one Rudo Maki. More specifically, the future wives of Rudo Maki. I sighed before Kaoru jumped to her feet. Shinzo and Honorable Council, as the representative of the Maki clan and as someone who is keenly aware of Lady Shina's temper, could I encourage you to delay this discussion until the return of the Maki matriarch? Shinzo answered quickly. Kaoru-san, I hear your caution, but it is because she is not here that the topic must be brought up. Ruto Maki is the heir of the most important clan to Kumo. It is not the largest nor the most historical clan, but it is clear that the Makis are the most important clan to Kumo. We of the Civilian Council request that Rudo Maki be placed in the Clan Restoration Act. I barked out a laugh. Shinzo, this is not Konoha and Rudo is not a daimyo. Kumo does not have a Clan Restoration Act. Kachi, the father of Mabui, spoke up. Reikage-sama, Kumo has voluntary breeding programs that it uses to reward prominent shinobi of Kumo. We believe it is time to have a more official program that will operate for the benefit of Kumo's future generations. On your desk you will find the Clan Restoration Act of Kumo. We ask you to review it before we take a vote on it today to pass it into law. We understand that Daru and Shi are not present to vote, so we give guardianship of their votes to you. I picked up the document and scanned it. He knew that even with the 2 votes that he wouldn't be able to stop this from passing. He sighed before he called the vote, which passed by a count of 15-5. Okay, my honorable counselors. I cannot stop this legislation from being passed. I can inform you that you are each responsible for informing Lady Shina upon her return to the village. You are dismissed. This statement immediately paled the formerly triumphant civilian council. End of flashback. Now, shortly after the Maki's return, another council meeting had been called. This time, every seat in the council was filled. Some fidgeted nervously while others could be seen with snacks such as popcorn in their hands. I stood up in his serious mode. I, the Refuge of Kumo, call this council meeting to order. Karua-san, will you please inform the council of today's agenda? Certainly, Refuge-sama. 1. We will be voting on the additions to the Maki clan as well as adding a new clan to Kumo. 2. We will discuss the increased mission load and our plan to address it. 3. Chunin promotions. 4. To discuss a diplomatic marriage proposal from Amiga Corps 5, to officially enroll Rudo Maki into the CRA. Shina responded instantly by flooding the room with killing intent. She then turned her head to I and looked at him with a sweet, yet blatantly fake, smile. Reikuge-sama, I could be wrong, but it sounded like this council voted to enroll my Sochi into the CRA in my absence. Did I hear that right? I looked directly at Councilors Shinzo and Kachi, which prompted Kachi to stand up. Gulping, he said, Lady Shina, you have had a wondrous impact on Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni as a whole. My daughter and Samui-chan have grown close to Rudo-san, and I wanted to ensure their happiness. We handled the creation of the CRA and his enrollment into it to save you such headaches. Kushina smiled evilly at the 2 responsible. Oh, my mistake then. Could you please provide this CRA so that I may review it? I am sure that it states that 2 wives would be the max. No, it doesn't, stuttered out Shinzo, who was not used to such potent ki. Okay then. Does it give my Sochi the liberty to choose his own wives? Kushina said in an innocent and girly tone. No. Shinzo looked like he was about to piss himself as Shina's hair flared up. Does this council believe my Sochi has the right to refuse enrollment? Darren, a member of the Mategaki clan, a minor clan of shinobi that specialize in earth-style body reinforcement, stood up. Lady Shina, for the benefit of Kumo and the Maki clan, it is necessary for Rudo to take multiple mates. We wish to help him in this. Darren, sit your ass back in that seat before I make you. Each of you thinks you can crap on my chest and convince me it's perfume? I have talked to I about this, and I would never allow the greedy fools of this council to choose women for my son. If you are particularly fond of your heads, I would recommend you rewrite that stupid concept out of this law. If my Sochi takes multiple women, that is his choice, and he will absolutely have the right of choice. Am I clear? As Lady Shina's tirade came to an end, the sound of popcorn crunching filled the room. Shina looked around and noticed her allies were the ones enjoying the show. Moving on to the first item on the agenda. Kakashi, Kurenai, and Genma, previously of Konoha, wish to join the Maki clan. There is a request for the founding of the Uchiha clan in Kumo, enrolled under the public name of Uchimaki. The current members are Mikoto, Itachi, Shisui and Sazumi, and they all carry their bloodline. Yugao Gecko and Hayate Gecko with to join as vassals of the Maki clan. Tsunade Senju and Shizune Senju wish to apply for residence in Kumo and Uzushio. We will now vote on this. After a 15-minute debate, all newcomers were approved and the council was excited to welcome such strong newcomers into their ranks, even if most of them would end up in Uzushio. The next item was open for debate after the room calmed down. The council approved I's measure to shrink teams for C-ranked missions down to teams of 3. I stood up with a proud smirk on his face and Kaoru unsealed multiple sets of equipment on the table. Divine Bolts of Kumo, Post. Naruto, Mabui, Samui, Atsui, Tuya and Amoy appeared in front of the Refuge kneeling with their fists over their hearts. Naruto spoke for the group, "We have answered your call, Refuge-sama. For your efforts that contributed to the end of the civil war in Kiri, for your outstanding performance on missions, for representing Kumaga Corps' supremacy in the Chunin exams and for successful completion of your side mission in infiltrating Konoha Corps, I hereby promote the Divine Bolts to the rank of Elite Chunin." There was a round of applause from those in the council chamber as each DB was given their one-strapped, sleeveless white Chunin vest. Each vest has the crest of the Divine Bolts on the strap of the vest and there were extra scroll pouches on the front of the vests. The DBs remained up front until the last member received their vest before they took places in the back of the room to watch the rest of the show. Atsui actually unsealed some popcorn and moved his DB mask to the side of his head to enjoy the show. Karua stood up from her post as the secretary and scribe. Okay, we will now move on to item 3. Hanzo the salamander of Omega Corps will arrive in Kumo along with his escort, wife and daughter next week. He sent over intentions for a treaty, hinting at the bond between one of his own and Lady Shina. He also sent over first drafts of a mutual defense agreement between Kumo, Ame and an unidentified third country. The agreement is proposed with a marriage contract to his youngest daughter and Sai. Kaoru looked up and locked eyes with Lady Shina. Lady Shina was scowling lightly, glaring at the likely suspects on the council that would support this. So, Hanzo wants my Sochi to marry his daughter. Did he provide a reason as to why? I spoke up here, drawing Shina's ire to himself. He claims that Hattori clan customs dictate that he honors his daughter's request. His daughter claims she issued the right of conquest to Rudo Maki before their fight in the Chunin exams. Since Rudo bested her, she believes him to be her only viable husband, since she is of marriage age. They are willing to let the two reside in Kumo and only request some minor concessions in return. Shina turned her glare on Ruto. She issued the right of conquest? Ruto adopted his sheepish pose. Yeah, Kachan, she did. Although I said that I didn't care because we were fighting within the Chunin exam finals. She did tell me what it would mean if I beat her. Then we had to deal with the invasion and subsequent mission, so I kind of forgot about it. Shina buried her head in her hands. Damn it, Sochi, why do you do this to your Kachan? What choice did I have? I thought that you would shoot her down and that would be that. That would be the case if Hanzo the fucking salamander wasn't marching to our village to fulfill that request. Sochi, I have shot down hundreds of marriage requests on your behalf, however, the benefits to Kumo must be considered now. I decided to back his love interest up. Ruto, your mother is right. You seem to get along with the girl and she certainly isn't hard on the eyes. For us to gain a powerful ally in a good position would benefit both nations. Fine, but I request that this council hears the opinions of Samui and Mabui. If I am to be engaged, then I request to honor my girlfriends and future mates, Ruto said in a resigned tone. Mabui stepped forward. I believe this will fit into the CRA that the council is planning to force Ruto into. We have discussed this and tentatively approved of Amy Hattori, so long as her love for Ruto is genuine and not motivated by some other factor. Kachi stood up to answer his daughter. Thank you for understanding, Mabui-chan. Mabui shot a cold look at her father. I am not doing this for you, father. I am doing this for Ruto and Kumo. Samui decided to chip her 2 cents in. In fact, while you are rewriting your CRA, we would prefer a clause that says all current partners of the interested party have primary say over new additions. The Uzumaki enforced this policy, and it helped them maintain order until their untimely fall. Shina snapped her fingers. That is a great idea, Samui-chan. I propose to delay the vote on this version of the CRA until I may review it and redo it to fit a model that had worked in the past. Kachi, looking to save face with his daughter, I agree with lazy Shina and second her motion. I replied, very well, I accept your motion. We will reconvene when Lady Shina is ready. Ruto will be allowed to maintain his current status quo until the law has been reworked. Dismissed. That night, a very exhausted Maki family along with the rest of the Divine Bolts returned to the Maki compound. Naruto was excited to see Rias again, who ran up to him and glommed onto him with a massive hug. Karen and Kin greeted the group at the door more timidly as they watched the red-headed beauty nearly suffocate the sole male of the house. Samui and Mabui wore partially confused looks on their faces but decided that the girl wasn't totally out of line. After a small dinner, the group began sorting through the items they collected from Konoha. Kushina had erected a barrier that would prevent detection of any tracking jutsus, just in case they missed a few seals during their rushed mission. Down in the underground study, the floor was covered in individual scrolls and the group was sorting them into weapons, jutsu scrolls, books, historical or clan documents and assorted items from the houses such as desks, chairs and paintings. Kushina held up a scroll and looked at Naruto. Really, Sochi? My old chair? Naruto shrugged, I thought you would appreciate having it back. If you don't want it, then I will take it for my study. No, that's all right, Sochi, I appreciate the thought. What are we going to do with all of this stuff though? There is far too much of it to fit here. I thought that we could furnish Uzushio and help get some of the newcomers on their feet. You know, since Suna was sacked and Gaara, Tamari and Kankuro are listed as wanted by Konoha. I figured anything we do not need can be donated to help get the people of Uzu on their feet. Ria's cheery voice piped in, gosh, Rudo, Are you always so thoughtful? Mabui smiled at the redhead, that's why we love him. Atsui added, that's why everyone loves him, not just the girls he sleeps with. At that moment, Atsui was hit in the back of the head by a rather thick book thrown by Samui. He went into defense mode as more random objects were chucked at him. That's enough, kids. Let's at least sort this all out before we randomly destroy a valuable piece of history. Kushina chided the group. A chorus of "Hi, Kachan" echoed around the room. Each of the DBs considered Kushina to be a mother figure, especially Samui and Mabui. Naruto decided to ask a question that had been bugging him. Kachan, I know it is important to get all this stuff sorted out, but when are we going to look through the Namikaze scroll? I want to learn Dad's jutsus. There is no rush, Sochi. We will have plenty of time to look through it once things have calmed down. Naruto reluctantly agreed with Kushina. The group soon lost the will to push through their exhaustion and went to bed. Since the return, Kushina gave approval for Samui and Mabui to officially move into the compound, so the girls spent the night with Naruto. They wanted to make this night count because Hikari would have dibs for the next week. Hikari unleashed. The next day, the group woke up and the DBs were still enjoying a 2-week vacation granted to them by the Refuge. The girls went into town to go shopping. Kushina was working with Ai to prepare for the Ame delegation and Naruto was excited to see Hikari in the real world. Naruto was down in his study in a meditative posture. He was calming his chakra coils and taking the time to properly let Hikari out of the seal. It was a slower process and Hikari said it would take an hour to let her out. The plan was to release one tail of her power by channeling her yokai through the seal. It was a temporary measure, and she would need to return to the seal within a week's time, but the fated pair was more than excited for this week. After a long hour of meditation and a growing presence of yokai in the training room, the red yokai began taking shape. Out of the red mist, the red-headed beauty that Naruto had grown to love stepped out, stark naked. The beautiful Kitsune was finally out in the real world and she enjoyed her first breath of fresh air since the night of the Kyuubi attack on Konoha. Hikari breathed in deeply and stepped forward toward the presence of her mate. She took in his scent, his presence, his warmth. Her feet naturally guided her to him, and it wasn't until she was right in front of him that glowing red orbs with a black vertical slits met azure blue eyes. Naruto's breath hitched in his chest as he locked eyes with Hikari. He had worked himself to the bone, day in and day out, to form himself into a man worthy of such a divine beauty. As his eyes soaked in the naked form of his mate, a small blush crept to his cheeks, and he felt the need to moisten his lips. He wanted to take action, take her in his arms and show her exactly how much she means to him, but he was frozen. Frozen in the moment that his first ambition was achieved, and he wouldn't have it any other way. A beautiful smile graced Hikari's face as soul locked with soul through intimate eye contact. Her eyes softened and she extended a slim hand to glide upon the whisker marks of her mate that remained fixed in the lotus position. Naruto leaned into the tender touch and allowed the purr to escape his throat as the pleasant sensation stirred him awake and filled his veins with a fiery determination to be close to this woman. Naruto extended his toned arms and pulled the kitsune into an embrace. No words were necessary when their souls were linked. They each wanted to freeze this moment and burn every detail into their memory for fond countenance at a later date. Eventually, neither knew how long, but eventually the lovers parted from their embrace. Neither feeling bashful at the exquisite nudity of the kitsune. Naruto rose to his feet and scooped her into a prince's carry. Thoroughly enjoying the feel of his fingertips on her soft flesh. Never allowing his eyes to break contact, never allowing for the soul link to be severed. Naruto glided up the stairs with his kitsune prize, reveling in the sensation of her single tail interlocking with his 3 tails. The Hanyu didn't even register that he subconsciously broke his transformation. He was too wrapped up in the elation of the moment. Naruto walked directly to his room, making sure to provide a comfortable ride to his mate. The weight had built up over the past 9 years, neither one cared for any formalities that would further delay their union. Hikari was the first to break the soul link, but it was to lace kisses on her soon-to-be lover's neck and collarbone. She was no longer able to resist the potent pheromones that were pouring off of him like a rich cologne. Naruto growled in pleasure as he finally reached his bed. "An, I really need advice. I have prevented from going into lemons for this fic but I felt it necessary for this one. I received mixed feedback in my previous fic about lemons. Please comment on whether or not the lemons add to the story or your enjoyment of the story. For now, I will leave them out and only allude to the act. If I get enough feedback, I will add them in." With all the love of a raging sex fanatic, Naruto laid Hikari on his bed before undressing to match the kitsune's state of dress. Lip locking led to hands wandering led to mouths being incorporated into a variety of pleasurable acts, the pleasurable sensations led to moaning and ultimately orgasms. The pinnacle of their first session was a mutual bite to the base of the other's neck. The unconscious channeling of chakra led to a mating seal that bound the two souls together in the mortal world in Makai. The two continued to alternate between passionate sex and cuddling for the whole day, not even going out to greet the family until they had their fill of one another. Hikari felt whole again for the first time since the death of her kits. The rage she harbored for humanity as a whole was tempered as Kami offered the gift of the perfect mate. A mate she helped raise into the definition of a man. The kitsune beauty enjoyed the spasms of her muscles from residual pleasure that built up throughout the day as she closed her eyes to enjoy her first night's sleep outside a seal in over a century. The next morning, the two love kitsune started the day in a similar fashion to how they ended the previous one. Naruto woke Hikari up with surprise fellatio, which led to 3 servings of Naruto, which led to the shower. After a shower session where Kitsune and Hanyu succumbed to their urges once again, the two cleaned each other off and got ready to introduce Hikari to the family. Naruto and Hikari walked hand in hand into the dining room to enjoy Hikari's first Uzumaki family breakfast. The kitsune was positively glowing, a fact that wasn't missed by any of the females in the room. Naruto's big, goofy smile lit up smiles on each of their faces since they all enjoyed seeing the man of the house happy. Naturally, it was Anko that spoke up first. "So, Foxy-sama, was he everything you hoped for?" Anko's wiggling blonde eyebrows broke the unspoken tension in the group. Hikari blushed, licked her lips sensually and looked right back into Anko's eyes. "Better." Anko's eyes snapped to Ruto. "Impressive, little brother. You bagged yourself a kitsune goddess and set a high bar for yourself." Mabui set a plate of breakfast down for Naruto and Hikari. "Well, Anko-chan, if you knew what we know, you would probably give similar reviews. I was surprised to see she could even walk straight." "Thank you, Mabui-chan. Enhanced regeneration is definitely useful when it comes to satisfying a Hanyu's needs." "How was your night?" Hikari asked before reveling in her first sip of real coffee in ages. "Oh, it was great. Hung out with the Uchiha girls and helped them get set up. Sazumi and Itachi were asking about you, Rudo-kun." Mabaui answered and added coyly. Naruto cocked an eyebrow at that as he finished a bite of chicken sausage. "Oh yeah? Why was that?" Samui, Mabui and Hikari exchanged looks, before Samui answered for the group. "Are you actually still so naive that you don't know? Or are you just trying to make us say it?" Naruto shrugged so Mabui finished the thought. "Rudo, you have a way of making powerful impressions on girls our age. Sazumi is more of a juvenile crush, but you must tell us how you got to the unflappable Itachi? I have never seen an Uchiha blush that much." "Itachi? Oh, well, I don't really know. We hung out as little kids, but then I didn't see her until the exams. Even then, I only really talked to her once or twice." "Well, believe me Rudo, that woman is hot for you. She told us the story of you two in the park. She said she was 7 so you would have been almost 5, right?" Samui asked, trying to dig up more details on the two. "If she was that old then it was probably one of the last times I saw her. I can't really remember much from back then," Naruto said nonchalantly, much more interested in his breakfast and Hikari's hand on his crotch. Mabui giggled. "Well, the way she told the story is that you made a childhood promise to her, Rudo-kun. A promise that she may have taken a little too seriously." Ruto cocked an eyebrow, so Samui continued the duet in between giggles. "It was so cute. She called you Naru-chan and she told us how little old you made the promise of a lifetime to marry her when you two were older." "Oh, did I? Well, at that age Itachi and Shika were the only kids that would still play with me. Itachi used to scare off bullies from the playground and no parents were dumb enough to try something with the Hokage's kid around. I wouldn't be surprised if I did say that." Naruto now had a dazed look in his eyes as he glanced into the bright spot of his troubled past. Rias chided Naruto. "Naruto-kun, girls take those promises seriously. After what I saw last night, I think you should talk to her about it." Naruto was in the middle of waving her off when Hikari's nails dug into his thighs. "They are right, Ruto. You should talk to her about it and settle old feelings. I remember that discussion because the mindscape suddenly went from stormy to brilliantly sunny, which made me pay attention. I don't think anyone here would stop you from seeing if it is a simple childhood crush or something more tangible." "Fine, Hikari-chan, fine. Oh, by the way, Rias and Kin, this is Hikari. You may know her better as the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I forgot that you two didn't know about her yet." Forks clattered to the table and Rias overfilled her coffee cup. The two girls couldn't lift their jaws off of the table and they remained frozen, gaping at the Kitsune. The rest of the Makis just broke into fits of laughter at the two's reactions. Anko pulled out her Polaroid camera, snapped a photo and then stuck it on the fridge. Before the two snapped out of it, she put a locking seal on the picture so the two couldn't take it down. The group's conversation continued along pleasant lines and the Makis began another pleasant new day in Kumo. Hikari hogged Naruto for the next 3 days as the intrepid blonde showed the kitsune beauty around Kumo. Hikari really enjoyed the stunned looks on B and Yugito's faces when she introduced herself. Even more so when she bumped fists with the two and said hello to Juki and Matatabi. "So, after centuries we finally get your name, eh?" "Hikari," Juki said. Hikari put a mischievous finger to her lips. "Oh, you get this avatar's name. It would be awkward if Naruto-kun had to introduce me as the Kyuubi." Juki was about to pull his remaining horn off in a fit of frustration while Matatabi purred out her annoyance. "You troublesome kitsune. Can't you just tell us already?" A face-splitting grin encompassed Hikari's face inside the joint mindscape. "Nope." After saying goodbye to the biju duo, Naruto and Hikari enjoyed their walk through the town. It was refreshing for Hikari to watch the residents of Kumo shower praise on her mate. He and his family had done so much for Kumo, and the people affectionately showed their appreciation. Hikari found out that she really liked chicken katsu, so she memorized the flavor to serve it in the mindscape. Hikari returned to the Maki compound that night with multiple gifts from the people of Kumo, most of which Naruto was carrying in his chiseled arms. Hikari had fun telling Naruto that it would be impolite to seal them up, but it was really because she enjoyed seeing his rippling muscles carry an ever-growing pile of gifts. Hikari was in such a good mood upon her return to the compound that she invited Samui and Mabui to join Naruto for that night. The four cuddled on the couch and watched a movie. Hikari took her fox form and cuddled in Naruto's lap for the movie. The relationship between the four felt so natural and so unforced that the foursome happened before any of them knew it. That night was also the first time that Naruto experimented with shadow clones during sex, which caused his clones to cry tears of happiness and promise eternal loyalty to their boss. As a side note, Naruto noticed a 33% increase in clone workload efficiency from that day forward. The next morning, Hikari gave Naruto a parting kiss before she channeled her remaining yokai into the seal. Since mating, their senses were linked on a deeper level, so Hikari got to experience the world through all 5 of Naruto's senses. Each time she sat down and tuned in, it was like sitting in an ultimate IMAX theater for her. Naruto laughed at her mental glee, and he nearly rolled off the bed laughing that night when Hikari said that she really liked the male experience in intercourse. Hikari made a mental note for a role reversal the next time she could leave the seal. Hanzo the salamander. After nearly a full week of bliss with Hikari and his girls, Naruto was called to Ai's office. I told Naruto that it was time to get his game face on because the Ame delegation would be arriving tomorrow. Naruto had sorted through his feelings on the situation, and he decided to resign himself to his fate. He would just be himself, and if things worked out then that would be just fine. The council had already amended the CRA, and he was the official first member of Kumo's CRA, which was pretty much the polygamy policy of the Uzumaki clan with no limits. The next day came quickly, and Naruto found himself waiting at the front gate alongside Ai, Kushina, Samui, Mabui and the Kumo Council. They saw the delegation from a way out. I had everyone staged and ready for a proper greeting. Naruto noticed Hanzo right away. He was a big man, about 6 foot 1 inch with broad shoulders. His Amiga Core cage cloak was a royal blue with white raindrops on it. His gait was powerful, and his aura was fierce, even for the intrepid Hanyu. Hanzo was walking in front of a horse-drawn carriage that looked fit for nobility that also bore the crests of Ame. As the delegation came to a halt, I greeted them. "Welcome to Kumaga Core Hanzo Hattori, Maria Hattori, and Amy Hattori. We hope that your journey through our lands was pleasant." Hanzo grunted. "Thank you, Reikage Dono, it was a long walk. I must say, Kaminari no Kuni is much more impressive than I remembered." I actually smiled at the compliment. "Yeah, we have Lady Shina to thank for that. So, could we treat you to some lunch after the long journey? That would be appreciated." "Might I bring my family?" Hanzo answered politely. That was the plan. Lady Shina wished to host a lunch at the Maki clan compound. I informed him, and the older, yet still powerful, figure cracked a smile. 30 minutes later, Hanzo, Maria, Amy and Nagato were seated around the family table at the Maki clan compound with I and the Maki family. They made small talk while the food was out. Hanzo really enjoyed the crab from Uzushio along with other delicacies that were not available in Ame. As with all things, eventually it was time to get down to business. So, Hanzo, might as well address the elephant in the room. Your daughter Amy wishes to be engaged to Rudo because Rudo beat her in combat after the right of conquest was issued. Does that about sum it up? Shina asked, always straight to the point. Hanzo grunted. That about sums it up. I have my reservations, but there is no father that can deny his daughter. Shina turned her gaze upon the blushing girl. Amy, as Ruto's mother, I would like to know why you are so insistent on marrying Ruto. Clan customs are great and all, but I do not consider them a valid reason to marry a foreign shinobi. Amy blushed and looked down at the remnants of her food. She steeled her resolve before meeting Shina's gaze. Lady Shina, Ruto is a great guy with a gentle heart. Underneath all of that yummy muscle is a pure soul that cares for those he loves while sparing absolutely nothing for those that stands against him. He is a true leader and I believe him to be a man worthy of my heart. Shina hummed as she thought the girl's answer over. Eventually, she asked, and you got all of that from a couple interactions and a fight? Amy's eyes hardened and her resolve firmed. Lady Shina, surely a warrior of your caliber knows that you can have a conversation with an exchange of fists. To be blunt, it is not hard to tell the quality of your son, especially when he gives you a glimpse of his true self. Shina smiled genuinely and returned her gaze to Maria and Hanzo. Well, I'm sold. Now, it is my duty to inform you that my son was recently, and forcibly I may add, placed under the Clan Restoration Act of Kumo. The law follows old Uzumaki tradition and lays out ground rules for it. To my consternation, the council did not place an upper limit but the control of choice rests with him and his fiancées or current wives. Hanzo frowned at that, but Maria remained undeterred. What makes your son so special that they would go to such lengths for him? I stepped in to back up Shina. Hanzo, do you know of the origins of the Maki clan? Hanzo nodded briefly, showing that he could put two and two together. Okay, so as part of my agreement with Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, I agreed to help rebuild Uzushio. In order to garner my early support, Kushina promised that Naruto would remain in Kumo. I waived that condition since she has done so much for Kaminari no Kuni, but Naruto has his sights set on being the god-ime Refuge of Kumo. I would add that he already has the full support of the people and I have announced him as my successor. On top of that, Naruto possesses a Kekai Tauta for storm release, which Kumo wishes to propagate. Hanzo raised an eyebrow at this. Kekai Tauta? A three-element bloodline? There have been less than a handful documented throughout shinobi history. Naruto entered the conversation here. Hanzo Gigi, since we are being honest, I wish to discuss something with you and Amy. Before I do, I need you to sign an Uzumaki blood contract stating that you will not disclose this information. Is that necessary? You have shared a number of your secrets already. Hanzo asked, now genuinely curious. Naruto's look was deadly serious. Yes, it is that serious. Only the Refuge and the Divine Bolts know this secret and I am hesitant to spread it further. Very well, I will trust you on one condition. Naruto gave him a nod that told him to spill it already. I wish for a spar with you to test your strength. If my daughter is to share you, I wish to take my own measure of the man that she will give her heart to. I accept. Naruto spoke up before the Refuge could reasonably object. Naruto then whipped out a quill and some ink to write up the contract and seal. He placed his bloody handprint on the bottom of the paper and pushed it to Hanzo. Hanzo read the agreement and did the same, which made the seal glow blue. Naruto took a deep breath before he began. Okay, Hanzo Gigi, welcome to the inner fold. As my mother made clear, I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. That might have been easy enough for a man of your stature to figure out. Naruto paused here and undid his transformation. 2 blonde ears and 3 blonde, white-tipped tails filled Hanzo's vision. What is not so obvious is what happened to me on the night of my sealing. My father signed a contract promising me as the future mate of the Kyuubi. Due to my proximity to her in gestation and her residing in my body, I have transitioned into a Hanyu. I will tell you the Q is a wonderful and honorable woman that has my complete trust. Along with her, I have love for Samui and Mabui as well as my family. It may not be your typical love, but my mother asked me to father the new generation of the Uzumaki clan that will reside on Uzu. That is all. 3 jaws were on the table for different reasons. Hanzo had literally never heard of a Hanyu Jinchuriki or anybody mating with a biju. Maria was wondering how this man would be able to provide for so many kids in the future, then she thought about how many grandkids by proxy she would have. Amy just wanted to touch Naruto's ears and wrap herself in his tails. The Makis let the group process their thoughts and an awkward silence settled over the table for 5 minutes or so. Ahem, Naruto-san, you are telling me that you are no longer human, is that correct? Hanzo asked. I kind of ride the line, if I understand it right. I can still procreate, and my kids will be stronger than normal. Until I have a kid, I don't know if there will be any complications. To be straightforward, I am half human, half demon. Demon doesn't mean evil, It means a race of increased power and longevity that originate from Makai, a sort of parallel world to ours. Maria decided to ask the next question. Will your children have increased longevity or demonic traits? Naruto shrugged. Maria-sama, I honestly couldn't tell you. We are in uncharted territory. Never before has a biju selected a human as its mate. Never before has a Hanyu been made from a baby born of 2 humans. Tsunade Buchin doesn't even know. Ano, can I touch them? Amy asked, blushing and incredibly shy. It also served to break the tension in the room. After the petting session, Naruto answered a slew of questions and it eventually turned into a proper family dinner. The treaty was de facto agreed upon that night, but Hanzo would still have to jump through the proper hoops. The Hatteras ended up staying in the Maki guest house and enjoyed the lively atmosphere that came with it. Amy spent just as much time with the girls as she did with Naruto. Hanzo spent time training with Naruto and evaluating him as a potential son-in-law. Nagato spent time bonding with every member of the Uzumaki family and agreed to play Ame's ambassador to Kumo and Uzushio. Hanzo was happy to have a new ally, especially one as powerful as Kumo. He agreed to have a Kumo survey group visit Ame and see if they could institute some of the reforms that brought prosperity to Kumo. The treaty was signed 2 days after Hanzo arrived in Kumo and the engagement of Hanzo's daughter and Rudo Maki was announced to the public. There was an article put out in the Kumo Times telling girls not to despair because Rudo was inducted in the CRA of Kumo. Kushina raged when she saw the front page of the newspaper with her son and Amy's picture, accompanied by the announcement of Rudo being in the CRA. She raged because it meant another round of engagement proposals to her son, as if he didn't have enough on his plate already. On the second page, the exhibition match between Hanzo and Ruto was announced. How a friendly spar got escalated to an exhibition match was unknown, but it meant pain for Ruto. On Hanzo's 5th day in Kumo, Rudo and Hanzo were standing across from each other in Kumo's stadium with Ai acting as the proctor. Both fighters agreed not to destroy too much of the arena, but that didn't stop Shina from setting up multiple protective barriers. Now, amongst the squeals of fangirls, the cheers of the crowd and the prayers of the Makis, I was laying out the ground rules for the match. I initiated the fight and jumped out of the way. Alright, kid, show me what you got. Shall we start with taijutsu? Hanzo asked cordially. Ruto shrugged before deactivating his weight and resistance seals. He shook himself out for a minute before locking eyes with Hanzo. Hanzo was in his battle regalia, which meant he was wearing his rebreather mask. Ruto really didn't want to face the poison of the boss salamander, but it may actually come to that. With a nod of his head, Ruto dashed at Hanzo. The old man was surprisingly spry for his age and the fast-paced taijutsu battle started. Ruto was trying everything in his arsenal to land a hit on Hanzo, feints, counters, overwhelming speed and force, but it was to no avail. The man wasn't hailed as the strongest of his generation for no reason. Hanzo remained on the defensive, surprised to realize that the kid was pushing him. Maybe it was his old age? No, Hanzo was still a monster, and he was demonstrating why. It was just that his opponent was on the verge of maturing into a fully grown monster of his own. The haze of battle crept into Hanzo's eyes, his smile was hidden by his rebreather and his blood was truly starting to pump for the first time since his fight against Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato. After 8 minutes of back-to-back-to-back blocks and counters, Rudo opened up the floodgates and spawned a shadow clone behind Hanzo that landed the first real blow of the match. The clone's jumping roundhouse kick caught Hanzo by surprise, and he ate the blow to the back. He was surprised by the sheer force contained in the kick, but he was able to right himself after skidding off the ground just once. He continued to skid back on his feet for another 10 meters, but now it was on. Ruto saw Hanzo unsheath the yari, a Japanese-style spear, but the spearhead was nearly 3 feet in length. Hanzo spun the weapon around his body with the grace and practice of a seasoned warrior. Ruto answered by unsheathing Heaven's Blessing and charging the blade with wind chakra. Hanzo answered by encasing his yari with an absurd amount of wind chakra, which made the business end of the weapon nearly 5 feet long. This is where Rudo needed to gain a win. If it came to strictly ninjutsu, then Hanzo's battle prowess would truly shine. Ruto blurred forward and a kenjutsu fight began. Once again, Hanzo was pleasantly surprised by the boy's prowess. The weight behind each blow was staggering and the fluidity of the blows left minimal room for counterattacks. Ruto began with a bone-crushing horizontal slash that Hanzo met with the blade of the yari. The wind chakras grinded into each other and emitted gale force winds with each impact. Ruto transitioned from the blocked horizontal strike by spinning rapidly and creating a whirlwind of mostly horizontal strikes that came from a variety of upward and downward angles. Hanzo repeatedly blocked these, and during the milliseconds in between strikes, he lashed out with the butt of the yari and landed a painful blow to Ruto's chest. Ruto went skidding back from the blow and found himself dodging or parrying stabbing thrusts from the Yai before Hanzo performed a whirlwind attack of his own that Ruto blocked. The strike was so strong that metal met metal through the wind casings. The amount of wind chakra expelled actually blew each competitor back and the battle fell into a temporary standstill. Very good, Ruto-san, very good indeed. What was that opening attack you used there? Hanzo's battle-crazed voice echoed across the stadium. Thanks Hanzo-gi. That was Barbarian's Tide, horizontal tide into a whirlpool dance. I adapted the whirlpool's edge to fit my greatsword here. Ah, yes, where did you get such a weapon? It is truly fearsome in the hands of someone with such strength and speed. My eagle summons hail from the west. This was a common weapon amongst their ancient warriors and this baby is called Heaven's Blessing. Ruto kissed the sword, which drew laughter from the crowd. Impressive indeed. Such a sword with wind chakra is a mighty weapon. Care for a battle of katanas? Hanzo challenged. Without a second thought, Ruto latched his greatsword onto his back and unclicked the safety latch of his katana. Hanzo adopted an open blade, counter style of kenjutsu. Never one to wait for an invitation, Ruto bent his knees and almost fell into a runner's stance. Ruto disappeared from sight before a mighty clang rang out. Before the audience knew what happened, Ruto was resheathing his blade behind Hanzo. Hanzo's katana was severed down the center of the blade and the severed tip fell to the ground, much to his shock. It was also the first blood strike that led to Ruto's ass whooping. Hanzo couldn't believe what he just saw. Kenjutsu was not his best art, but he had never been bested, much less in a single strike. He looked down to the cut oozing fresh blood on his left arm and started laughing maniacally. He dropped his katana and began forming seals. When Ruto felt the chakra spike, he knew it was on. A deluge of stone was arcing over his position at a rapid pace from Hanzo's Doden, Earth Wave Jutsu. He flipped through seals before he sent a lightning dragon to penetrate through the tidal wave of Earth. Ruto sprinted after his dragon and followed the path it tore into the Earth Jutsu. Hanzo saw the dragon's head and prepared himself. As soon as Ruto exited the earthen tunnel, a foot met his face, and he was flung onto the back end of the earthen tidal wave. While skidding on his back, Ruto flipped through a couple seals and took a deep breath before he thought Sutin, pressure stream. A thin, sustained beam of pressurized water headed straight for Hanzo as Ruto continued his impromptu ride. Hanzo flipped to the bird seal and used successive futon, vacuum boltets to negate Ruto's attack. At this point, the crowd was going nuts for the display of prowess. They were so hyped up that most people forgot this was supposed to be a friendly spar. The girls didn't appreciate how far this was being taken and they were scared it was going to get out of hand. Amy was awed by the display and just a little upset that Ruto was holding back on her so much during their fight. Nagato Oji, doesn't it look like father is actually trying? Nagato nodded as his violet eyes took in every frame of the fight. Indeed, he is. Other than his summon, he is not holding back. Maria looked to Nagato. You don't think he would bring ol' Sal out here, do you? Nagato found the trepidation in her voice kind of funny. Ha ha, he might, I can see the look in his eyes from here. He is enjoying this too much. Amy looked aghast at the battlefield where her now official fiancé was fighting her father. Mama, he wouldn't kill Ruto-kun, would he? No, sweetie. I don't think he would. This earned an aghast look from Amy and another chuckle from Nagato. Back on the battlefield, the two had been trading jutsu and taijutsu for the past 5 minutes. Each jutsu escalated the fight and Shina now had both hands on the barrier to reinforce it with chakra. Hanzo had just jumped back to gain distance and he had a bulge in his cheeks and stomach before he called out salamander style, corrupted fog. A great cloud of deep purple poison began to fill the stadium and it earned gasps from the crowd. Ruto's eyes widened to comical proportions before he focused and called up a massive amount of lightning chakra to take form around him. Through the purple fog, the audience heard the familiar call of their Reikage's lightning armor. The next thing they knew, Hanzo was driven into the stadium wall by a Raiten, lightning lariat. The old salamander coughed out some blood into his rebreather before headbutting the younger opponent to get some space. Ruto reeled back, which allowed Hanzo the opportunity to mule kick him in the chest and send him flying back into the fog. Hanzo knew how terrifying the lightning armor jutsu was, so it was time to call out his old friend. He took some of the recently coughed up blood and smeared it on his right palm before flipping through some hand signs. Out of the poison cloud, a giant salamander that practically filled the stadium emerged. Ruto had recovered himself from the powerful kick, but during the brief lapse in his lightning armor he had inhaled some of the corrupted fog. His vision was swimming, and he was on the verge of collapse already. It was a truly terrifying poison. Deciding to go out with a bang, Ruto channeled some yokai to clear the poison out of his system, Enough to focus on the jutsu he needed to form. Ruto formed a storm ball in his hands as the giant salamander rose up in front of him. Knowing that this was the last hurrah of this fight, Rudo let the storm ball fly. Hanzo and Sal sensed the potent jutsu heading their way, and Sal lashed out with his tail to bat away the oncoming jutsu. The giant salamander boss was in for quite a shock. The storm ball burrowed into Sal's tail before detonating into a storm cloud. The brilliant blue and black bolts of lightning coursed throughout the giant salamander's body, and it even jolted Hanzo from his perch. The salamander's tail was completely engulfed in the explosion and dissolved due to the potent jutsu. The damage caused Sal to disappear back to his summon realm and left the shocked Hanzo to fall nearly 200 feet to the ground. The shock to Hanzo caused the corrupted fog to disperse and showed the crowd Rudo's unconscious form with Hanzo down on one knee. The crowd gasped as they took in the down forms. I and Sheena ran to Hanzo. I took a vial he was holding before Sheena began ripping into him. I left the shouting woman to go to the down form of Rudo. He lifted Rudo's head up and administered the antidote. I called the match in Hanzo's favor and Hanzo stood to address the crowd. People of Kumo, I apologize for letting this spar get just a bit out of hand. Laughter rang through the audience. Nearly 35 years ago I fought against a team from Konoha that gave me a good fight in Amiga Corps. What most of you don't know that is 12 years ago is I fought against 3 orphans. Both of those fights I commemorated my opponent's strength by giving them titles. In honor of this young man, the first young man to ever forcibly dispel Ol Sal, I want to give him a title. To the fiancé of my daughter, I grant him the title Tenshi no Raijin, named after the god of lightning, in honor of that amazing storm jutsu he used. In the audience, Tsunade beamed at her down brat with pride in her eyes. Internally, she convinced herself that Hanzo was much stronger when the 3 Sannin fought him, but she was still proud of her brat. The people of Kumo considered this a great honor after such an amazing display. Ruto's girls could care less, they just wanted to see him back on his feet, and Atsui was crying passionate tears of flaming passion. Ruto recovered without much incident after the antidote kicked in and joined Hanzo at the compound. Turns out that when you fight with a man like Hanzo, drinks follow said fight. Hanzo did everything he could to get the kid drunk, but it wasn't until Naruto convinced Hikari to show him how to shut off his immunity that it was even a contest. Naruto laughed raucously as Amy hid her head in her hands, full of shame due to the drunk Hanzo telling old war stories. The slurred stories kept Naruto and the others entertained well into the night. Hanzo left to head back to Amiga Corps 2 days later and left Amy in Rudo's care. Amy learned quickly how to fit into the rowdy house of Makis or Uzumakis or whatever they are called. She was insanely jealous of Samui and Mabui sleeping in the same room as Naruto, but she accepted that all good things come with time. Indeed, they did come in time for the Ame Kunoichi, and she never regretted her decision. Konoha, Uchiha compound, the prince of the Uchiha clan was in a foul mood. Yes, a foul mood. Uchihas don't get depressed, Uchihas don't cry, Uchihas aren't like the rest of those sniveling whiners. However, if Sasuke saw a qualified psychiatrist for once in his life, they would say that he was clinically depressed, and for a good reason. For the past couple months, Sasuke has continued to push down his emotions in order to live up to his father's expectations. Each time the memory of his mother and sisters surfaced, he forced it down with sheer rage. This supremely unhealthy practice had forced him to develop outlets that were more girls were than happy to oblige. Sakura and Ino had been there for him and offered their bodies to him, so he accepted in their offers. Rough, hateful and rage-induced sexual release was Sasuke's preference, and the 2 whores should be grateful to assist the Uchiha heir. It didn't matter that they cried afterward or if they asked him to be nicer, he just needed his release. His father told him it was his duty to rebuild the might of the Uchiha, and Sasuke's one remaining, pure emotion was to be there for his father. On this night, Sasuke left the 2 in bed and was out venting some frustration on the training ground of the Uchiha clan. He was venting his anger with fire and steel, as all true Uchiha do. Thoughts of his mother and sisters haunted him, and the repeated thoughts filled him with rage. The rage fed the curse mark kept him focused on his losses, and kept the cycle going. In his mind, Orochimaru was to blame for everything since Suna had already been destroyed and conquered. Suddenly, 4 ninjas wearing the Ado uniforms appeared around the Uchiha. Sasuke saw them and smirked, thinking that he could easily take these intruders and force them to tell where Orochimaru was. He took a battle-ready stance, but the blue-haired one decided to speak. "All right, kid, Orochimaru sent us here to collect you. Are you going to come willingly?" The blue-haired Kunoichi said. "Where is Orochimaru? I need to kill the snake bastard and avenge my clan." Sasuke snarled. A creepy ninja that was slightly hunchbacked spoke. "Will you look at this kid? He thinks he can kill Orochimaru-sama, what a joke." Another voice came from the hunchback's back. Can you believe it, Sakon? This silly Wickle Jonin thinks he can do anything to our master, pathetic. Sasuke flared his chakra and darted forward. He engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the blue kunoichi. She repelled his attacks easily and stabbed him in the arm with a pink crystal. Sasuke jumped back and launched a mythical fire flower jutsu at the group of shinobi. They scattered. Guren, we are drawing too much attention, we need to grab him and get out of here. One of them said. Sasuke noted he was the fat one. Shut up, fatty. Don't say my damn name in this pathetic village. The now known Guren said. At that time, the 4 Oto shinobi were surrounded by Rude and Anbu forces. They cursed as they realized their predicament. Fugaku stepped forward from behind some of his forces. You have 2 options, Oto Nin. You will submit yourselves for interrogation, or you will die here today. Fugaku snarled at the group. Leave it to that arrogant snake to think I would just let him take my son. I will get my revenge. The Oto group exchanged looks and attempted to escape. They used sunshine in various directions and tried to make a break for it. The Anbu forces divided up and gave chase. The chase lasted for 30 minutes, and it resulted with 1 dead and 2 subdued Oto ninja. Unfortunately, the kunoichi with blue hair escaped, which enraged Fugaku, and he took it out on his new captives. Plans for Wave. After Hanzo left and Amy got settled into the Maki compound, Naruto was called to Ai's office. In his office, Ai and his mother told him that he was to become the emissary to Wave Country on behalf of Uzushio and Kumo. Since Wave is now linked to the Land of Fire, they each worried about what would happen to Wave once it was discovered to be an ally of the 2 nations. They told Naruto to take Rias and return to Wave to form recommendations for defense improvement and seal application. They each gave Naruto a scroll on behalf of Kumo and Uzushio to deliver to Tsunami. 2 days later, Rudo and Rias landed in Wave where they were welcomed with open arms. The people of Wave offered a variety of fish snacks to Virginia, remembering her as the summon of their hero. Virginia accepted the snacks greedily and Rudo let her enjoy the impromptu feast as he walked to Tsunami's house alongside Rias. Ruto smiled beneath his mask at Rias' enthusiasm and excitement as they made the walk. The girl had taken a while to recover from her traumatic experience with Gato, and it was refreshing to know that the chakra dyed, sun-kissed blonde hair signified Rias turning over a new leaf in her life. The duo made it to the first step on Tsunami's porch when a blur rocketed from somewhere in the yard and tackled Rudo to the ground, which Rudo let happen for fear of the boy hurting himself. Ruto rolled on the ground with an excited Inari and played with him for a couple minutes. The boy was completely different from the downtrodden boy that Rudo met in the Raikage's office, and it brought a sincere joy to his heart. Rias watched the display of childish roughhousing alongside Tsunami from the porch, each woman wearing a massive smile on her face. Ruto-kun, why don't you collect that little mudball there and rinse him off in the ocean for me before you come inside? Tsunami called out melodically as she leaned against a support beam on the porch. Sure thing, Tsunami-chan. Ruto answered as he tossed Inari into a particularly muddy spot in the yard before scooping the giggling boy into his arms and dashing toward the ocean. The 2 ladies watched wistfully as Ruto carried the squirming child and jumped high into the sky before doing a can opener into the ocean. Seconds later, Inari squealed happily as Rudo washed the mud off of himself and the growing child. Rias noted the look on Tsunami's face and couldn't help but harbor similar feelings. He is quite the guy, eh? Tsunami dono? Rias asked in an insinuating tone. Tsunami's crossed arms tightened a smidgen as she reflexively stiffened at being caught. She relented and sighed, yes, Rias-chan, and no need for the honorifics. Ruto-kun is quite the man, and watching how he played with Inari, well, it would be enough to make any widow give in to wishful thinking. Rias smirked, oh, I don't know about wishful. If you ask me, I think it is more than realistic. He won't drop everything and move here, but if you're okay with an absentee father with multiple future wives and lovers that is on a quest to change the world, then I think he is just the guy you're looking for. Tsunami spit out the sip of tea that just reached her lips before squealing, Rias-chan. Hee, sorry, I couldn't stop myself. He has that particular effect on the women in his life. I will say this, if you love him, he won't refuse you anything. The Uzumaki clan needs to be rebuilt and Lady Kushina is struggling to talk to him about what will be necessary. Tsunami cocked an eyebrow and leaned toward Rias, and his eyes remained fixed on Inari frolicking in the ocean with Ruto. Please explain. Rias realized she may have overstepped and backpedaled a bit. Sorry, in due time. It isn't my place to tell. Let's just say our blonde hero will be busy. If you think he is the man for you and you don't mind sharing, go for it. Tsunami saw Rudo carrying a soaked Inari back to the house and decided to shelve the talk for later. This isn't over, young lady. Rias winked before walking off of the porch and meeting the duo in front of the porch. Tsunami watched Rudo use some wind jutsu, or whatever the shinobi called it, to dry Inari off rapidly. The child squealed happily at the sensation before Rudo set him down and he gave his mother a big hug. Kachan! Rudo is back. The grin Inari was wearing was splitting his face and it filled Tsunami's heart with a warm tingly feeling. Indeed, Inari-chan, he is. Now, Rudo-kun, to what do we owe the pleasure? Tsunami asked as she remained leaned against the post of the porch. Ruto looked up and gulped at the beautiful, shapely, motherly figure. Tsunami's blue hair was tucked up into a loose ponytail and it framed her heart-shaped face. She was wearing a white tank top and blue jeans that hugged her shapely figure. Hikari snickered at his reaction from inside the seal and caused him to blush further beneath his mask. Tsunami-san, Lady Shina and the Refuge have nominated me as the emissary to Wave Country and we wish to offer our input into the rebuilding of Wave. Sadly, your relationship to us may have implications for Wave's future and we want to help prepare you and the people of this beautiful country. He replied professionally. Tsunami frowned slightly at the san honorific attached to her name but realized that it was because Rudo was in his professional mode. Very well, Rudo-kun, please come in and we can discuss things. Tsunami didn't let her title as daimyo get to her head. She still managed her kitchen and prepared the tea before she dismissed 2 attendants that were assigned to aid her in her duties. She served the tea to her guests and watched as Rudo casually flipped through a couple hand signs before placing his palms on the wall of the house. She watched blue flickers of light race around her house before the whole house was encompassed in the bluish light. The light snuffed itself out of existence and Rudo removed his mask before he sighed contentedly and began to sip on the tea. Once again, a fierce blush found its way to Tsunami's cheeks as she took in the cute, yet manly, face of Naruto. Naruto set his cup down and relaxed back into the wooden chair. Okay, Tsunami-san, I am here to introduce myself as the emissary to Kumo and Uzushio. The rebuilding of Uzu is nearly complete and Kumo intends to use Uzu as an intermediary. What you don't know is that this will draw attention from people around the nations, especially once they figure out Uzushio has been rebuilt. Before anybody can take advantage of you, the Refuge and my mother asked me to come here and help you iron out some basic security measures. Well, I appreciate that, Naruto-kun, but could you please drop the sand stuff? I am new to this daimyo business, and I do not wish for the formality when it is just us. As for the unwanted attention, could you explain that to me? Naruto smiled at the lovely woman across the table. Sure thing, Tsunami-chan. Well, the history of Uzu and its role in the shinobi world is a long story. After an hour or so of sharing the history of Uzushio, Naruto told Tsunami about how this would draw the attention of the Land of Fire and other unsavory figures. He explained how it would get worse once the world knew his family's true identity, especially if they were able to link it to the invasion of Konoha. He had to explain the invasion of Konoha to Tsunami, which included the story of his childhood to justify Kumo's role in the invasion. Tsunami paid rapt attention to Naruto throughout his explanation. During the story of his childhood, she couldn't stop the hand that shot across the table to offer her love and concern as she placed it on his much larger hand. To her delight, Naruto's hand shifted naturally and accepted her dainty hand. She continued to listen as their fingers intertwined and Naruto's thumb rubbed affectionately across the top of her hand. Thank you for sharing your story with me, Naruto-kun. That explains a lot and I will convene the newly elected Wave Council to share your concerns with them. Will you be staying with us in the meantime? If you will have us, we would love to accept your hospitality. Naruto replied naturally. Naruto spent 3 weeks in Wave helping to plan out Wave's defenses. One of the first things he did was to place screening seals on the bridge. Dual guard shacks were also built on each end of the bridge for added security and many plans were formed. The biggest project was setting up barriers around the ports, around each village on the island and any important area Tsunami designated. The Refuge offered his help rebuilding Wave and he signed a 3-year contract to hire Kumo shinobi for security. 20 Kumo shinobi would rotate through security duties and offer their assistance in rebuilding Wave as they were stationed there. In addition, a port would be built on the northwest side of the island for Kumo and Uzu ships to use exclusively. They would use this new location to import goods from Kumo, allow for transportation of Kaminari no Kuni civilians and shinobi and also allow for a direct link to Uzushio. This port would have a higher security level than the ports near the Land of Fire and Tsunami would be responsible for screening the dock workers. I didn't want to broadcast Kumo's involvement in the island nation to Fire Country and Tsunami agreed to that. A long-term plan was also laid out to establish a land bridge with a 2-way train to link Uzushio to Wave's main island. This would take nearly a decade to complete in both nations. Needed to secure funding, but the idea was to incorporate Wave into the new Uzu. Kazuna was jumping at the chance to one-up his previous creation, and he was already drawing out blueprints. Naruto spent many nights sipping sake with him as he asked questions on the capabilities of shinobi and how they could assist with the bridge's construction. The young blonde hero created hundreds of his clones every day that ran around the island helping people. It was an amazing workforce and only served to secure his title as the hero of Wave. Every person in Wave was grateful for him and they gave him their trust readily. In return, Naruto asked for their discretion when talking about him in public. During a town hall, Rudo revealed how people were likely to come to Wave and probe for information. He discussed the implications of information being revealed too soon and asked for their discretion, which they readily agreed to. During that town hall, Rudo told them that Kumo would fund a new school on the island and that applications for the Ninja Academy would be accepted. It wasn't disclosed where the Ninja Academy would be, only that their children would be safe for the duration of their ninja education. Many of the poor citizens saw this as a way to earn a better living and were excited to send their children, but they were forced to rethink things when Naruto laid out the standards for acceptance into the academy. Uzu Academy standards were high, and the children of Wave would need substantial supplementary education before they could realistically begin attending Uzu's Shinobi Academy. Inari was the first Wave Islander to be accepted into the Uzu Academy, and he would start in the first year there in a couple months. Naruto spent a couple hours screening children that wished to apply along with a couple of adults that wanted training to protect their homeland. Rather than send the adults to Uzu, Naruto informed them that the shinobi stationed in Wave will conduct classes for the populace. Naruto found out that day that a large number of Wave citizens would be attending the public classes because they had all resolved never to let themselves be pushed around again. For all of the assistance, Wave Country agreed to pay back Kumo and Uzu over the next 20 years. Uzu's name was not listed on the contract because Rudo didn't trust all of the new counselors on the Wave Council, but if chakra was applied to the seal on the bottom of the original copy, then Uzu's name could be seen. This was a simple nation that was shielded from the shinobi world from the most part, and Rudo knew that shinobi spies would set their sights on Wave soon. This small and young nation wasn't ready to defend itself against such threats, so Naruto knew that it was his duty to protect Uzu's secrets and interest. Overall, the council would do anything within reason that Kumo requested, and in return Kumo provided assistance and security. Throughout the weeks, Tsunami grew closer to Naruto, and she grew more irritated with her father for taking so much of Naruto's time. She shooed Kazuna off by sending him to the town for a grocery run in order to get some alone time with our intrepid blonde. Tsunami had hesitated to reveal her feelings to Naruto, but he hadn't missed the signals. With 5 days left in his planned stay in Wave, Tsunami finally worked up the courage to make her move. She began by sending Inari to a friend's house, giving her father money to go to the bars, bribing Rias and cooking a wonderful meal. Naruto returned to the house that night to find it empty with the table set for two and lit with candles. He smiled as Tsunami welcomed him home with a hug. His smile grew when he saw the candlelit table set for two and Hikari closed the connection to give him some privacy. After a shower and a quick change of clothes, Naruto joined Tsunami in the kitchen, ignored her protests and proceeded to help her finish dinner. The time in the kitchen was flirty with many brushings of fingers on shoulders and waistlines, soft touches that insinuated far more than either would say out loud. Many quick and flirty glances that served to build the sexual tension and brought feelings to the surface. Finally, the two sat down for dinner to relax and a clone brought out the food and wine. After eating, Tsunami grabbed Naruto's hand from across the table and made comments about it being a wonderful night for a walk on the beach. Naruto wasn't completely clueless, so he scooped her up and ran out onto the beach before he set her down. He wrapped a muscular arm over her shoulder and the two walked along the beach while chatting amicably. If you were to ask Tsunami, she felt like a schoolgirl that landed the quarterback since she was so happy inside. Naruto was pleasantly surprised by the feelings of respect and attraction that continued to grow in his heart as he listened to Tsunami speak about her family, country and past. Serious conversation gave way to shameless flirting, flirting led to touching, touching led to kissing, and somehow the two found themselves making out in the ocean. As the waves rolled in, Naruto's thick body sheltered Tsunami from the brunt of their impact as he held her protectively against his chest. The passionate kiss refused to end and was punctuated by gasps of ecstasy or desperate breaths for air. Eventually, Tsunami led Naruto to the beach where Naruto unsealed a blanket and laid it on the soft sand. The two christened their relationship on that blanket, and then in the ocean, and then in the shower, and finally they came to rest that night on Tsunami's bed. The morning sun peeked over the ocean the next day and its brilliant light snuck through Tsunami's window and into her eyes. She cracked her eyes open and thanked Kami for a wonderful dream. She snuggled into an unfamiliar warmth before fully opening her eyes and craning her head up to look at what she was resting on. The familiar shaggy blonde locks and cute whisker marks on a handsome face answered her. She refused to get up and snuggled further into Naruto's chest, thanking Kami that last night was real. She remained in a half-asleep and content state until she heard the door to the house crash open and Inari's voice filled the house. The excited boy ran straight to his mother's room since he didn't see her in the kitchen or outside. Inari froze when he opened the door to his mother's room and saw Naruto with a deer in the headlights look on his face while holding his clothes. His mother was wrapped in her bedsheets and blushing furiously while Inari was confused. Eventually, the child came to a wishful conclusion and ran up to a stunned and mostly naked Naruto and hugged his leg. Naruto sputtered and didn't know what to do when Inari asked if this meant that Naruto was going to be his new dad. Tsunami made eye contact with Naruto and the two broke out in smiles. Naruto didn't feel like ruining it for Inari and just said that he would be around from time to time. The little boy was so excited that the two couldn't help but smiled and sigh contentedly as the boy jumped on the bed. The rest of the week was a lover's vacation for Naruto with only one minor distractions. He knew he would have some explaining to do when he returned to Kumo, but he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. Rias was torn due to jealousy because Naruto hadn't touched her since he rescued her. She saw the love and compassion he offered freely to Tsunami and wanted nothing more than that. She fell into a slight depression thinking that Naruto didn't want damaged goods since she was soiled by the likes of Gato. For the last week, she started avoiding Naruto, especially when he was around Tsunami. Naruto noticed the strange behavior from his clan member and after a nudge from Tsunami he went to find her. She was sitting on the dock at the water's edge with her feet kicking idly in the water. He sat down next to her and threw an arm around her shoulder. "You want to talk about it, cuz?" He opened up casually. Rias initially stiffened at the contact but was unable to stop herself from leaning into his warmth. She sighed, "I don't know, Ruto. I don't know what or how I'm supposed to feel." Naruto was confused but he pulled her closer and leaned his head on hers. "Okay, we can just sit here then and enjoy the sunset. I want you to know that I care about you, and you will always be family." Rias whimpered as a tear fell from her eye. "Is that all I will ever be to you?" At Naruto's confused feel and grunt, she elaborated. "I don't know if you know this but each of your adopted sisters loves you. Not just like a brother, but actual love. Tuya is really the only one that sees you like a true brother because you two grew up together. Even she would be willing to give up Atsui if it meant she could share your love." Naruto gasped at that. He would never want that. "Look, Rias, I don't want Tuya to break up something good. I know that mom talked about the purity of the Uzumaki bloodlines, and I am coming around to the idea, but I would never want to stop you girls from finding true love." Rias turned her head and put both her hands on Naruto's cheeks before forcing him to look her in the eye. "What if my true love is you?" Naruto's deep azure blue softened as he processed the thinly veiled tears and sense of desperation, and a contemplative look fixed itself on his face. "Maybe now, but what if you find a great guy in the future? You will always be someone special to me, but I don't want you to close your heart to others. I already have more women than I deserve." Rias' tone gained a ferocity that caught Naruto off guard. "Isn't that for us girls to decide? You don't know what a good guy you are, Ruto-kun. You saved me when I was broken by Gato, and you gave me a home and a family. You are something truly unique in this world and I would be happy with a small piece of your heart. Please, Ruto." Rias' eyes glistened with unfallen tears in the sunset and her face looked like the vision of beauty. Naruto leaned forward and placed a chaste kiss on her lips before tenderly kissing her forehead. He smiled at her as expression remained frozen in surprise. "I don't know where this will go from here, but I want you to know you are already in my heart, Rias-chan, and you are not broken. That being said, I only have a couple days left with Tsunami-chan and I don't want to be disrespectful to her in her own house. For now, can you wait until we get home?" Rias smiled beautifully at him and replaced her head on his shoulder. The two watched the sunset over the ocean horizon and enjoyed the beauty of the land of waves. Tsunami saw the two out of the kitchen window and a contented smile fixed itself on her face. She thought she would be more jealous seeing Naruto with another woman after claiming him, but it surprisingly didn't bother her. She continued to watch Naruto display a love and tenderness that one wouldn't expect from such a big and powerful man until she retired to the living room to enjoy the fire and a bottle of sake. 1 year later, the year passed in a flash for the Maki, Uchi-Maki and other shinobi that left Konoha. If one were to take a peek at the world news, it may look something like this. The Maki clan started selling seals in bulk outside of Kumo. The Maki clan accepted sealing contracts in countries allied to Kumo, which included Wave, Kiri, and Ame. They had been stonewalling requests from Konoha but have provided services to the fire daimyo at a premium price. With the growth of the clan and the increased proficiency at Kumo's overall fuinjutsu, mass production of seals became Kumo's main export. They used Wave Country as a distribution point for Kiri and Konoha while they set up a trading post on Kumo's border with Iwa. The Maki Sealing Corporation used Wave because Tsunami had taken over the remnants of Gato shipping, and Wave Country was at a perfect spot in the elemental ocean since it linked Kiri, Uzushio, Kumo, and Fire Country. Wave Country accepted Kumo's aid in setting up a shinobi and samurai presence on the island nation due to the increased attention the country was getting. A small side note for Wave Country: the Maki family agreed to let Naruto fulfill Tsunami's request. After a couple passion-filled nights during Naruto's travels, Tsunami got her wish. Last month, Tsunami popped out a blonde baby with blue tips on his hair, and Tsunami named him Kaisa. Inari was overjoyed and has insisted on calling Naruto his Two-san since then. Naruto stopped by Wave every now and then, but the agreement with Tsunami was that she would be primarily responsible for raising the child. Naruto cared for her, but he had his duties to Kumo, Uzu and Wave that required him to stay on his current path. The main seals that the Maki Corporation sold were quality-of-life seals, such as deployable barrier seals that were often equipped in caravans. With one seal, the caravan could erect a barrier that lasted 24 hours, and the barrier automatically sent out an SOS to the nearest seal link. The daimyo of each nation were keenly interested in these, and they offered samurai response squads to cut down on highway crimes and bandits. Over time, these reforms were effective at reducing crime like highway robbery, which encouraged travel and stimulated the economy, which in turn made the daimyos richer. Another seal that sold like hotcakes was the anti-rape seal that Naruto and Kushina developed. This was a popular seal in every hidden village, and civilians around the elemental nations began keeping these on their person. The seal became a standard issue for every Kumo kunoichi due to its high success rate, and even more praise and notoriety was given to Rudo Maki. When the seals were activated by a small, civilian-level burst of chakra, the seal would emit an electric shock strong enough to incapacitate most attackers. If the seal were activated a second time, then a barrier would pop up around the distressed individual. The Makis were happy to help protect the women of the world from the most heinous act, and it brought international fame to the family. Other news in the Maki clan was the announcement of 4 marriages for the sole male of the clan, Rudo Maki. His fiancées were Mabui, Samui, Amy, and Itachi, whose public alias was Chi. I believe that last name calls for a flashback no jutsu. Flashback: Itachi was getting incorporated into Kumo's force, and she was widely accepted for her prowess as one of Kumo's top kunoichi. She had already eclipsed Anko, and she was in line to challenge Yugito ni. Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan may have been a contributing factor to her success, but she did not overuse the Dujutsu. Tsunade was monitoring her diminishing eyesight and had warned her multiple times about the risks of overuse. The plan for now, thanks to intelligence from Mikoto, was for her and Itachi to swap eyes soon. Anyway, Itachi was scheduled for a ranked match against Yugito ni, and she requested Naruto's aid in preparing for the match. On an informational note, Kumo developed a ranking system for its Chunin and Jonin shinobi. Once a month, those of 2 ranks lower could issue challenges to advance their overall rank in Kumo. I created this system to promote friendly competition and provide quality entertainment to the people of Kumo. The main rule for these matches was no killing to ensure that the competition remained positive rather than a tool for grudge matches. Due to the security seals, Kumo hasn't had to worry about spies, so I lets the people enjoy weekly exhibition matches at the stadium. It was so popular that people began making trips from the Lightning Capital if the event card were interesting enough. The number 1 spot belongs to Killer Bee still, since I deemed it fair for him to use Juki. Ruto then countered by saying he should be able to use his Fuin Jutsu in matches, but I overruled him on that. Rudo occupied the number 2 spot and has fended off 12 challengers in the last year alone. Everyone wanted to take a shot at Rudo after his exhibition match with Hanzo to see how they stacked up and claimed that they fought against the Tenshi no Raijin. One day, around 4 months after arriving in Kumo and spending a significant portion of her free time at the Maki compound, Itachi decided to be more direct with Naruto. After a rigorous training session, the two were relaxing in the private onsen with some sake. A couple saucers in, a blushing Itachi used her liquid courage to bring up an old conversation. "Ano, Rudo-kun, do you happen to remember the last conversation we had before you fled from Konoha?" Itachi asked in a sheepish tone that was totally foreign to the normally composed Uchiha girl. Naruto pondered it for a little bit before he recalled the reminder that the girls gave him a couple months back. "Yeah, Itachi, I do. You will never know how much your friendship meant to me back then. And did you just ano me?" Itachi's blush deepened and she bought time by sipping more sake from her saucer. "Yeah, well, what do you think about it?" Now it was Naruto's turn to take an extra long sip of sake. "Well, I guess I would rather ask you why you took it so seriously?" I have nothing against you, Itachi, you are a gorgeous and powerful kunoichi. I figured you could have had any man you wanted in the world, so why latch on to a childhood promise and why would you wish to marry me? Itachi was sporting a blush that put the Hyugas to shame. I guess it was because you were the first boy I ever liked. Then, when you said it, you had the biggest and most genuine smile on your face and it kind of got stuck in my memory. Whenever I thought about my future, you were the one that popped into my fantasies. My mom always shared Kushina's letters with me, so I kinda kept tabs on you. Naruto raised an eyebrow. The beautiful and proud Itachi Uchiha kept tabs on little ol' me? Yeah, well, don't let it get to your head, baka. After you left, I graduated the following year and then I was in Onbu 2 years later. I stayed so busy that I never made time for love, but when I thought about it, your face and smile would always pop into my head. When my fool of a father promised me to the Hyuga, it made me sick, and your face was the one I thought of. Well, thank you, sweetheart. That is sweet and I appreciate the sentiment. If I were to ask you what in the last 6 months confirmed your feelings, what would you say? Itachi sighed. What is this, Rudo, 20 questions? Naruto held his hands up in mock defense. No. Sigh, I just have 3 fiancés already, and that's not including Hikari-chan. Why would you want to share me when you could have any guy in Kumo? Itachi was getting frustrated now, so she crossed the onsen and pinned Naruto in with both arms and looked him straight in the eye. The coal-black eyes held a fragility that Naruto thought was foreign to the Uchiha. As black met azure blue, Naruto felt the now familiar feeling of souls linking up. Itachi kept creeping her face closer to his in a sensually slow manner, before she whispered. What if I don't want any guy in Kumo? What if I only want you, Rudo-kun? By the time Itachi finished asking the question, Itachi's lips were a mere inch from his and her hot breath crashed upon his whisker marks in a sensual manner. Her breath smelled like cinnamon and her hair carried a cherry scent with it. Naruto decided to give her his answer with a tentative kiss to her lips. It started slowly, with just the soft sensation of moist lips, then a small soft tongue licked his top lip, followed by a small nibble to his bottom lip. Naruto ceased all attempts to resist, and Itachi placed herself in Naruto's lap, barely conscious of the rod that was now placed in between their two bodies. Inside the seal, Hikari was enjoying the enhanced link. She bore no love for the Uchiha clan in general, but this one was okay. This one felt different in a gentler way, like the typical taint around the Uchiha soul was absent. She decided that this girl would have a chance to earn her trust and a shot at a spot in the family. End of flashback. Since the initial makeout session, the girls had approved of Itachi and given their blessing. After Rudo officially proposed to Samui and Mabui, he decided that he would extend the same offer to Itachi. Naruto approached Mikado over dinner and Mikoto and Kushina squealed like schoolgirls when their master plan came together. Naruto then took Itachi up to his favorite spot in Kumo, the roof of the Refuge Tower, and treated her to chocolate strawberries, stargazing and a fire ruby ring. The delicate mask that Itachi usually wore cracked completely and Naruto got a true glimpse of the beautiful and kind girl he remembered as a kid. The proposal to Itachi brought her to tears of happiness as her visage was framed by the sun setting over the clouds and mountains of Kumo. After she said yes and accepted the ring, Itachi snuggled into Naruto and enjoyed the beautiful scene. Michelangelo would have been entirely incapable of depicting the beauty of Mother Nature as the Maki and Uchimaki cuddled atop the Reikuge's tower. That night was the first night that Itachi shared a bed with Naruto. It was the first night that she became one with a man, and it was the first night of her life where she felt complete. Through liberal use of shadow clones, Naruto has been able to keep his girls happy. When Naruto is in town, the girls agreed to share the real him equally, but if they were being honest, cuddling with shadow clones wasn't so bad. The clones were so eager to please and they somehow possessed Naruto's warmth and ability to transition into their Hanyu forms. At nighttime, Rudo became a cuddle pillow to every girl in the house, yes, even Kin, Rias, and Karen. There were even nights that Kushina wanted to cuddle into the softness of her Sochi's tails, so Rudo became accustomed to sending shadow clones in to cuddle with each girl every night he was in town. Outside of Naruto's love life, there have been a couple of international events worth reporting. First was the attack by a rogue group of ninjas on Takigakure. There were nearly 50% civilian casualties and over 80% shinobi casualties in Taki. Evidently, the attack force was led by one of their rogue ninjas, Kakazu, and he was accompanied by Kisame Hoshigaki, Hidan the Jashinist and multiple unidentified shinobi. The town was sacked and looted and their Jinchuriki is unaccounted for. The only information to come out of this attack was that Kakuzu and Kisame were wearing black cloaks with red clouds, which incensed Nagato, Konan, and Yahiko. Suna is no more. After the initial attack, The civilian population was evacuated, and the town has turned into a shinobi outpost. Most people speculate that Konoha is manning Suna, but the desert makes it hard to get information out. The city has been on lockdown and Konoha has been taking all mission requests from Kaze no Kuni as a guise of recompense for the invasion. The militant nature of Konoha is concerning Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri, but since their takeover could be seen as justified, nobody has done anything official about it. On top of Suna, Konoha has attempted to invade Odogakure, but the village has proven difficult to find and root out. The snake Sanin Orochimaru is still on the loose and Fugaku is still hell-bent on getting revenge, an ambition shared by his son. Speaking of Fugaku, he has taken multiple wives and concubines to restore the Uchiha clan. His primary wife was Mabuki Haruno, who helps him control the civilian side of the council. The man has lost support on the shinobi side of the council, but nobody stands in open defiance of him for fear of retaliation. The Hyuga clan had almost completely fallen from grace. Their old rivals, the Uchiha, used legislative measures to ensure that they would never rise in defiance. Fugaku worked with the elders to ensure that clan customs would be honored, and in return Fugaku got leniency from the Hyuga along with their political influence. Hinata had recovered from her beating at the hands of Tuya and she purged all emotion following the deaths of her mother and sister. She had turned into the female version of her father and was set to marry her cousin Neji in order to maintain the purity of the Byakugan. In Uzushio, the two Hyuga stowaways were working to establish themselves on the island. Hanabi trained alongside Gaara, Tamari, Kankuro and a number of other shinobi that had come to the island recently. The Shinobi Academy was already up and running that everyone on the island attended 2 days a week for intro to Fuinjutsu. Even if they weren't Uzumakas by blood, the people of Uzushio would honor their traditions and gain a mastery over Fuinjutsu that dwarfed modern standards. The Sand siblings were devastated when they heard about the fall of their home, but they were not surprised. Suna had committed over half of its shinobi force to the invasion of Konoha and it failed. Their sensei Baki had died in order to get a message to them that they should not return to the village anytime soon, which is why they sought shelter on Uzu. They were committing themselves to getting stronger in order to carry on the traditions and legacy of Suna. Jiraiya's report: Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin, was the last remaining Sannin loyal to Konoha. He didn't much like serving Fugaku, but he believed in serving Konoha and right now his village needed him. Too much was changing on the world stage and most of it didn't bode well for Konoha. He was returning from a round of information gathering with his spy network and he knew that the Hokage wasn't going to like his most recent news. So, Jiraiya did what he always did when he had bad news to deliver: he stalled and went to peep at the hot springs. After a good amount of research and a healthy beating, Jiraiya brushed the dust off his haori and proceeded to the Hokage's office. One might be inclined to ask how a legendary Sannin known for his information-gathering prowess repeatedly gets caught peeking at women in the hot springs. If one forced an answer, Jiraiya would tell them that he deserves it for all of his failures in life. That, and it was totally awesome getting beaten by nude or scantily clad women. Regardless, the Toad Sage had a report to give, and he had stalled long enough. Fugaku was mulling over recent developments in his office. Black Zetsu had detached from him a year ago and latched onto a white Zetsu in order to be his eyes in the field. There were an increasing number of cities that Zetsu could no longer enter without being discovered, which was greatly hindering the plant's information gathering. He was waiting on a report from Jiraiya to supplement his information and get a clearer picture of what exactly was going on in the elemental nations. As Fugaku was thinking about it, the long mane of white hair appeared on his windowsill. Instead of entering, Jiraiya reclined into the windowsill, and decided to give his report from there. He had an image to maintain, so he kept his tone casual yet professional. The Great Toad Sage reporting in, Hokage-sama. Fugaku turned and locked eyes with Jiraiya. I was expecting you here yesterday, but I have already received reports of your beating at the bathhouses, so no need for an excuse. Let's hear your report. Not good, I'm afraid. I have failed to infiltrate Kumo multiple times. Each time I enter, I am discovered almost immediately and without fail. Based on that, I am guessing that my chakra signature is flagged and the only reason I am not dead or imprisoned is my Sannin status. The last attempt caused Kirinji to revoke my traveling rights in Kaminari no Kuni, which means if I am caught again, I will not be spared. Fugaku growled at this. How have they been able to reinforce their security so much in just 10 years? It is truly unbelievable what the Maki clan has done for that wretched nation. Well, you hit the nail on the head. During my travels through the towns of Lightning Country, I can tell you that each town is experiencing unprecedented growth and development. It used to be a barren landscape, but the land is developed now and tamed by earth jutsu. I saw multiple ninjas assisting everyday people with jutsus and the spread of seals throughout the country is fascinating. At this time, Kumo is Konoha's greatest threat, and it is not even a close contest. Fugaku sighed and rested his head on his hands. Yes, well, the non-aggression pact is holding, and they even helped us recover from the invasion. For now, they do not see us as a threat. What of the other countries? Well, I can confirm that Ame allied with Kumo via a political marriage of Hanzo's daughter to Rudo Maki. That land was nearly impossible to infiltrate before, and it appears that Kumo shared its defensive seals with Ame. Same story for Wave and Kiri, although many islands in Mizu no Kuni do not have such protections. Tell me of Kiri, any news on the whereabouts of the Rakubi or Sanbi? What of their rebuilding efforts? This is the bad news. No new news on the Jinchuriki. It appears the Rakubi is still roaming throughout water country because it is not inside Kiri. Kiri appears to be getting substantial outside support in their rebuilding efforts. Most of that support is funneled through the Land of Waves, but there are whispers about Uzushio being rebuilt. That island is locked down tighter than a Princess Chastity though, and I have had nobody capable of infiltrating the island. Then how did you hear of Uzu being rebuilt? Fugaku asked, clearly frustrated. Drunken sailors at a bar in water country. I tried probing further, but they didn't have any more information than that. It does merit looking into, and it begs the question of why an old ally wouldn't contact us, Jiraiya said in his thinking pose. Very well, we will look into that further and discuss it at a later date. What of Iwa's Jinchuriki? Fugaku's tone sounded hopeful for a bit of positive news. Both of them are still roaming and are only protected by a squad of Jonin apiece. Han is in some mountain retreats, still haven't pinpointed him, but Roshi is up in the volcano. The old bastard is constantly hanging around lava, which would make him a real threat, even to your elite band of merry men. Fugaku let that stir around in his mind for a while. The volcano was in the heart of Iwa, and it wasn't far from Iwagakure, so reinforcements would be close by. Maybe a more underhanded approach could be used? Thought Fugaku. He seemed to make up his mind before he asked his next question. What of the Jonin exams coming up in Iwa? Jiraiya seemed to perk up, since he actually had information on this topic. Well, it appears like Kumo has committed to sending a couple teams. Any guess which team will win it? Fugaku growled, the Divine Bolts with Rudo Maki. Yup, and that's not all. That Tsuchikage's granddaughter will be taking part as well. Rumors say that a team or two from Kiri will also take part, which would be interesting to see the caliber of shinobi coming from that war. Fugaku interlocked his fingers. It appears that we will need to send a team or two to represent. What happened to Tsunade? I find her betrayal in our time of need truly infuriating. Jiraiya looked hesitant to share the information, but at a stern look from Fugaku, he relented. Tsunade is indeed in Kumo. I don't know much more than that, but there were rumors of her helping many people from Kumo. If she is there, then Shizune Kaido is there with her. Fugaku growled, Kumo really does have their hands in everything. While we cannot afford to take direct action, I believe it is time for us to put our missing nin to the use, and these Jonin exams provide an opportunity. Who is your target? Jiraiya asked with a mix of interest and concern. Do not worry about such things, Jiraiya. Any updates on Otto? The old snake is as slippery as ever. We have taken out a couple bases and found a few more deserted ones. The daimyo of the land of rice paddies has denounced Orochimaru and give us passage on his lands. Us and Kumo, it would seem. What is Kumo's connection to that pathetic country? Fugaku asked. Well, the Divine Bolts helped him out of a jam before our Chunin exam fiasco. Then he was here during the finals and saw their performance, so he has been using them for most of his missions. Very well, Jiraiya, enjoy a week off, then get back out into the field. I want you to focus on Iwa and Uzu, we may be able to use those two to our advantage. Jonin exams. Naruto used the past year to further commit himself to his duties as the Raikage's apprentice and successor. He had finally attained the Lightning Armor Stage 3 and was working on gaining mastery over that. At this point, he could only maintain the Stage 3 armor for a couple minutes, which wouldn't be enough in a real fight. I was proud of Naruto and the good he did for the people of Kumo. The kid worked tirelessly and never quit once he set his mind to something. I had Naruto create a blood clone that helped him with his daily duties and worked from a desk in his office. Naruto's blood clone was the solution for how to train in the political arts and do field missions at the same time. Naruto's shadow clones operated daily to devote himself to gaining mastery over his father's jutsu and clan knowledge. The Namikaze scroll contained an absolute wealth of knowledge and history that Naruto would master for the benefit of his people. Sadly, Kumo spies, and the Lightning Daimyo, had confirmed that the Namikaze fortunes had already been confiscated by the Fire Daimyo since there were no remaining living heirs. This infuriated Naruto and Kushina, but what was done is done. They weren't hurting for money or influence, so they decided to let it go until it was time to crush Konoha. His father's scrolls proved useful in developing Naruto's jutsu and taking them to the next level. The Rasengan on its own was a potent jutsu, but Naruto wouldn't be allowed to use it until they released their identities. That didn't stop Naruto from learning the Rasengan, which was actually a great chakra control exercise. With this in mind, Rudo provided the steps for learning the Rasengan to the members of the Maki clan, I and the Divine Bolts. While it was a family jutsu, Naruto wanted to use it for the benefit of Kumo as a whole. I was given permission to teach it to Jonin level shinobi and above, on the condition that they only use it as a last resort in battle. Luckily for Naruto, most Kumo shinobi struggled to learn the jutsu quickly, so it wasn't commonly used yet. Naruto and Team 12 were called into the Refuge's office along with 2 other Chunin teams of Kumo. Naruto recognized them as kids from 2 years in front of him in the academy. He nodded his head to them, and they bowed in return as a show of respect. Ruto then looked to greet his Refuge and thought, yet again, that it was very awkward to see his blood clone sitting there next to I. Good afternoon Team 12, Team 31 and Team 32. I have called you here today to give you a chance to earn your Jonin promotions. Iwa is hosting the Jonin exams in 1 month and they have extended an invitation to us. Is there anyone here that doesn't believe they are ready to take the exams? We stand ready to prove the might of Kumaga Corps, Refuge-sama. Ruto answered when he saw nobody was going to speak up. Good, you will set out in 3 weeks' time. Ruto, you will be thrown into the grinder again. I will meet you on my training ground in 1 hour. For everyone else, find your Jonin sensei and get your preparations going. I expect many of you to earn your Jonin promotions. Dismissed. 1 hour later, I arrived on his training grounds to see Rudo struggling through his physical workouts. He clearly had upped his weight in resistance seals and was struggling to finish his lunges. I couldn't blame him, knowing Rudo, he was probably pushing the weight and resistance seals to their limit. He watched Rudo get to his goal and collapse to one knee on the ground. Damn bud, what do you have your seals cranked up to? I asked with a hint of taunting in his voice. Ruto was breathing hard. He had been training his body since he left the Refuge's office. He formed a rat seal, and his seals glowed a brilliant blue before dulling once again. As the shirtless boy stood to his feet, I saw that the weight seals were now 10 distinct and thick lines as they faded out. The dull glow of the resistance seals showed the kanji ticking back down to 6, which meant that Rudo had them cranked up past 6. I himself walked around on level 5 resistance and he had yet to push past level 10, which literally felt like moving while buried in a steel wall. Oh, you know. I lost count, I just push chakra into them until I struggle and then I do my workouts. I know I did Dead Man's Climb last week at level 10 resistance and 1,000 pounds on each seal. That was a bitch, Rudo said between pants and gasps of breath. Holy shit bud, remember to take it easy every once in a while. You look buffer than me these days and it's making me look bad, I said with a smirk on his face. Ruto raised an eyebrow at his idol, Refuge, sensei and father figure. Well, maybe we should hit the weights together then. If that doesn't work then maybe you should just hand over the hat, old man, I laughed heartily. In good time, Ruto. I have zero doubts that you will eclipse me. Let this old man pave the way for you a bit more. Now, stand to, it is time to spar. After an hour of I putting Rudo through the ringer, the two were up on top of the Refuge tower and eating some bentos that Rias had prepared. I looked across at the man on his right. Kami never saw fit to bless him with a wife or son, but this man was his. He did this, at least in part. His chest swelled with pride and his heart filled with love, so he thanked Kami for this opportunity. So, sensei, how is the deployment of the communication scrolls going? Ruto asked in between mouthfuls. Brilliantly. The way you and Mabui adapted her instant transportation seal is truly revolutionary. Kirinji sends his regards, and his messengers thank you as well. In battlefield use, it allows for remote deployments and increases efficiency. We need you to complete the tamper-proof seal so that we may give a pair to our allies. I responded. Okay, well that's good to hear. I thought it seemed pretty revolutionary, so Mabui and I spent a whole week on it. She appreciated the time together and I appreciated a week of light training. How are your girls doing? How are Tsunami-chan and little Kaisa? Naruto sighed as he thought about his first son and distant partner. Am I doing the right thing? I always missed my father growing up and when I think about getting Tsunami pregnant, or the prospect of getting my clan sisters pregnant, I just don't know. I looked out over his village and thought about his phrasing for a second. Look bud, there isn't a right answer to this one. Most of the past generations grew up without one or both of their parents. This world is cruel, and power is important to protect the ones you love and to make changes. One thing I can say for sure is that any kid born of you will be strong. More than that though, It is your heart that reaches people. Is that enough to justify denying my children a proper father? Naruto sounded truly pensive and unsure of himself, a rare sight for eye. These women see something special in you, and they want their children to bear that trait. Not to mention that you and Nagato are the last known males of your clan. If your clan sisters, as you called them, get with a non-Uzumaki, then their children will be 1/4 or 1/8 Uzumaki at best. Within a generation or two, the Uzumaki blood probably wouldn't pass one of your clan's bloodlines. If you commit to this though, then you will create a broader generation of Uzumaki that will have far more options while maintaining the clan's bloodlines. You could even add your own bloodline to the clan. Yeah, I guess. I realize that my power is special, I realize that I care for each girl, but when I think about the children are what gives me pause. I slapped him on the back. Look bud, your children will grow up knowing their father was a great man. They will be able to stroll into Kumo and be worshipped as the children of Kumo's Tenchi no Raijin, leader of the divine bolts. You will have no shortage of people that will help you. If you do help father the next Uzumaki generation, they will have a whole island and the people of Kumo to support them. Naruto smiled wistfully at the thought. He loved his raucous clan compound, and he wanted that big family atmosphere for his family as well. He remained quiet and fixed on his thoughts until I spoke again. I know Kaisa is just a baby, but when you go to Wave, what do you see? I asked, hoping that this would drive his point home. Naruto smiled a truly genuine smile. I see Tsunami smiling and happy as she rules over Wave. Inari is such a good big brother and Tazuna doesn't drink as much. The people seem happy to help with the baby too. Well, if it is like that in Wave, where you only visit once or twice a month, what makes you think it wouldn't be even better here or in Uzu? I get your point, too-san. As the words left his mouth, Naruto tried to catch them and swallow them back up, but he couldn't. I heard what Naruto called him and froze. In 10 years, Naruto never once called him father. Rather than pressure Naruto into confirming what he just said, I slung a massive arm over his shoulder and pulled him close. A normal 16-year-old would look like a doll next to I, but Rudo was now a full inch or two taller than him and he was just as big. Therefore, it looked like a proper one-armed man hug. That's when Killer Bee showed up and completely shattered the moment. Yo, not so little Naruto and big brother I have been bored all day so I'm looking to play. What you say, Mr. 9, I could polish you up and give you a shine. B nearly fell off of the roof due to the weird and arrhythmic gyrations of his rap dance. I say you sit your butt down, don't ruin the moment. Too-san and I were looking around, so just sit there and own it. Naruto shot back in rap form. I shook his head. Rudo, bud, I am more than happy for you to call me Too-san, but if you don't cease that incessant rap, I will jump off this tower. B looked at his brother. Come on big bro, don't be a downer, it would be a real shame if you jumped at this tower. Naruto just laughed and slapped I on the back. Come on, old man, let's go get some training in with B before he devolves into speaking in Shakespearean poetry. 3 weeks later, Rudo, Samui, Mabui, Team 31 and Team 32 began their journey to Iwa led by Daru, Shizo, and Matsuki. The Jonin senseis were there more as a formality and extra muscle than as actual senseis. The trek to Iwagakure took 2 days and the group camped out in the Iwa mountains overnight. The 4 male Chunin were extremely jealous of Rudo sleeping in the same tent as Samui and Mabui. If they saw the interior of the Fuinjutsu tent, they would have been even more jealous. The next day the group checked in at the gates of Iwa and Daru was told that Tsukikage wished to meet with the Divine Bolts. Daru told the other 2 teams to get them checked in at the hotel and told them to set standard security. Nobody had forgotten the Konoha treatment and I had cautioned them to watch out. Iwa was always known to be more than a little bit shady. Team 13 was told to enter the Tsukikage's office and Daru led the way in. In a formal and professional manner, the bolts lined up behind their sensei. The Tsukikage had been waiting for this opportunity. The whole world had heard about this team by this point, and he was on that list. He wanted to know more, his council demanded he find out more, but this team projected absolute professionalism and gave nothing away. As Onoki looked over the group, he studied each member intensely and realized that he couldn't sense their chakra signatures at all. On top of that, their gear was all top-notch and streamlined. He didn't see any external pouches other than the Fuinjutsu kits and medical kits. The kunoichi were toned and he could tell without a shadow of a doubt that they were professionals and not some hopeless fangirls. Since he was a closet pervert of an old man, he really appreciated their feminine curves. Based on the giant blonde's cough, he was most likely caught peeking. That brought Onoki's attention to the blonde, the real man of interest and reason he called this team here. The Rudomaki, the Tenchi no Raijin, a teenager that was able to force Hanzo to take him seriously. The 6'3" 225 pound, 6% body fat and totally ripped man. The greatsword peeking over his left shoulder with its eagle pommel head was truly intimidating, especially in combination with the electric blue katana handle on the left hip. Even though he couldn't sense chakra signatures, all of his battle instincts were blaring red warning sirens throughout his body. Cough, cough, you wish to see us, Tsuchikage Dono? Daru asked with boredom laced into his voice. This snapped Onoki from his musings, which took almost a whole minute. Yes, I wish to meet the highly touted Divine Bolts. I must say, Daru-san, your team is most impressive. I do look forward to seeing them perform in the finals. Thank you for the compliment, Tsuchikage Dono. We will be sure not to let you down. Daru replied impassively. Well, there was another reason I wished to invite you here today. Onoki's gaze shifted from Daru to Ruto. I have heard about the high quality of your seals, Maki-san. I have been unable to acquire some of the more advanced seals and the mission requests we submitted were declined. Could you please explain why you would provide services to other nations but not my own? Ruto looked to Daru, who nodded at him. Tsuchikage Dono, as you said, the seals are valuable to a nation. We established a policy of only working with allied countries to prevent our own seals from being turned against us. Unless Iwa is offering some form of alliance, the only seals we will offer are the commercially available variety. Onoki growled, but he couldn't fault the boy. Tell me, boy, do you understand how it looks when you sell to Kiri, Wave, Ame and Fire Country, but you won't sell to my land? Ruto shrugged impassively. Tell me, old man, do you really not understand our position? Also, for the record, we do not sell to Konoha. Old man Kirinji asked us to provide our services to Kenshin on his behalf, and we were paid handsomely. Onoki didn't know that bit of information and he didn't know this kid was that close to the daimyos. He decided to try and take back the offense. My apologies, Maki-san. I thought you were providing seals to Konoha. I thought that Kumo had a non-aggression pact with them. We do, but that is a far cry from an ally. As I am sure you know, we have very close ties with the new regime in Kiri. Mei Terumi is a good family friend and willingly signed the treaty and subsequent blood contract. As for the other minor countries, the Princess of Ame is my soon-to-be wife and Wave is an intimate ally of ours and a valuable trade partner. Kumo bears no grudges against Iwa, but we will also not endanger ourselves. Onoki grunted. Very well, that is acceptable, and I will discuss it with my council. I look forward to seeing the results of these Jonin exams. Enjoy your stay in Iwa. Meanwhile, two teams of prospective Jonin were entering through the Iwa gates. Might Guy was leading his Team 10 through the Iwa gates and having a rather one-sided conversation with Ebisu, who had been called up since Kakashi left. Ebisu didn't believe these brats were ready for Jonin, but when an Uchiha Hokage tells you to jump, you ask how high. Hiruzen watched with mirth in his old eyes at Guy's antics. He played idly with the prosthetic arm that the Maki family had gifted him and was grateful to have his left arm back after nearly 16 years without it. Hiruzen's gaze shifted from the merry conversation to the Chunin team that Ebisu was leading. Sasuke Uchiha, a fresh Chunin, Shikamaru Nara, a fresh and damned lazy Chunin, and Sakura Haruno, a girl that clearly didn't deserve to be Chunin. He shook his head as he thought of these kids competing in the Chunin exams. Sasuke may be, and that is a big maybe, talented enough, but he lacks the mentality and battle experience. The other two will not earn the rank, no chance. He left the group and went to catch up with an old friend. Sasuke scowled on his way to the hotel. His father had given him a side mission and he wasn't sure why his father cared about some foreign kunoichi. Why would his father want him to kidnap a Kumo girl? He shivered as he remembered the big blonde one that dominated the Chunin exams a while back. He dismantled every opponent he faced with little issues, but with his Mangekyo Sharingan, he thought that he could handle him now. With all of the training he had done, he should be more than a match for a non-Uchiha. He just wished that his father would have given him a competent third teammate if he were going to perform a mission within the exams. A while later, Hiruzen entered the Tsuchikage's office and greeted his old friend. Onoki looked up, saw him and immediately pulled out some sake from his desk. The two sat and sipped drinks for a minute before the conversation started. How is retirement treating you, old friend? Onoki asked. Hiruzen cocked an eyebrow. If I am old, what does that make you? The two shared a laugh before their impassive look settled on their faces once again. How are things going with that Uchiha brat holding the reins? Onoki asked with seriousness in his voice. Hiruzen sighed, he couldn't even fake it anymore. Honestly, Onoki, I don't even recognize the village anymore. Without spilling secrets, the invasion hit us hard, and I lost many of the shinobi that I thought would carry on the will of fire. Onoki was familiar with Hiruzen's outlook on shinobi life. Truth be told, he appreciated the concept, and he has tried to instill similar ideas into his shinobi. I am sorry to hear that, old friend. Did you ever think you would see the fall of one of the great five in our lifetimes? Hiruzen looked down and refilled his saucer. No, I did not. While I find it justifiable, I find it incredibly sad. The way Fugaku went about it also left me wanting. Onoki waved it off. Retaliation was justified, and the methods were no worse than what Suna did to you. Now, what do you think about the changes with Kumo? Hiruzen gave Onoki a look that said he knew what games he was playing. Their meteoric rise is terrifying. So is the complete change in their mentality. To think that one clan had such a profound effect on them, makes me wish that clan came to Konoha. Onoki laughed at that. I can safely say the same thing. To think that militaristic nation was the first to turn Fuinjutsu and ninjutsu into a commercial subsidy. Is it really all the Maki's doing? That is what we believe. Hiruzen held up his prosthetic arm and wiggled his fingers. Look at this piece of fine craftsmanship. They took my measurements, chakra and some simple medical tests, and they were able to create this in 1 week. Unfortunately, I was locked down in the hotel the whole time, but to think that they created this for me, it is generations ahead, or maybe I should say it is the quality of past generations of Fuinjutsu. Onoki got up from his seat and walked around his desk. He took time analyzing the metal arm and he forced himself to admit it was truly remarkable. Can you use hand signs with it and channel your chakra? Hiruzen nodded and Onoki whistled. Is Konoha going to push for a full treaty or extend the non-aggression pact? Hiruzen gave Onoki a coy look. That falls into the village secrets category, old friend, but if you tell me yours. Onoki waved him off and returned to his elevated seat behind his desk. The two continued the amiable conversation for another hour or so. The subtext of the conversation expressed supreme caution when dealing with Kumo. Onoki was hoping to curry favor and Hiruzen was hoping that Fugaku didn't something stupid to agitate the new number ones. 2 days later, Rudo walked confidently into the assessment area where Iwa Jonin were setting things up and guiding the contestants to a sign-in booth. The Kumo teams got in line and were waiting patiently for their turn when 2 Konoha teams got in line behind them. Rudo instantly postured and put himself between the Kumo and Konoha teams. Shikamaru, lazy genius he was, instantly noticed the posturing, but thought it would be too troublesome to say anything about it. That didn't stop the cocky and entitled Uchiha though. Well, look what trash the wind blew in from Kumo, Sasuke sneered. Shikamaru face-palmed and Team 9 watched on with interest, ashamed of their comrades' behavior. Ruto simply ignored the Uchiha, but that all changed when the Uchiha tried to lay a hand on his shoulder to force him to turn around. In a flash, much faster than anyone was ready for, Rudo turned, snatched the forearm that was approaching him and yanked it hard enough to turn Sasuke around. Now, Sasuke's right arm was locked behind his back and Rudo's free hand was in a hold around his jugular. In a menacing whisper, Rudo returned Sasuke's opening remarks. Well, if it isn't the entitled little Uchiha that never seems to learn his lesson. Talk to me or my teammates like that again and I will make it my mission to personally hunt you down in the second phase of these exams. Trust me, little Uchiha, your eyes won't save you. So, sit down, shut up and wait your fucking turn. Say anything else while we are in line and my left hand here will finish the job it is itching to complete right now. Am I clear? The close proximity to Rudo's killer intent, the helplessness of his current position and the memory of his ass whooping in wave flashed through Sasuke's mind. In a manner completely foreign to most Uchihas, Sasuke nodded submissively and Ruto shoved him into the arms of the pink-haired banshee. Sakura was frozen as the masked blonde glared at her. The piercing blue eyes paralyzed her while simultaneously daring her to speak. Shikamaru scratched his bundled ponytail and stepped forward. My apologies, Rudo-san. I will make sure my troublesome teammate doesn't act up again. Make sure you do that, Nara-san. I wouldn't want to cause an international incident because one, tiny, insignificant, entitled, pompous, arrogant ass decided to push me too far. Ruto turned around. Sasuke's injured pride outweighed his fear now and his Sharingan flared to life and took its Mangekyo form. In a violation of international law and a basic declaration of war, Sasuke called upon the black flames of Amaterasu. Ruto sensed the chakra build-up and noticed it was a sizable amount of chakra. In a blur, he grabbed his teammates and pushed them out of the way. A spurt of black flames that burned nearly as hot as the sun ripped into the line of participants before most people knew what was going on. Since Rudo had pushed his teams out of the way, he caught the edge of the Amaterasu flames, but the poor, unsuspecting Chunin from Kusa was doused in them. Before anybody could react, Rudo flashed into his lightning armor and returned Sasuke's attack with excessive force and violence. Ruto drew his katana, which naturally channeled the lightning chakra of the lightning armor, and he severed both of the Uchiha's hands with 2 lightning-fast strokes before he hit him on the back of his neck with the pommel of the katana, knocking him out. For Sasuke's part, he had locked onto the peasant that dared insult him, and he unleashed his new technique onto him. The technique put severe strain on the Mangekyo Sharingan, and it caused his eyes to bleed trickles of blood. He let out a burst of his heavenly flames, knowing that this would end it and he would never feel this sense of overwhelming insignificance again. Before he knew it, his mind processed a frame of images that showed blurs of motion before his whole body lit up in electrified pain. Then his whole world went black. In the realm of the conscious, Rudo was forced to take off his mask and armor as the black flames of Amaterasu ate away at them. On his shoulder, a patch of flames was eating away at chakra-reinforced flesh, and Ruto was crying out in pain. Mabui didn't hesitate for long. She whipped out her Fuinjutsu kit and created a fire sealing method, Fukajaoin, and slapped the seal on Rudo's shoulder. The black flames were sucked into the seal tag, leaving a shoulder that was burnt down to the bone and the flesh was crisped. Ruto also had burns on the right side of his face where the mask slowed down the progress of the flames. Chaos descended as Konoha shinobi took up defensive positions around Sasuke, with Sakura in the middle trying to staunch the bleeding. The other Kumo teams jumped in front of Rudo, and the Kuza team looked on the verge of attacking the Konoha teams. Suddenly, nearly 40 Anbu of Iwa, better known as Golem, had all contestants surrounded. Samui and Mabui didn't care, they were too busy tending to Ruto. The wound on his shoulder glowed with green light as the healing tag combined with his natural regeneration to grow back the destroyed muscle and tissue. The burns on Ruto's face let off steam as they hissed and healed. Shikamaru watched in a stunned silence as Sasuke might have started the 4th Great Shinobi War. His mind froze when he saw Ruto's face, and memories of his childhood crashed into his hectic mind. He subconsciously stored the memories away for later processing as the tension reached new levels due to all of the surrounding shinobi closing in on the Konoha group. A golem captain shouted in a threatening tone. "Konoha Nin, you will drop your weapons and stand down, or we will be forced to consider your whole group as hostiles." Sakura screeched as she attempted to heal Sasuke. "What are you talking about? That monster attacked my Sasuke-kun. You should be arresting him." Shikamaru calmed her before instructing Team 9 to stand down. "Golem-san, what my teammate is saying is that we have a critically injured team member and Maki-san is the one responsible." The golem captain laughed with menace in his voice. "For Inara, you must believe everyone else is stupid. We witnessed the whole fight, and it was the Uchiha who is at fault. Maki-san defended himself and neutralized a threat. For your teammate's actions, you will all be placed in holding until your teammate receives medical attention and is stable enough to return to Konoha. Konoha is no longer welcome to attend these exams." Neji Hyuga stepped forward. "Golem-san, I have no issues with the Uchiha's team being disqualified, but I would like to petition your Tsuchikage to let Team 9 remain. We have all put in considerable effort to be worthy of a Jonin promotion and would like the chance to prove ourselves." Neji and Team 9 bowed. Onoki floated over the group, soaking in the aftermath of the scene. He froze for a moment when he looked at the state of Rudo Maki. There was something so familiar about those eyes and hair. It clicked for Onoki, and he nearly fell out of the air in surprise. He wondered how he could best use the information to his advantage. So many things just clicked into place as he understood the identity of the youngster. "That is quite all right, Hyuga-san. You and your team may stay, but the Uchiha and his team will need to leave. We will have our doctors attempt to save his hands, but I make no promises. Mr. Nara and Ms. Haruno will be held in lockdown until the Uchiha is stable." Sakura was about to shriek in response to the perceived injustice, but Shikamaru covered her mouth and bowed to the Tsuchikage. "Thank you for your consideration, Tsuchikage Dono. We will offer no resistance to your orders." Sasuke was thrown on a stretcher and his hand were placed into a stasis scroll to better preserve the tissue. Samui watched with a scowl hidden beneath her mask as the Konoha team were escorted away. Once they were a fair distance away, Samui turned her scowl on Team 9, who seemed to be watching the rapid healing of Rudo with fascination. Mabui was putting the finishing touches on Rudo's healing when she noticed that his face was uncovered. She looked around in a near panic as she noticed multiple golem guards tensed up at Rudo's appearance. Anything they have is pure speculation, but speculation can still lead to danger, Mabui thought. She unsealed a spare bolt mask and handed it to Rudo, who seemed to break from his pain and understand what she was trying to say. "Well, Maki-san, are you going to be able to participate in the Jonin exams?" Onoki said with a glint in his eyes. Ruto looked up and the cold gaze laced with ki noticed the glint in the old man's eyes. He saw the shiver run down the short man's spine and knew that he would have to deal with this. "Ruto." raised himself off the ground and stretched his shoulder with forward and backward circular motions. The fresh patch of red skin was uncomfortable, but Rudo didn't let it show. He intensified his gaze and locked eyes with Onoki as he slid his mask back on his face. Worry not, Tsuchikage. I will be fine. Grit is just as important to a shinobi as any other shinobi tool. I would ask that any insights granted by this little display be kept between the two of us. Ruto's tone carried power and an unspoken threat, a threat that Onoki did not and could not miss. Very good, Maki-san. I look forward to seeing what you can do. If you make it through the second phase, I would like to invite you to dine with me. Good luck, Maki-san. Onoki's tone was laced with a hidden joy. He could sit on this information for 2 weeks before he turned the screws. Let the boy sweat a bit and then I will come with my offer, he thought. He knows, or at least he knows enough to be dangerous, Rudo said through the communication seal. Daru heard that and paled. I am going to let Shina and the Refuge know. Stay calm and do not let this affect you, Ruto. Daru pulled out the communication scroll and penned a message to the Refuge. 2 minutes later, Daru relayed the orders. Refuge says that he will be arriving after the second phase to train you, Ruto. He will not let the old midget push us around. Gotcha, okay everyone, Hikari has my healing sorted and I will be fine. Let's show them what a fight with Kumo would mean. Daru, let Ioji know that I will be going all out to make a point. Daru did so and his chill voice came through the channels 5 minutes later, all clear Ruto. Refuge-sama says let him have it. An hour later, Kumo's Team 12 were divided up and tested. The first test was a ninjutsu test that consisted of a couple parts. First was the chakra measurement and it used a device that quantified the chakra capacity and reserves of an individual and gave a score. The average score of a Jonin would be anywhere between 50 to 200, a Chunin would be between 200 to 400, a Jonin would be 400 to 900, Elite Jonin 900 to 2000 and above that would be cage level. Samui scored a 1780, Mabui scored a 1520 and Rudo caused everyone to pause and look at his score. On the display was 9001, which would be higher than any cage recorded currently. Ruto was asked to verify the score on another device and this time he flared his chakra a bit and scored a 9420. The exam proctors were dumbfounded, but that wasn't all. After placing his hand on the ball, Rudo flared his chakra to the point that a reddish gold aura emanated from him and the chakra measuring device cracked. He walked away with a smirk under his mask, his statement had been made. They led Team 12 to a training area for their ninjutsu demonstrations. The ninjutsu were scored with a multiplicative score for the number of natures, a flat score for grade of ninjutsu used and a destructive score. Mabui and Samui each demonstrated proficiency in 2 natures, Samui used Raiten and Suten while Mabui used Raiten and Doten. They each performed 2 of their best jutsus and made quite the impression on the proctors. Ruto came up and announced that he had mastered 3 chakra natures. He performed Suten, Annihilation Waterfall, a water jutsu that took all of the water out of a nearby pond and used it to perform a giant uppercut on his target before reforming in midair to crash down on the target. The crash dug a 20-meter deep 100-meter long trench in the training ground while disintegrating the target dummy. For Futon, Ruto performed the wide-scale Futon, Tempest Vortex Jutsu, which created a 200-meter wide tornado that combined blunt winds with wind blades to decimate a wide area. For Raiten, he went into his lightning armor, stage 3 and decimated a boulder by running through it. The proctor dropped his clipboard, but Rudo had one more statement to make. Before the proctor could total his Naiutsu score, which was already maxed out, Rudo announced that he had a Kekai Tauta. Onoki was watching the boy with all the intensity an old fart can muster and he spat out his tea when the boy said Kekai Tauta. The proctors cleared the way and Rudo demonstrated one of his higher rank storm jutsus. He encased his hands in a combination of the 3 chakras before he clapped his hands and called out Storm Release Storm Beam. This was a concentrated variant of Daru's laser circus. As a result the beam of storm chakra ripped through the training ground and bore a hole in the far mountain, which was a kilometer away. The reactions to this jutsu were priceless as people gaped at the path of the laser and the fresh hole in the mountain. It took a full 5 minutes for people to pick their jaws off the floor and return to normal. Needless to say, Ruto was scored as the highest in the ninjutsu category, followed by Kurotsuchi, Samui, and Mabui. The other Kumo teams peppered the top 20 and put on a good showing for Kumo. The next assessment phase was Genjutsu, which all members of Team 12 excelled at. Ruto used Kitsune illusions to pass the Genjutsu test, but he didn't show off much in this. After Genjutsu was Taijutsu, which had the contestants clear a timed course of target dummies and was graded on speed and destructive abilities. Rock Lee cried anime tears when Rudo bested him by 0.2 seconds and was given 10 more total points on destructiveness. After taijutsu, all contestants cleared an obstacle course. This was graded on speed alone with a number of penalties that would add to the contestants' time. No chakra use, or body reinforcement, was allowed on this, but Rudo still claimed the number 1 spot by 17 seconds. At this point, Neji had to pick Rock Lee off of his knees and throw him into the arms of Guy. The terrible beachside sunset mortified the Iwa shinobi and all others that were caught in the unbreakable genjutsu. Ruto, Mabui and Samui all took the extra options of kenjutsu and fuinjutsu. They didn't display anything classified, but the trio took top marks in both of these categories. Maya, Haku and Chojuro were simply blown away by the display of skill from their Kumo friends. They each believed that they had worked hard to develop their skills, but something was clearly done differently in Kumo. For Maya, the daughter of the Mizukage, to be placed 9th on the raw assessments didn't bode well for Kiri. Many of the other contestants felt the same, as the top 3 spots on the overall assessment board were populated by Team 12 of Kumo. Kurotsuchi was seething. This was her opportunity to represent Iwa on her home turf, and she placed 4th in the assessments. She had heard of this team, but she didn't think she would be this outgunned. Ruto scored a total of 4,204, Samui 3,133, Mabui 3,130 and Kurotsuchi totaled 2,989. In most Jonin exams, Kurotsuchi would have had the number 1 spot. Ruto literally set the Jonin exam record by over 1,100 points. Onoki watched the first phase of the assessments and the clear warning that Ruto gave him. The boy had glanced in his direction after every assessment, and his warning was clear. Fuck with the Maki clan and you fuck with your death. The boy's resolve was impressive, and Onoki could see why the boy was so highly regarded. In a straight-up fight, Onoki and everyone else in Iwa would lose to this young man. If it were just one shinobi, Onoki could deal with that, but it wasn't just one. Even the no-namers from Kumo occupied 9 of the top 20 spots. Kumo as a whole just put its cock on the table, and Onoki knew Iwa couldn't measure up. After the assessments, the teams were released for the night and told to report to an old, dugout mine that was on the outskirts of Iwa at 6 a.m. the next day. Team 12 immediately went back to their hotel room and had a meeting with Daru. Daru-sensei, Onoki knows my identity. I am sure of it after the way he watched me during the assessments and after our verbal exchange. He will try to use it to exploit Kumo, Rudo said, clearly frustrated with the duck-assed Uchiha that threw a wrench in the plan. I know, Rudo, it's okay. The Refuge will be here a day or 2 after your second phase. He won't let that old fart do anything. Your mother even thinks it may be time to make your public debut. Ruto looked up with concern, and the girls each took a hand to comfort him. Uzu isn't ready for the world's attention yet. If Onoki spills, then the resurrection of Uzu would become obvious. Relax, Ruto. Uzu is protected, and the only potential threat is Konoha and Iwa. After the statement you made today, Onoki wouldn't dare take Kumo on without preparations. If he does take us on, we have 4 Jinchuriki and a clearly superior force backup by Uzumaki Fuinjutsu. Sensei is right, Ruto. Be cool and everything will stay cool. Gaara created all of the beaches around Uzu, and he promised you as a blood brother that he would protect the island in your absence. Wouldn't it be cool to rub your success in Konoha and the Uchiha bastards' faces? Samui said before she placed a kiss on his whiskered cheek. We will be with you the whole way, my love. Till death do us part, Mabui teased. Oh? You're not getting rid of me that easily. After death, I will find you, both of you, Rudo said as he leaned his forehead into Mabui's. Samui climbed up and rested her head on his shoulder while Daru felt like the awkward and unnecessary fourth wheel. Okay, that's nice and all, but Rudo, how is your shoulder and face? Daru asked, trying to get the necessary conversation out of the way so he can leave the lovebirds alone. Shoulder is tight and tender, but Hikari and my regeneration took care of the worst of it, sensei. Good to hear. Well, I'll leave you all to it. Breakfast is at 5 a.m. Get your minds right and blow this exam away. As Daru left the room, Mabui got a sparkle in her eyes. Did you two see that Maya-chan and Haku-chan are here? They put up some pretty good scores, too. Yeah, I saw the scores, but I didn't see either of them. Naruto answered, laying back on the bed. Samui curled into Naruto's chest and placed a gentle kiss on his tender shoulder. Well, maybe we should look for them during the break. It would be great catching up with old friends. Mabui's melodious laugh filled Naruto's ear as she lay down. Old? We helped end the war like 2 or so years ago. That hardly qualifies as old, Naruto chuckled and locked his hands behind his head to let his girls cuddle in close. With the trio bundled up, they let darkness overcome them and got a much needed rest for the test to come. Alright guys, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. As always, the rest of the story is already out over on Patreon, link to that will be in the description. Anyways, until next time, peace.